key question here is who got a pipeline built and who didn't.
They're back at it. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today's top stories, we've got Justin Trudeau in his den of thieves. Despite Parliament being shut down because they won't give over the documents to the RCMP, they're still finding ways to screw Canadians. Today, we've got them putting on emission caps on oil and gas in a direct target to cripple the oil and gas industry in Canada and further reduce Canadian jobs. Not only Canadian jobs, the only sector in Canada, the oil and gas sector, that has growing numbers in Canada. It makes sense since every other sector in Canada is declining. You can't have one of them actually performing positive in this country. We'll start this off with Jagmeet Singh was asked about the oil and gas caps that were put on, but first he was asked about the American election. He isn't keeping it secret who he wants to win.
As our biggest trading partner, the outcome of that election is going to have a direct impact on Canadians. And I know that folks are wondering who's going to win. I'm also similarly going to pay close attention. And I hope in this election, the hope of Kamala Harris's campaign, that hope wins out over hate, that the freedom for women to choose wins out over misogyny. And folks already know where I stand on Trump. I think he's a bully. I really hope that hope that Kamala has put forward shines through that day. And I think about what that would mean for so many young racialized women.
Jagmeet Singh wants Kamala to win. No surprise there. Later on this press conference, he's asked about the oil and gas cap emissions that the Trudeau Liberals have just imposed today.
And how would you like to see that policy be strengthened?
Yeah, one of the loopholes, for example, is for refinement, there's no cap on pollution. So if you're refining, there's literally no cap. You can pollute as much as you want. That's one concrete example that really makes a plan not really a strong plan to tackle emissions and pollution.
Sure, Mr. Delay, because this has taken 9 years to get this cap out there. You're now asking for more changes and tightening of this regulation, which could be perceived as a further delay. So is it not better to get this out there than wait and finesse it more?
Well, there's a couple of very obvious loopholes that need to be closed, but let's get it done quickly. Absolutely. There's been 9 years of delay. Finally, there's something put forward with some serious loopholes. Fix those loopholes quickly and get it done right away.
Jagmeet knows nothing gets done in the government quickly. This is actually really interesting. You think about this. They're putting in this emissions cap on oil and gas so late after Canadians have been wanting to axe the tax. We won an election. We want to get rid of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. This is the play they do. Going after the oil and gas sector, putting in the emissions cap. Very peculiar. Not really the play you thought they would go for. They're keeping it interesting, that's for sure.
Prop up the government until that's done.
We've said that we'll look at any vote before the House and make a decision that's in the best interest of Canadians. At a time when people are struggling, people are hurting, we want to see actions. Thanks so much. Missy.
Look at this guy. He's asked about propping up the government. He runs away like a frightened turtle. Look at this guy.
People are hurting, we want to see actions. Thanks so much. Missy.
People are hurting, yet Captain Pension here just takes off. There you have it, folks. I guess he's doing what's best for Canadians, aka him himself. Now we jump into the House. They debated the oil and gas cap emissions put in today.
To the NDP Liberal Prime Minister's economic vandalism, over 2 million Canadians are visiting a food bank in a single month. Housing costs have doubled, and inflation continues to eat away at Canadians' paychecks. His massive deficits and tax hikes are causing extreme damage to the Canadian economy. For 8 out of the last 9 quarters, Canadian per person GDP is down. This is a made in Canada per person GDP recession. That means Canadian workers work harder but bring home less. So will the Prime Minister stop his economic vandalism and cancel his job-killing, paycheck-shrinking tax hikes?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning we heard the sad news of the passing of the Honourable Maurice Sinclair. Let me take a moment before we begin today to say a few words about him.
I join in my honourable colleagues' sending of condolences, but we are witnessing economic vandalism in real time. Last Thursday, this government was briefed that the only sector of the Canadian economy actually producing any growth was the energy sector. And what did they do today? They slapped a punishing cap on Canadian production. All this will do is chase investments and jobs to other countries. But that's something this Prime Minister is good at. He's increased Canadian investment into the US by $63 billion last year alone. So will the Prime Minister stop fueling the US economy, cancel his tax hikes, and cancel the production cap, bring those investment dollars back?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we were very pleased to announce an emissions cap with respect to the oil and gas sector in this country. Given that oil and gas constitutes 31% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions, it is important that we work with the sector to reduce emissions just as we do with every sector. It is also true that as we move towards a lower carbon economy across the world, oil and gas produced with the lowest emissions is actually going to have value around the world. We are moving forward with a plan to address climate change and build a strong economy going forward. They are stuck in the past and ignoring the science of climate.
That sounds all good on paper, but really, oil and gas, energy is what runs planet Earth. It runs all of our lives on Earth. Otherwise, we'd be running around with sticks living in caves. Let's get real. So Wilkinson's drive to fight climate change, when he knows full well Canada's not even going to affect the climate, are just policies that will hurt Canadians. It makes energy more expensive in Canada. So really, this is an attack on the Canadian population in Canada. That's what this is here. They know what they're doing. They're just sinister. If they really cared, like this little weasel here, really cared, then they would be having serious talks with India and China and America and working out a plan that works with all those countries. Because we can't do it. We can't do it alone. We can't even move the needle at all.
Production cap will do is make other countries richer while making Canadians poor. That's something this Prime Minister is so good at. Consider this: GDP per capita in Canada down. In the US, it's up. 9 years ago, average wages in the US and Canada were almost identical. Now, an American worker brings home $22,000 more than their Canadian counterpart, and $500 billion in investments has fled Canada to the United States, creating bigger paychecks for American workers, all because of this Prime Minister's high taxes and massive deficits. The Prime Minister is the #1 job creator in the United States. So instead of helping the Canadian economy, why not fight for Canada for once?
Mr. Speaker, maybe the member opposite should take time to actually read the information about the pollution cap. Production is forecast to increase 16% by 2030, Mr. Speaker. So this idea that we're somehow cutting production is simply not true.
Just like you guys didn't do anything, which burned down Jasper. It's amazing. Look at the legacy of these guys. Like his legacy, he's effectively responsible for burning down Jasper. So jumping out of the House now, they had some committee meetings on this today, and this edited by Wiretap is awesome. It says climate con man and pathological liar Jonathan Wilkinson announced an all-out war on oil and gas industry, which will put hundreds of thousands of Canadians out of work. And who would you expect to be standing next to him? Little Adam Van Gooverden.
A follow plan to reduce carbon emissions in the oil and gas sector on a path to net zero by 2050 will help to secure the long-term competitiveness of the industry while creating well-paying jobs for Canadians. It will ensure businesses and folks who work, the 400,000 workers who work in the oil and gas sector will...
Why is Gabe lying behind him? I'm like running back my laugh here. It's so stupid. What is he doing back here? Why doesn't he stand over here?
Will have continued opportunity.
You're saying tens of thousands of jobs will be created globally. Has estimated that 110,000 jobs will be lost in Canada due to your job-killing oil and gas cap. Are you confirming today that tens of thousands of jobs will be more than 110,000 jobs that you've been driving away from Canada? Yes or no? Simply yes or no.
Look, the oil and gas cap is intended to incent economic activity and the long-term competitiveness of the oil and gas sector while doing what we need to do to address the climate issue. Ladies and gentlemen, we can choose to lead by recognizing where the world is heading and aggressively pursuing decarbonization and diversification initiatives to enable major areas of economic opportunity. Or we can bury our heads instead. We can pretend the world is not moving towards the future, eroding our competitiveness, our long-term prosperity, and our jobs. This federal government's focus on decarbonizing Canada's oil and gas sector is the plan to protect the planet for future generations and to enhance the short and long-term competitiveness of the industry.
How does this not have to pass the non-functioning parliament? And none of it will have any specific measurable effect on the climate. There it is, folks. Alberta needs to stop sending them money. So over this committee video we thought sort of talking about the different oil and gas pipelines. We had 2 in Canada that were shut down. Just the Trans Mountain is one that's the Liberals bought for $34 million. She's really Christy Freeland here, and then she kind of flex over Wilkinson. It's a pretty sad display.
Okay, because your government has killed 2 other intellectual pipelines in Northern Gateway and Energy East, and only now is getting the Trans expansion built and started to operate as a $34 billion liability on taxpayers. And that capacity is actually equal, which will automatically cut production election, creating energy business jobs and opportunities. So based on that, how can the Liberals and their energy sector colleagues possibly justify imposing a oil and gas tax on a job oil and gas tax? I'm going to start answering the question, and Mr. Wilkinson may want to offer some thoughts. Look, I do think that in the areas where it's possible for everyone in this committee and for everyone else to agree, we should. And I think that it is really meaningful and actually great that we have completed a nation-building project that both Rachel Notley and Danielle Smith support. That is a good,
way over budget, like beyond over budget
thing for Canada. I also absolutely agree, as does as do all economists, that oil and gas is an important part of Canada's economy. Having said that, it is absolutely inappropriate for conservatives to criticize our government when it comes to pipelines. We got a pipeline built to Tidewater. Conservatives did not. That is the reality. This is a nation-building project.
They're not saying emissions, capital, oil and gas. They're the ones pushing the carbon tax, climate, this and that, and they're celebrating building an oil pipeline. But you can't make this stuff up. Which way is it? Are you supporting oil and gas or not?
I think there was an Calgary Herald was a senior Alberta energy leader as a nation-building project. It was our government getting pipelines done. That is self-imposed oil and gas, but oil and gas tax. The United States does it. Key question here is who got a pipeline built and who didn't. So the answer is our government built a nation-building project. Is contributing.
I think maybe this is embarrassing to watch. This whole way here. For a little answer the question. I mentioned before, there's another for me. If someone doesn't answer questions, I'll fine. But we put that in law.
Meaning that we told you our national security, electric wages for Canadian workers. I think that is right. I'm proud to stand up.
I'm happy to answer your question. The emissions cap is not actually announced today, but it is both an important part of reducing carbon emissions and climate change.
Remember some specific questions you can answer, and I think it would be appropriate and proper for the answer question.
I would say that the emissions cap is also
Sorry, the rest of the order. Particularly, question was asked. Mr. Freeland, the emissions cap is following Mr. Wilkinson's mandate position. So, if you want to say a question on that, I think that's Mr. Wilkinson. But, we'll go back to Ms. Ellis, that is questions. But we'll allow us a good reminder for members to ask the question, allow the ministers to answer, so we can give a full answer to the question asked. So, Ms. Ellis, we'll go back to you.
When questions actually answered. So,
I wouldn't expect any less for This is a answer the question. She's just Trudeau's right hander. Another important point for Canada real estate oil and gas is not eliminate. We need to build and non-sprawler commercial. Modern infrastructure transit requires significant oil and gas use. Oil and gas is not a good idea. Even oil and gas, like, you basically should be making things as cheap as possible for everyone because it makes life much cheaper. Pushing innovation, new technology, build up our system, slowly transition to new technology. You don't have technology to replace oil and gas. That's why we've been in place already. You might say also oil panels. These just China will have hundreds of oil panels in my house. We're also looking at campaign that I brought on a couple days ago. Here's a picture pretty funny asking about this.
Mr. Freeland is not naming it.
Come on, dude. That's actually very upsetting. This is Justice Trudeau's friend. The one thing. Because your confrontation, getting $500 a year, CC was not only paid her role, CC, fined for breach of conflict of interest act. And how much she fined $200? I'm driving to Alberta, $200. I'm guaranteeing what she did was worse than I did, was directly interest like she was fined for failure to report material change in assets. Except politics arguments that you can piece for the conference.
In these challenging times, it would be convenient, and certainly some say we have our own problems at home, we can't keep our support for Ukraine. But that's exactly what the Kremlin wants. They have a long view of history. They know she's sending thousands of their citizens to die while waiting us out. That's why we must all double down.
I need to double down, Put on the vest. Get on the front lines, man. Just how it's done. Double down, coward. Get out there. Be the front of the pack. I wouldn't narcissism and Canadian society. So you can support Canadians. That's basically what you just said. Talk about me. Well, I'm not complicated. Well, anyone else associated with him. And also, that's what Melanie Jolie. You're talking about support Russia from North Korea. You're not even deal. Getting out here. It's absolutely obvious.
Are we talking about Ukraine? Yes, and the fact that he's now bringing North Korean troops so that he wants to compensate for his own losses, but also that he's willing to actually go very far. And that's why we need to make sure that we're strong in support Ukraine.
Thank goodness our Minister of Foreign Affairs just right on it. Don't stupid. I don't use the words like she gave us innovation to everyday Nazi. We've got Nazi video on Ukraine. Why is anything either? Well, she looks like gesture and shoulder pass. But it's done from mustache man, cheerleader act, couple of genuine deer heads like foreign minister more on best. She's so back to the workforce. So he thinks it's a attack on Canadian prosperity, very hard to on people. Energy is like any country on planet Earth. Countries that have most energy hence Dubai to explode with destruction, take all oil, and very rich, taking whatever they find to overcracking or offshore, or any other etc. Oil, wealthy prosperous nation. Oil and gas is the backbone of any modern society on planet Earth. Wants to live in this stone age.
If you love your town, except when the conference comes to town, then when you get out of town, you have an Airbnb. Airbnb and get paid to get away.
At Desjardins, we speak business.
So you happy with your expansion?
Yeah, it was definitely the right call. Now let's talk about upgrading.
Which really boosted revenues.
Nice.
Time to look at foreign markets.
Because you know who could really use these?
By Flint, by Detroit, by the entire ecosystem of making great things here in the state of Michigan. You know, when Kamala Harris talks about the electric vehicle mandate, you know that would destroy 117,000 Michigan auto worker jobs. You know better than I do. It's not just the people who are assembling the automobiles, it's the people who are manufacturing the components, it's the supply chain, it's the carburetors, it's everything that goes in to that incredible Michigan-built car that makes us so proud, but also employs a lot of good middle-class jobs and a lot of good middle-class Americans. You know, we believe where Kamala Harris wants to destroy the Michigan auto industry with this electric vehicle mandate, you know what Donald J. Trump believes? He believes you ought to be able to drive whatever the hell car you want to because this is America and we believe in freedom. And we believe that when Americans are free to choose to drive whatever car they want to, they're going to choose great Michigan-made automobiles because they're the best vehicles in the world. And you know, Kamala Harris attacks Donald J. Trump all the time, and this is the biggest tell. She's betting on all of us not being smart enough to realize the game that she's playing, but when she attacks Donald J. Trump for wanting to impose tariffs to protect the Michigan auto industry, she's telling you exactly who she's going to fight for. She's going to fight for electric vehicles made in communist China. We're going to fight for Michigan auto workers and all of the middle-class families who depend on those jobs. Because here's the thing. If you are unwilling to apply pressure to communist China for not allowing Michigan automobiles to be sold all over the world. Think about this. If you're a company and you want to employ a literal slave laborer in China to manufacture automobiles, and you're having a government that's going to reward people for buying those automobiles made in China, then reward people who are buying cars made in America, that's going to destroy the manufacturing economy in the state of Michigan and in the United States of America. Here's what a tariff, all it does is say that if you're a foreign company or you're a foreign corporation and you want to manufacture something with slaves in communist China, you're going to pay a big fat penalty if you try to bring that crap back in the United States of America. It's common sense. And the other thing that allows you to do is to negotiate with other companies so that we make sure that those great Michigan-made automobiles are being sold not just in North America, but all over the world. If you go to Europe, Mike Rogers knows this, you go to Europe, how many GMs, how many Fords do you see in Europe? None. Because for 40 years, and I hate to say it, in some ways it's been bipartisan, American leaders have refused to say to Europe, you have got to let great Michigan products into your markets in 2 days, my friends. That changes, because no more free ride for Europe and no more free ride for anybody else. We're going to sell everything all over the world because we make the best stuff.
This episode of Mi'kma'ki features knowledge holder Duma Young explaining in Mi'kmaq to host Jarvis Gugu about Ilmi Busam, traditional medicines. Working with elders over the years, Young has identified up to 1,000 plants.
And so it's a combination of how I learned was growing up, living on a trap line, listening to elders, and also using academic knowledge.
Jarvis Gugu is from the Wegogama First Nation. He was delighted to host Mi'kma'ki and share Mi'kmaq history.
And I was enthusiastic. I said, you know what, this is a great idea. It's an opportunity to share stories with, a different audience. I'm like, you know what, I'm on board.
Andrew Younger produced the show for his company, the Wellsong Group, a television and media production house. He was inspired to develop the series so people can understand what is going on in Mi'kmaq communities.
I've always had a real interest in Mi'kmaq history, and one of the things I'm seeing more and more in social media is people not understanding the history of the Mi'kmaq and why many of the issues that have come up politically exist.
Gugu traveled around the province, speaking to Mi'kmaq people about their rich culture and history and learning hands-on skills, such as braiding sweetgrass.
So what I learned was you can actually transport sweetgrass from its original native location or its spot to making a flower bed elsewhere. Somebody who has a green thumb probably knew that was common sense. That was actually something that was new to me.
This episode may have focused on traditional medicines, but others will feature the meaning of regalia, art, and repatriation of Mi'kmaq artifacts. Gugu says the series will educate people about Mi'kmaq culture.
But somebody out there loves dancing. Somebody out there loves sewing. Somebody out there loves fishing. And through interviewing these people in the series, I got to learn a little bit of something of each of that. And I want our audiences to learn, not just Mi'kmaq, but even non-Mi'kmaq, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, whether it's here in Mi'kma'ki or elsewhere.
The 13 45-minute episodes air on community television, and they will eventually be posted on YouTube next year. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Chapuktuk, also known as Halifax.
This is a sign of peace.
Can I see the sign? Well, are we under Canadian law or Sharia laws here, sir?
For my officer safety, please.
Your officer safety?
I think there's going to be violence, serious violence. There already are incidents already. Jewish schools are shot up, synagogues are shot up, windows are smashed at synagogues, Jews are accosted all over the place, not only in Toronto, but across Canada.
Thank you, Michael Krasner.
And if we allow it to continue, I'm very afraid that's going to turn into violence and pogroms in the streets like we saw before the establishment of the state.
Don't support the state of Israel. Supporting the state of Israel is a rebellion against God.
That is the guy. Fuck you and Israel.
Hey, go touch yourself. Hey, don't touch us. You don't walk away? Officer, you can enforce the law? Well, not with that name. You know. Okay. David Menzies for Rebel News. Excuse me. David Menzies for Rebel News here in Toronto, and folks, we're back at the intersection of Bathurst and Shepherd, and as you can see, thank you, officer. As I was saying, folks, we are back here at the corner of Bathurst and Shepherd. And you know, for about a year now, actually a little over a year, the pro-Israel demonstrators have assembled on the other side of the street. And it's basically to have a vigil for the kidnapped victims, the ones that remain alive, of course, for their safe return. Now, there are thousands of intersections in the city of Toronto in which the pro-Hamas crowd can come and demonstrate. But for the last 3 weeks, they have picked this intersection. Now, one of the reasons we're here is to monitor the behavior of the police. Because last week, there was a man who allegedly made an offensive gesture to the Hitler Youth Movement. And, well, the pro-Hamas crowd, they complained to the police, and the police arrested him. So we're hoping to do a follow-up on that. And it was absolutely incredible. Now, like Beatlemania has broken out. I know I'm not Brad Pitt, but I don't think I'm at the level where women are screaming. In any event, the other reason we're here is to see how journalists are treated. One of the pro-Hamas people complained to the cops that they didn't want me here. That's on a public sidewalk. And guess what? I was frog marched off. Oh, well, here we go. Why are the cops taking your orders, sir? Are we under Canadian law or Sharia law? Whose orders? Well, it seems that, with you guys, you complain about people. Yeah, when someone breaks the law, they enforce it. Someone did the throat gesture. Don't you think they should go to jail? What about chanting genocide on the streets of... No, answer that question. Who cares what I think, sir? But you've been chanting for genocide for over a year now. Under Section 319 of the Criminal Code of Canada. I know you know the law because I think your brother has been charged with something. How's your brother's case going? See a crime, whoever does it, they're going to enforce it. They need a few paddy wagons here because I've seen this chant for genocide. There was someone down here that had a swastika.
This is a sign of peace. This is a sign of good. This is a sign. You will not be here if you are swearing another sign. Would you be here if you were swearing? You will not be here if you were sexually back.
My time is done. Well, it's not a safety issue. Please move. Well, sir, if it's a safety issue, officer, you think I'm in danger? Why not arrest the thugs? You're in danger. Okay, what happened in here, right? Yeah, oh, he complained again, right? Well, why don't they move away from me? I have every right to stand on this sidewalk. Please, I appreciate that, officer. Well, are we under Canadian law or Sharia law here, sir? Your officer safety. If you want to report crimes, here. This is a public sidewalk. This is not your private property. Okay, officer, with all due respect, before I leave, if you think there's a safety issue here, why are you arresting the thugs, including this man who assaulted me and damaged my microphone? Don't touch the mic. Don't touch it. Why? Why don't you uphold your oath, officer? I'm practicing journalism on a public street. I can't even move. Please give me a rope, please. Can you move back? Can you move back? So there you go. So, okay, I'm walking. So there you go. So there you go, folks. So there you have it, folks. We are seeing the enforcement of Sharia law in the Great Dominion of Canada. These thugs want us to leave, and the cops are following their orders. It is unbelievable. And the reason, according to this officer, is a safety issue. Well, if anyone is at risk, according to by these hooligans, then why not enforce the law against them? This is like victim blaming. Well, that's how we roll in Toronto. The police have two-tier policing. They're taking their orders from Mayor Olivia Chow or perhaps Justin Trudeau, and it is absolutely despicable. I mean, if you don't want to enforce the law, why are you a police officer? You know, that's what we're saying. Uphold the law, enforce the law, but no, they are bending the knee to the thugs. Week after week after week, this is what happens, and I think our country is lost. How much longer is this going to go on for? Who is in control of the Toronto Police Service? I'd really like to know that. Or is this just a grassroots policing? They pick a side, the wrong side, and they are enforcing the law accordingly, or what they interpret to be the law. Absolutely shameful, folks. What can I tell you? Sir, what did I ask you? I'm here to the press. What was your bachelor? You are working as a police officer. When he says to ask for your bachelor, we're supposed to get it. So my bachelor is on. Thank you. So I'm going to invest. Well, with Mayor Weinstein, familiar face, he's with Israel Now. Mayor, one of our angles on covering this demonstration is not so much the dueling protest, but the fact that there seems to be an abundantly clear indication of two-tier policing. Namely, you can have the people across the street, the River to the Sea crowd, chant for genocide, do vandalism, do physical assault. It's nothing to see here, but the police, on their behest, will arrest peaceful counter-demonstrators, will interfere with independent media types. Mayor, the question I ask is, are we Canadian law or Sharia law right now? That's a great question. It really does seem like Sharia law is being enforced in Canada right now. Just every time I was on the street, I started, there was a global call for killing Jews. And people were frightened. I was facing to school that day. And that was the first time I believe a couple of community members decided to stand in this corner, rape the Israeli flag, we're going to hide, we're going to fight Canada. Canada has a power Jewish community. Out of that, grassroots, this rally's been blossoming for more than a year, being proud to be Jewish public, and for the Holocaust, support the idea of support for the family in Israel. That's what this rally's about. Now, these people over here have attempted to slander and mischaracterize what we're doing over here. And I would like Canadians to look at the facts. You have flags, you have maps of Israel, covered over with the Palestinian flag, calling for the end of the state of Israel.
As Canadian born Israeli citizen, I want to be clear that what they're doing is a flagrant violation of the law. All right, it's Article 319, Section 21 of the criminal code prohibits the downplaying, extortion, or denial of the Holocaust, and it exists and protect all the Jews. They're going to most United States history. They use genocide to explain why we have to Polish Jew for Holocaust against us. And you know that the criteria of the commission, right? So you're looking at a situation where there's been 4 8 comes in population, and you don't see that in genocide. You don't see it in text, so there's a deep politics genocide. You don't see execution. There's never genocide in Israeli population. Somehow increasing growing. There may be increase after, right? Massacre rate and again, never growing. So I think a lot of it is, I think we want to relate to the Holocaust. And because they use something that we've gone through as a people. And I find not only they produce respect and I also find it a violation of the law. I'm going to speech where they speak to Jews under the 2.1 census rates.
Orlev is, I think, 33 years old now. He's been held captive since October 7th. He was in a bomb shelter where 27 Israelis youth from the North Festival were hiding. He and his wife. They have a 3-year-old son. 8 grenades were thrown into that bomb shelter. 7 were thrown back successfully to terrorists. The last one they find better on their side, and it blew up. That's the one that blew off the hand first falling over. And Or was one of those who survived that grenade. His wife did not. She was murdered in front of him, and thus he was dragged to Gaza. He's been there ever since. We have heard nothing. We don't know if he's alive or dead. You know, right on, and the 3-year-old son is being raised by his 2 brothers and parents.
Well, the text behind me are Rebel News. Here. We are echoing the message of these demonstrators. Bring them home. No, you can't wear a t-shirt and tell me saying nothing about understanding what's you. If you believe that message, please go to understandisrael.com. Understandisrael.com. Should Donald Trump be successful in being elected president again? Do you see that as a hope that peace will be restored in the world?
Absolutely. We need a strong leader. Unfortunately, the other camp is the same Obama metro.
Well, maybe you remember last week when we were here, we spoke to Carol, the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, who was celebrating his birthday last Thursday. Well, here's her birthday boy himself. It's Jack. He turned 95. Jack, happy birthday. Happy birthday. It's October 31st Halloween. But I gotta say, sometimes when you see the shenanigans across the street, people chanting for genocide, how does that make you feel as a Holocaust survivor?
I'm very disappointed that they allow them over there. Let them do it on their own day, not disturb what they do.
Well, it's not exclusively Palestinian flags on the other side of the street. We see the Iranian regime flag, and you know, if you're allowed on the other side of the street, I'm asking that fellow, are you afraid to use your page right now? I sure would be. And I can't stress the importance of this U.S. presidential election on Tuesday. When the Trump administration was in power, well, the Iranian regime was virtually bankrupt. They were docile under the Biden administration. They're flush with billions of dollars of oil revenue because sanctions aren't being enforced, and they're the ones who are fighting the terrorism. Let's hope the beginning of the end of that party begins on Tuesday night. Now, Charlene, I see someone who seems to be Orthodox Jew. He's on the side of Hamas. He's holding a sign that says, "State of Israel does not represent world Jewry." He looks for Israel in quotation marks. What's the deal with that?
So this is a cult. I'm not sure of the numbers in Israel. I think they speak
kiddish. They don't speak English. They do nothing for the state of Israel, and they do nothing for the state of Israel as a legitimate state. No.
Where's the authority? Where's our politicians? Where's our police? Where's the point? It's a letter to the Solicitor General, citing Section 319 of the Criminal Code, and it also includes all kinds of denial in there. And I don't see the response to that. He's the Solicitor General, he lives in this right as well, and he's not enforcing the law.
We need to put these security horses and everything else, whether my work politicians are people or their population, they need to engage in bring people over again. That's lies. Very explicit. We need to show that they feel as though they're more protected and they're and we also heard this violence we saw before the when you vote for the liberal side of transgender and free this and free that, you destroy the country, you destroy the including diversity, feminism, you destroy North America now. You're free everything around, not just the Jews, all minorities. I will promise you have to otherwise the world will be destroyed.
I think it's going to be violence, a serious violence. There already are incidents already. Jewish schools are shot, Windows are smashed, Jews are busted all over the place, not only in Toronto, across Canada. It's going to have a lot more inactive people on that side, on the supporters, that's what they're going to do. They call resistance, they call us Jews, less the worst names imaginable, worse than incest they compare to. That is already, we're going to do increase violence, no question about it, and the police are not enforcing law.
More than 1 years of massacre in Israel, and yet question genocide in a meaning still out is despicable. If you look at the video, that is canadastandaisrael.com, we won't tolerate this violent disgusting hate speech. I'm going to pack your bags and leave.
في ظل توقف كثيرين أمام محطة الانتخابات الرئاسية الأمريكية، فإننا نؤكد أنه مهما كانت نتائجها فهي لا تعني الحركة وشعبنا الفلسطيني، فالإدارة الأمريكية السابقة والحالية كانتا شريكتين وداعمتين لهذا الكيان الصهيوني في حربه وعدوانه على شعبنا وقضيتنا الوطنية، وعلى الإدارة الأمريكية الجديدة أن تستمع للأصوات التي تتعالى من المجتمع الأمريكي الرافض للاحتلال والرافض للعدوان الصهيوني والمعترضة على دعمه.
The tight race for the White House is fueling a wave of election litigation by both Democrats and Republicans as they spar over the ground rules for early voting, mail-in ballots, and voter eligibility. For a closer look at that and what's to come, we're joined now by election law expert David Becker. He's the executive director and founder of the nonpartisan Center for Election Innovation and Research. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So more than 80 million Americans have already voted. Key swing states like North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan experiencing a high volume of mail-in and absentee voting. Have you spotted any disruptions, irregularities, any problems that could lead to legitimate questions about the integrity of the vote or the vote count?
It's remarkable. As you mentioned, we've seen about 80 million ballots cast already. States like North Carolina and Georgia are over 4 million ballots cast. That's likely around 75 to 80% of their total turnout already voting. And we've seen hardly any problems at all. Certainly nothing that would involve voter safety or any kind of conflicts at the polling places. We're really even not hearing many stories about lines. Most of the stories about lines occurred on the last day of early voting in some states. And of course, that always happens. That's just reflecting enthusiasm. And in fact, people waited until the last minute a little bit, which is always understandable. But it's remarkable how smoothly voting has gone, how few problems there have been. And that's particularly so while we're dealing with things like our foreign adversaries spreading disinformation and the highly divisive environment we're currently in. It's really remarkable, a testament to our election officials.
I want to ask you about that in a bit, but first, both parties are preparing massive legal operations to file and respond to litigation on and after Election Day. 2024, according to one estimate, is the most litigated election ever. What are you tracking in particular?
Well, I think we've seen a lot of pre-election litigation. It's very likely it is the most pre-election litigation we've ever seen before. And we should put this in context. In 2020, there was a lot of pre-election litigation that was trying to clarify rules, particularly changes and adaptations that were made due to COVID. And it should be noted that Republicans won about 85% of those cases pre-election in 2020. In the 2024 election, we're seeing some cases like that. We're seeking to clarify rules, but we're seeing Republicans push last-minute changes a lot more, and we're seeing them lose a majority of cases. We're seeing things like cases raised about the voter list, which they've known about for days, weeks, months, years, and could have brought at any given point in time. We see challenges about mail voting laws that have been around in some cases for decades in states like Nevada. And then we're seeing challenges to even military and overseas voting procedures that have been around in some cases for as long as 40 years. So those kinds of cases have been dismissed by courts, even by judges appointed by former President Trump himself. And we'll be then moving on to the post-election period. We'll have to see what happens, obviously. In a really close election, there is legitimate litigation that can be brought. Think Florida 2000, when it's that close, hundreds of votes. But when we see an election that's decided by margins like we saw in 2020, it's very, very unlikely any post-election litigation will succeed. And that's largely because the candidate who's behind it will still have to bring evidence that they can somehow make up the margin. And once you get over a few hundred votes, it's almost impossible to do that.
I was going to ask you that. Does the number of cases floated by the GOP and Republican affiliated entities, does that suggest anything about the number of legitimate concerns connected to the vote?
So I think what's been surprising is it hasn't reflected legitimate concerns. It seems to be have the effect of we have the normal kind of litigation that seeks to clarify rules that need clarifying. There's a lot of litigation, as I mentioned, that seeks to challenge rules that were never going to be successfully challenged. They were never going to win a lot of those cases. And you have to wonder if what we'll see after the election is that the losing candidate might bring up some of these same dismissed claims to try to suggest the election was stolen. That would be very dangerous if that happens. There are a lot of sincere supporters of the losing candidate that could be incited to anger or potentially even violence. And of course, we remember that to some degree from 2020.
Returning to the issue of foreign interference, which you mentioned earlier, has the effort by U.S. intelligence agencies to expose Russian disinformation, has that been effective in disrupting them and diminishing the impact?
Well, I think our adversaries are highly motivated. They see a big reward in potentially disrupting our elections. And again, they're not disrupting our elections by attacking actual election infrastructure. We're way too decentralized. We have paper ballots. We have a lot of protections and redundancies and checks and balances in place so that no foreign adversary or domestic actor could change or alter the votes in an election. We should say for everyone in the United States, don't trust social media, don't trust videos, don't trust claims about election fraud or something that they're seeing just on the web. Trust your local and state election officials. Go to those sites, find out what's really going on. Do not rely upon social media and the internet right now because there's a lot of disinformation.
It's good advice, David Becker with the Nonpartisan Center for Election Innovation and Research. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Jeff.
to become a cancer researcher. I want to be a sports broadcaster when I grow up. I want to become an architect. When I grow up, I want to become a graphic designer. I want to become a professional.
Video appears to show pro-Palestinian protesters using wooden poles to strike Hindu worshippers and smash cars in the parking lot of the temple. This as Indian consular officials were meeting inside, issuing pension certificates to Indian citizens.
The people outside, they started protesting and they went wild.
This man was inside at the time for his daily prayers, and like many here, is upset.
These incidents, not unite the community, they divide the community. That's not good things, right? They say peace, everybody coming from here for peace.
Peel police arrived on scene and say around the same time, protesters relocated to Mississauga, where a police officer was assaulted, suffering minor injuries. 3 people were arrested in all, charged with assault and mischief.
It's getting out of hand. Folks need to de-escalate, and I know it is a tense time between Canada and India, but violence and intimidation and protesting each other's places of worship is never appropriate.
The mayor of Brampton now pushing for a bylaw to prohibit protests at places of worship. Provincial politicians, the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition swiftly denounced the violence, as did the Prime Minister of India, who called the attack cowardly attempts to intimidate our diplomats.
It is concerning because, from the videos we saw yesterday, the violence is broken out, and it's broken out at religious sites that are important to both communities.
This expert on Indian politics says protests like these are likely fueled by the fact that just 2 weeks ago,
in Canada, 6 diplomats were expelled from Ottawa. The Indian government retaliated by expelling 6 Canadian diplomats in return.
Sanjay Ruparelia points out that it is also the 40th anniversary of the assassination of then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, which led to years of civil unrest.
And it's really important to see that community leaders are issuing, statements of calm.
And a very loud but peaceful protest is taking place here this evening outside the temple. Peel police remain on scene to ensure that no violence erupts here this evening. I should also mention an off-duty Peel police officer has been suspended after a video emerged online, which appeared to show him at yesterday's violent demonstration. An investigation has been launched into that. In Brampton, Catherine McDonald, Global News.
Windsor is suing the federal government for more than $900,000 over what it calls promised funding after the Ambassador Bridge blockade in 2022. Let's go straight to CTV's Robert Lothian with the details on the lawsuit tonight. Robert.
Yes, Stephanie, let's go back to last December when the City of Windsor received a letter from Canada's Public Safety Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, promising to repay the city $6.1 million for public safety costs associated with managing and dismantling the blockade at the Ambassador Bridge. The problem is, the city was anticipating up to $6.9 million. Mayor Drew Dilkins characterized LeBlanc's letter as a middle finger to the people in this community, with council voting to support legal action if necessary. Today, around 9 months later, the lawsuit was formally announced.
The Government of Canada's refusal to cover our costs and acknowledge their clear legal responsibilities for securing the Ambassador Bridge border crossing places an unjust and unfair financial strain on Windsor property taxpayers. And this lawsuit today is a stand for fairness, it's a stand for accountability, and it's a stand for the federal government to do what's right by the residents of this city.
The City of Windsor's lawsuit calls for the full reimbursement of all costs incurred in response to the 2022 blockade. It also calls for some enhanced measures in funding and monitoring the border, namely a formal declaration of federal responsibility for policing and securing federal border crossings, and money for ongoing expenses related to protecting Windsor's international border crossings. Dilkins calls back to December 29th of 2022, a year before LeBlanc sent this letter. That's when then Minister Marco Mendicino promised up to $6.9 million in federal funding to cover a portion of Windsor's costs. Up to being the key phrase there, Windsor-Tecumseh Member of Parliament Eric Kuzmierczak notes Minister Mendicino's pledge was not $6.9 million, rather up to $6.9 million. He also notes the provincial government has not provided any funding, today calling for Premier Doug Ford to step up and chip in. He assures the Windsor residents the government is supporting the city through other investments.
This federal government has delivered for the city of Windsor over $13 billion in investment to this community. There is no community in Canada that has received more federal dollars than the city of Windsor.
Dilkins acknowledges that investments, but tells CTV News that does not give the federal government the pass here. A press conference wrapping up at City Hall today with Dilkins sharing hope the federal government will pay up and make those requested future commitments so that everyone is prepared should something like this blockade ever happen again. Stephanie.
Okay, we will continue to follow this. Robert Lothian tonight. Thank you so much, Robert.
It's not working, screams a medic as he administers a second dose of Narcan, an opioid overdose reversal agent, up the nose of a man who's been lying unconscious in the filthy street. The man's arms and legs are a map of painful weeping ulcers. A few feet away, a young woman barely looks up as she plunges a needle into the stump that was once her leg. This isn't a scene from a television show. This is the reality of today's inner cities. In today's episode of the Infographics Show, we'll look at the new street drug that rots your skin. The U.S. has a serious drug problem, but there's one drug that's working its way across the country like a modern-day plague. Xylazine, aka Trank, sometimes referred to in the media as the zombie drug. Philadelphia's Kensington area was once a bustling community, but now it's a deindustrialized wasteland of drug-addled civic failure that's been called the Walmart of heroin. But it's xylazine that's becoming the drug of choice here. It's currently in about 90% of Kensington's entire drug supply, and as you'll see later, it's spreading its arms around America, and as of late has been causing havoc across the pond in Europe in places such as the UK, Estonia, and Latvia. Xylazine itself is a deadly serious matter, not only because of the adverse effects it has on the body, but because it doesn't respond to the medicines that can rescue someone from a potentially fatal overdose. It isn't an opioid, so Narcan or naloxone can't bring someone back from the dead if it's Trank that's coursing through their system. Xylazine is not for human consumption. It's fit for horses, cows, pigs, and maybe your pet pit bull, but it certainly isn't supposed to be in you. Still, a drug that's used to sedate animals can just as easily calm down humans on the streets of Philadelphia and wherever else Xylazine now calls home. It knocks you out, it makes you feel good, it helps you forget. It also causes ataxia, a loss of muscle control that affects coordination, which is why in their euphoric stupor, users tend to lean forward with drooped arms in the style of flesh-eating zombies. It doesn't look like it from the outside, but this feeling is pleasurable and highly addictive. It does exactly what its users paid for, but this comes with the major drawback of some serious adverse side effects. If it doesn't kill you, it can create a situation where your body tissues start to die, aka necrosis. The injection sites can turn into small wounds in the skin, and those wounds can fester and turn into large infected gaping ulcers. Users become hooked on a drug that can rot their bodies and cause vasoconstriction, a reduced blood flow to bodily tissues. Tracy McCann is a 39-year-old woman on the streets of Kensington whose skin started turning scaly after injecting what she thought was fentanyl. It was fentanyl, but like most patches these days, it was mixed with xylazine to give it that extra kick. As we'll soon show you, xylazine is also cheap, so traffickers mix it with other drugs, saving them money while killing off American citizens who usually don't know what's in their fent, smack, crack, crank, or fake prescription pills. pills. McCann got hooked on pain meds after a car crash. In 2009, she met a guy in rehab, and he introduced her to heroin. Her story is a template for American drug addiction in what experts call the 3 waves of the opioid crisis. Wave 1, people got hooked on prescription pain pills. Wave 2, they went to the streets to find heroin when their well of pills ran dry. Wave 3, a tsunami of synthetic opioids washed over America. 10 years after her introduction to heroin, McCann switched to a more potent fentanyl. And in 2020, when xylazine had already made its way to the streets of Philadelphia, she soon found herself hanging out with people whose ulcerated arms and legs were covered in fleas and maggots. Even after watching a man get shot dead in front of her, she couldn't escape the grasp of xylazine. For everything it gives in pleasure, it takes back tenfold in pain. 38-year-old Brooke Petty lost her mother, sister, and wife all to drug overdoses. After being introduced to xylazine a few years back, she now navigates the human cluttered sidewalks of Philly in a wheelchair, a result of her right leg being amputated from a xylazine injection wound that infected her bone. Yet rather than face a harrowing withdrawal, she keeps injecting into mangled arms, whose tendons are exposed under pus-oozing flesh. How did it get to this? A situation seemingly a million times worse than in 1971, when President Richard Nixon said drugs were the U.S.'s new public enemy number 1. By the end of the 1970s, there were about 3,000 drug overdoses a year in the U.S., compared to well over 100,000 a year in the 2020s. Well, newer and more powerful drugs are on the streets, and certainly one of the factors for the massive increase in overdose deaths. Over 2/3 of recent fatal American overdoses have involved synthetic drugs like fentanyl and xylazine. Xylazine has existed since the 1960s, but trials in humans were stopped because of the danger it posed. It caused serious respiratory depression and low blood pressure, so the FDA put up the red light. Humans just didn't think to use it to get high. It wasn't until 2018 that it started to become a mainstay in Kensington and some other areas around the U.S. where drug dealers were selling it at $5 a shot, rather than the $10 for a shot of straight heroin. During the pandemic, usage soared as traffickers diverted more and more stocks of xylazine meant for beasts and pets to walking, talking Homo sapiens. But something far more worrying had to happen to create the dystopian present day, where thousands of xylazine deaths now happen each year. About 3/4 of them men. Traffickers started making xylazine themselves, rather than merely diverting veterinary supplies. This was when xylazine hotspots started to pop up in the 2020s, which according to the CDC were Delaware, the District of Columbia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia, followed by regions along the East Coast, such as those bruised and battered streets of Philadelphia. The latest data tells us that xylazine was found in drugs in 48 of 50 U.S. states. It keeps spreading, and it doesn't look like it's going to go away anytime soon. In the UK, there were 11 xylazine deaths from 2022 to 2023. It wasn't just found in heroin samples, but in synthetic marijuana vapes, and the fake codeine and Valium pills that pervade the poor areas of many British towns and cities. Synthetics are the new normal, and there is no end in sight. They're cheap to make, hard to detect, and incredibly potent in minute quantities. According to the DEA, the precursor chemicals for xylazine have been coming from Chinese gangs, who've been selling it to Mexican drug cartels. The cartels then export it to gangs inside the U.S. At just $6 to $20 per kilogram. It's an affordable way to fatten a batch of heroin, fentanyl, or fake pills. The solution is made in makeshift labs on the other side of the U.S. border. The labs keep expanding. The Breaking Bad style chemists keep learning, and the American dream becomes a zombie-filled nightmare. The DEA recently called xylazine the deadliest drug threat our country has ever faced, and now cartels are mixing something even more potent than xylazine into their opioids. In 2024, there were reports in the U.S. media about a stronger veterinary sedative that was being found in the blood of people who had overdosed. This drug, methamphetamine, another animal tranquilizer, was said to be behind mass overdose outbreaks in Chicago. Like xylazine, it doesn't respond to Narcan. There have been cases in the ER when overdose victims had opiates, xylazine, and methamphetamine in their blood, which is about as dangerous as playing Russian roulette 5 times in a row without reloading the bullet. With over 80% of the world's opioid users, the U.S. is the main market for these creative criminal gangs. Gone are the days when they put all their effort into harvesting the pulp from opium poppies or farming marijuana, drugs that were safer than the killer concoctions on the streets in 2024. These synthetics are here to stay, finding a home where words like cheap and strong will always outweigh safety concerns. Now you need to watch what happens to your body if you do meth, or have a look at what happens to your body when you do cocaine.
Multiple people are facing charges, and an officer has now been suspended. We have the latest from Peel Police after a violent protest out of a Hindu temple and additional incidents reported throughout the region.
There's still a few hours left for residents of Don Valley West to cast their ballots. We're following the very latest on today's by-election in the city, with results expected to start coming.
Peel Police say they responded to 3 chaotic protests at places of worship in Peel region on Sunday, and they believe those demonstrations are connected. The first location officers responded to was this Hindu temple here in Brampton, and this is where some of those violent clashes were caught on camera. This video captures a moment violence erupted outside the Hindu temple here on the Gore Road. There was pushing and fistfights with some using flagpoles as weapons. And City News has confirmed an off-duty Peel Police officer has been suspended for allegedly partaking in the protest.
They were coming towards us and tried to hit.
Azad is a member of the temple here and tells me right now anxieties are running high. He says pro-Palestinian demonstrators were protesting Indian consular officials who were on site helping seniors apply for pensions.
That time in the morning, I can say maybe 500 to 600 people came here for the life certificate. Children were here because that's the Diwali celebration going on, so people come to prayers. The hate had no place, and people are scared.
But Sikhs for Justice says the rally was peaceful and it was members of the Hindu temple who provoked the fighting. All of this is under investigation by Peel Police, who say protests also popped up at 2 other places of worship on Sunday, including one outside a Sikh Gurdwara in Mississauga.
And the videos I saw about that were equally horrifying. It's wrong. Everyone needs to get their head of shape.
Brampton's Mayor Patrick Brown tells me he's angered by what happened and will be tabling a motion to ban protests at places of worship.
I think it's our job to make it very clear what is acceptable protest and what isn't, when lines are crossed. And obviously this weekend lines were crossed. Violence, intimidation, harassment.
This comes at a time when tensions are escalating between the Canadian and Indian governments over allegations of violence against Canadian Sikhs, something India denies. In a rare move, India's Prime Minister posted a statement to social media saying he strongly condemns what he called a deliberate attack and went on to say we expect the government of Canada to ensure justice and uphold the rule of law. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also posted every Canadian has the right to practice their faith freely and safely, and federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre called the violence targeting worshippers completely unacceptable.
We have a few bad apples across the line, and it unfortunately creates a tinderbox of tension in the community.
Obviously, there are some videos circulating on social media, but police are looking for more evidence. They are hoping to make more arrests, so investigators created a special link that's on the Peel Police website to help witnesses easily upload any videos or pictures they have captured at any of these 3 demonstrations. In Brampton, Shauna Hunt, City News.
Let's look at North Carolina and the push for voters there. CBS News correspondent Skylar Henry live from Wally. Skylar, you caught up with Democratic Party Chair Anderson Clayton. He's the youngest person ever to win that party in the state. What did you learn?
Yeah, Reed, good to see you as always. It was an interesting conversation. We actually canvassed alongside her and other party volunteers that were looking to get the word out about why they should choose Democrats up and down the ballot, not just on the presidential level, but other hotly contested state races here, including the gubernatorial race. What she had to say was pretty interesting. They are going after some of those unregistered voters, especially those who may be focused on single issues, the economy, reproductive rights, immigration, those who say that they may be pro-abortion rights or against abortion rights. They want to have those conversations with people and try to sway them to vote for Democrats, framing this as a pro-abortion rights sort of thing as it relates to Vice President Harris versus what we see with former President Donald Trump. Here's one of the bits of the conversation that I had with her. Take a listen.
I honestly liked what people were saying this past weekend of, Kamala Harris is the only president who actually protects your right to disagree with her. And a lot of that message is what we're using, especially with unaffiliated right now, Republicans on the doors that we're talking to, because this is fully a turnout game, and we know that it's going to be whoever can help get the most people out to the polls. But it also has to be through some of these persuasion conversations that we're still having with undecided voters, honestly, even now.
And so an interesting POV there when you take into consideration that we are at this stage of this election cycle. One of the other things that you pay attention to, Reed, when you zoom out altogether, the number of early votes that have already been tabulated here in the Tar Heel State, more than 4.5 million. That is shattering any sort of record that we have seen in the past. And in case you're wondering, that also includes the western part of North Carolina, which was pretty hard hit following Hurricane Helene. After hearing from the Board of Elections, they say that they are moving on without a hitch thus far in terms of counting of the ballots up until this point. We also know that polls will be open early tomorrow, especially in that part of the state. They say that there are some tents that have had to be set up because of the damaged precincts following the storm, but they are now going to be okay. Now, back to that conversation that I had with Anderson Clayton. She also pointed out some other issues that she felt will be incredibly important, but also talked about why she feels that this race in particular will be incredibly important as far as young people turning out to the polls. Take a listen.
We've just got so many young people that have put their hearts and souls into it this year, but they're also scrappy and they were hungry, and they wanted to make sure that North Carolina was a state that they could stay in. And I feel like that is something that is pushing a lot of us out this year, is because we don't want to have to leave it. And so many people that I've heard and that I've talked to have been like, if things don't change here, that's what we're going to have to do. And I'm like, no, it deserves to be a state that everybody can stay.
Back to the presidential race, obviously a razor-thin contest here in North Carolina. It's interesting given the fact that a Republican presidential candidate has carried the state since 2012. Former President Trump actually had 4 rallies here since Saturday, including one this morning here in Raleigh. Something else to point out, Reed, is given the fact that this is the only battleground state of the 7 that former President Trump won in 2020. Interesting to pay attention to see how the Trump campaign decides to move forward in these last 24 hours or so to go before this thing all wraps up. The Harris Walz ticket feels as if it's very much in play. Obviously, in the big Democratic parts or the blue parts of the state, that's Charlotte, that's here in the research corridor, which they call Raleigh-Durham because of the amount of universities and colleges in this area, and also in the western part of the state as well. And so this will be very much a toss-up until the very end. I think it'll be interesting to see once polls close.
Skylar Henry, thank you so much for that peek into what's going on in North Carolina. Literally door-to-door work being done there until the 11th hour.
All right, so the campaigning by the candidates is just about over. We're almost there, and the final votes are about to be cast. Then we wait for the results to come in, and what that might look like. Steyerwalt is here to break it all down. Chris.
So everybody wants to know, what do they need? What volume of snacks or hard liquor or whatever they're going to need to get through your election night, election week, whatever. So let's do this. Let's just do it by poll close. Now, I love you, Indiana, and we're going to get a little early sample in Indiana, but they got weird time zone issues. What are we looking at? We're looking at Georgia is the first to come in, 7 p.m., polls close in Georgia. Where am I looking? I'm looking in exurban Atlanta at Forsyth County. Those are Trump voters, and we're going to get a good sample on. There are a lot of these are more affluent Trump voters. We're going to see, can he really ring the bell there? And that'll be the first place that I'm looking.
All right, okay. So that's 7 Eastern. Let's go 80.
7:30. No, you got to start. What are you talking about? Why are you so against North Carolina? North Carolina. Watch Nash County. Working class Nash County. This is a lot of rural, a lot of non-college, very middle of the middle class right here. Also significant, substantial African-American population, about 40% African-American, 40-45% African-American. Our black voters turning out for Kamala Harris. We'll get a real good core sample there. Go to 8 o'clock. Right, what happens at 8? Get big. Get big. Here is where the floodgates open and everything starts to come in at 8 o'clock. Now, thanks to Georgia and North Carolina being efficient counting states, we love you. We'll have lots of vote in that will help us start to look at these forecasts and make these projections. That's going to come in. But what do you see in gold right there, the Keystone State? And obviously, we all know where to look in Pennsylvania, Erie County, which has been the bellwether in the past 2 cycles for Pennsylvania down to the percentage point. 9 o'clock. What happens at 9 p.m.? Okay, we move west 1 click, 9 p.m. Eastern, and now we get these 3 counties around Detroit. They're going to tell us so much about how that's going. Then we'll also be looking out in Western Michigan, telling that Donald Trump is heading back to West Michigan and he's going back to Grand Rapids. Kent County has been a great bellwether for how Michigan's going to vote.
Third time that Donald Trump, every single time, Chris, he's run a presidential race, he's ended there in Kent County, Michigan, in Grand Rapids.
I know those are the Gerald Ford squishy Republicans. Those are the old-fashioned Nikki Haley-ites, and those are the folks that he's got to win over.
All right, Steyerwalt breaks it down. Thank you, sir. We still don't know when we're going to have a sense of all of this, right?
I already told you.
No, I mean about final
2:33.
Okay, Chris is over. 2:33 a.m. There you go. Thank you for watching, and make sure you go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
Mayor Turk, I thank you for your friendship and your long-standing leadership. And can we hear it for Fat Joe and Frankie Negron? So listen, I am so thankful to everyone for being here, and including the leaders of the Puerto Rican community. I stand here proud of my long-standing commitment to Puerto Rico and her people, and I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. All Americans. So Allentown, this is it. Just one more day. One more day. One more day left in one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime, and momentum is on our side. Momentum is on our side. Can you feel it? We have momentum, right? Because our campaign has tapped into the ambitions and the aspirations and the dreams of the American people. We are optimistic and excited about what we will do together. And we here know it is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next president of the United States of America. Now, Pennsylvania, the race is not yet over, okay? We got a lot of work to do, and we have got to finish strong. So listen, we got hard work to do, but here's the thing. We like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is joyful work. And make no mistake, we will win. 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 And one of the reasons we will win is because I do believe when you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. And we have an opportunity in this election to finally turn the page on a decade of politics that have been driven by fear and division. We're done with that. We're done. And we're exhausted with it. America is ready for a fresh start. And America is ready for a new way forward where we see our fellow American not as an enemy, but as a neighbor. We are ready. We are ready for a president who understands that the true measure of the strength of a leader is not based on who you beat down, it is based on who you lift up. And Pennsylvania, you know me, I am not afraid of tough fights, evidently. For decades, as a prosecutor and the top law enforcement officer of our biggest state, I won fights against the big banks that ripped off homeowners. I won fights against for-profit colleges that scammed veterans and students. I won fights against predators who abused women and children and seniors, and cartels that trafficked in guns and drugs and human beings. We're not going back. And it is my pledge to you, if you give me a chance to fight on your behalf as president, there is nothing in the world that will stand in my way. And it is my pledge to you that when I walk, with your help, it is my pledge to you that when I walk in the White House, instead of stewing over an enemy's list, I will spend every day working on my to-do list on your behalf. Full of priorities that are about improving your life, about bringing down the cost of living, about banning corporate price gouging on groceries, about making housing and childcare more affordable. My plan will be about cutting taxes for workers and middle-class families and small businesses, lowering health care costs, including the cost of home care for our seniors. Because here's where I'm coming from on this. I believe access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And to those certain individuals who still want to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, trying to take us back to the days when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions, well, to them, we say, we are not going back. We are not going back. And we are not going back. And we are not going back because ours is a fight for the future. Ours is a fight for the future. And it is a fight for freedom, like the fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. And when Congress, with Bob Casey's help, passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom nationwide, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. So, Pennsylvania, I'm here to ask for your vote. I'm here to ask for your vote. And here is my pledge to you. As president, I pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to the challenges you face. I am not looking to score political points. I am looking to make progress. And I pledge to you. That's okay. And it is my pledge to you to listen to those who will be impacted by the decisions I make, to listen to experts, and to listen to people who disagree with me, because I don't believe people who disagree with me are the enemy. And you know what, by the way, listen, we are fighting for a democracy right now. And we love our democracy, and democracy can be a bit complicated sometimes. But that's okay, we are fighting for a democracy. Which is why I say that I am not going to be a leader who thinks that people who disagree with me should be put in jail, that they are the enemy. I'll give them a seat at the table, because that's what real leaders do, and that's what strong leaders do. And it is my pledge to you to always put country above party and self, and to be a president for all Americans. So, Allentown, that is my pledge to you. And so let me ask, who here has a plan to vote? Fantastic, that's great. All right, so polls are open here in Pennsylvania tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Let's get the word out. Let's definitely vote. And let's get the word out. All the leaders here, help get the word out to remind people of the hours the polls are open, and to remind folks that they can go to iwillvote.com for all the information that folks may need in terms of when and where to vote, and where to drop off their mail ballots, right? Because that's going to be very important. And to all the leaders here, I ask you to please continue to talk to your friends and your family and your neighbors, and let them know why you decided to take time out of your busy lives to be here right now, and what is at stake in this election. Please share your perspective on why this election is so important. And encourage folks to let them know their voices must be heard, because and UAW is in the house. And I'm so proud to have your support. Thank you. I'm so proud to have your support. And we need everyone in Pennsylvania to vote, because you are going to make the difference in this election. So here's how I think about things. We are all here together because we love our country. And when you love something, you fight for it. And I do believe it is one of the highest forms of patriotism, of our expression, of our love for our country, to then fight for its ideals, and to fight to realize the promise of America. And look, I have always believed in our nation's promise because I have lived it. I grew up as a child of the civil rights movement. My parents would take me to marches when I was in a stroller. And there were people there, we've already know about it, there were people there from all walks of life who came together in a fight for freedom and for opportunity. You know, growing up, I watched my mother as she raised my sister and me and gave us the same chances our country gave her. I was blessed to have family by blood and to have family by love, who instilled in me the values of community and compassion and faith. I've spent my life fighting for people who have been hurt and counted out, but who never stopped believing that in our country anything is possible. I have lived the promise of America, and today I see the promise of America in everyone who is here, in every one of you, in every one of us. We are the promise of America. We, everyone here, we are the promise of America. We are the promise of America. And I see it. I see it in the fathers and the mothers and the grandparents who work hard every day for the children's future. I see it in the women who refuse to accept a future without reproductive freedom. I see it in the men who support them. I see it in the Republicans who never voted for a Democrat before, but put the Constitution of the United States over party. And every day I see the promise of America in all the young leaders who are voting for the first time. Thank you. I love Gen Z. I'm telling you, I love Gen Z, and here's one of the reasons why. So here's one of the things about y'all. You are rightly impatient for change. I know that. I know that. And you, who have only known the climate crisis, are leading the charge to protect our planet and our future. You, who grew up with active shooter drills, are fighting to keep our schools safe. You, who have known fewer rights than your mothers and grandmothers, are standing up for freedom. And for you, none of these issues is theoretical or political. This is your lived experience. And I see you, and I see your power. And we must recognize how bright the future of our nation is because of you. So can we hear it for our first-time voters, everybody? One day left, and we need to finish this strong and get this done. So let's get out the vote. Let's reach out to all of our folks in the next 24 hours, family and friends and classmates and neighbors and coworkers. And as we do, I ask, let us please be intentional about building community. Let us be intentional about building coalitions. Because, you know, there's been so much about these last few years that has been about trying to beat people down, trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other, trying to make people feel as though they're alone and don't have anybody. So not anymore, because we all know that our power includes, yes, this vote and this election, but building community and coalitions and reminding folks the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us, and we are all in this together. We are all in this together. And from the very start of our campaign, this has not been about a fight that is against something. This is about a fight that is for something. This is for something. This is about a future with freedom and opportunity and dignity for all Americans. And so in this final stretch, let us remember that we have a lot of work to do, and there is power in our work about reminding folks of their voice and the power of their vote. So remember, your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power. So, Pennsylvania, Allentown, I then ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? Are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win. God bless you, and God bless the United States.
Could Musk do to the American deep state what he did for Twitter?
He wants to run the United States like he did Twitter, which is effectively to just abolish all forms of government and let Ancapistan finally rule. He wants to turn it. You see what Javier Milei has done to Argentina? Imagine that, but being done to one of the largest economy in the world. It'll be great.
The world's premier engineer and inventor is a man clearly and demonstrably capable of doing 6 impossible things at the same time. This speaks primarily of his intelligence. Musk is exceptionally 1 in a billion high in general cognitive ability and openness, a true genius, albeit...
Is this AI? Is that the joke that you posted an AI video of Jordan Peterson singing your praises? You can get this without AI. I guarantee you. It's not hard. Like, just sit down like, hey, Jordan, can you talk about Elon? Well, what do you want me to say? You're the smartest man on the planet. Oh, bloody hell he is. You all know that.
In a technical manner. That is an observation, not a criticism. With regard to personality, he's not particularly extroverted. Tilting, I would say, in the opposite direction, although not exceptionally so. He is moderate in neuroticism, carrying a fair burden of depression-like pain with him, not least because of a truly rough childhood, which he alludes to, but does not make a show of. There is some withdrawal there. Run rough show.
Or is this real? I'm having fun with this. I can't tell if this is real or if it's AI or... Because it's profoundly sad either way. You know, it's a win-win for me. This is AI. It's really sad that Elon went through the trouble to make AI of him being praised by Jordan Peterson in this way. And if this is real, it's really, really sad for Jordan Peterson to be praising Elon in this way. Something that, again, is pretty demonstrable that he's not capable of doing multiple things at once. He's been destroying both his reputation and his stock value for Tesla as he's been going on this whole let me play the world's most fucking hated racist game. I'm going to buy a social media account. I'm going to destroy that social media thing, and then I'm going to just post anti-Semitic conspiracy theories all day.
God over by his brilliance and openness, and also some volatility, evidenced in his behavior on X online. Somewhat reminiscent of Trump himself. Musk is also a worker and manager, hard and dedicated, far beyond the norm. So exceptionally high in conscientiousness, and agreeable enough, particularly on the compassionate side, to be very pro-human. He is, however, no pushover, is not particularly polite, and can and does make the difficult judgments of discrimination that allow him to continually operate and maintain multiple, extremely large, demanding, stunningly diverse, and truly cutting-edge enterprises. His staggering intelligence and business acumen means that he brings something near miraculous to the Trump X-Men team.
Oh my God, I think this is real. This is real. It's part of his new video special he just put out about saying that all the Trump, like, I don't know if you saw the picture. It's got Tulsi Gabbard as Rogue, Elon Musk as Deadpool, JD Vance as Wolverine, RFK Jr. as Beast. I think this is directly from it. So I guess the sadder for Jordan than for Elon. This is what I'm talking about. Look at this shit. And the one that makes the most sense. Oh, sorry, Elon Musk isn't Deadpool. No, he's Iron Man. Okay, yeah, not famously a member of the X, but it's Marvel. They're in the Marvel universe, so there's that. I don't get why he's Wolverine. JD Vance doesn't strike me as a Wolverine at all, but yeah.
First and foremost, the world's premier engineer and inventor is a man clearly.
It's fucking real. That's so sad. Also, why are you doing this? This just sounds like something where it's like, I assume this was originally going to be on Daily Wire and then he's going to put it out on other platforms. So this is something where he's trying to reach out to more folk. But like, yeah, on paper, sure. Hey, sir, people love comic book movies. They love comic books. Can you kind of assemble a team, your dream team, if it were? But like, maybe get a couple nerds on the writing staff to help you out with it. Not just simply like, well, Tony Stark is an inventor. Elon Musk is also an inventor. Tony Stark is rich. Elon Musk is also rich. Therefore, you got it right there.
Particularly polite and can and does make the difficult judgments of discrimination that allow him to continually operate and maintain.
Are you talking about like how he hates black folk? Elon Musk racism. Oh, here it is. Wasn't too hard to find. Financial Times. Tesla's black workers face widespread racism. The U.S. agency alleges. Lawsuit says former employees of the Fremont assembly plant endured severe or pervasive harassment since 2015. Elon Musk's electric car maker Tesla on Thursday was sued by U.S. Civil Rights Agency, which accused the company of tolerating open hostility and racism directed at black employees. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which enforces federal employment discrimination laws, filed a complaint in California federal court alleging black employees at Tesla's Fremont assembly plant have since 2015 been subjected to severe or pervasive racial harassment in violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The lawsuit from the EEOC is latest in a series of legal actions or accusations of anti-black racism of the company. A federal jury awarded Owen Diaz, who was black, nearly $3.2 million in damages in April in a lawsuit over the racial abuse he said he experienced while working as the elevator operator at the Fremont factory in 2015. They said that Tesla has allegations of rampant racism against black workers in the state. The EEOC's lawsuit says racism of the company was frequent, ongoing, inappropriate, and welcome, and occurred across all shifts, departments, and positions. The agency said black Tesla employees face racial abuse, pervasive stereotyping and hostility, variations of the N-word, other slurs directed towards black people, graffitis of swastikas, racially motivated threats, and nooses appeared on manufacturing equipment, desks, newly assembled cars, bathroom stalls, and elevators, according to the Civil Rights Agency. The complaint also alleges the company had actual or constructive knowledge of racial harassment, but failed and refused to take steps to address the behavior. The investigation found black employees reported the harassment, faced retaliation, including being fired, reassigned to other work. The government said Musk and Tesla did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In response to a separate lawsuit this year, the company said it strongly opposes all forms of discrimination. We're against the racism you see.
In multiple, extremely large, demanding, stunningly diverse, and truly cutting-edge enterprises. His staggering intelligence and business.
So, if you don't remember, Twitter was valued at approximately $20 to $22 billion. He overpaid twice the amount, so he paid $44 billion for the Twitter. So he acquired an asset at double paying what its actual value is at, something that's regularly pretty unheard of, especially at that scale. But does it anyway because, again, to him, and I think to people who knew what he was going to do with it, his entire changing the thing into Misinformation Central, when it was primarily one of the biggest social medias, I think maybe the largest social media network that was used by politicians, politics, and news. So yeah, you can directly damage the way people receive and consume information by doing that, and that to him, I guess, had value of something upwards of like $22 billion. But he also had his own ideas, and his own ideas, of course, were disastrous and catastrophic. Everything that everyone was telling him, including people have no idea how any of this really works, but can just observe based on reading media, that no, you can't turn it into a Nazi app. You can't, like, basically bring back every single person whose accounts has ever been taken away, including the most violent, anti-Semitic, extreme racists on the planet, give them their accounts back, and then hope that, the advertisers are going to stay around. The advertisers, once they realize what's happening, once it becomes very, very bad for the branding, to be appearing next to Nazis, spouting Nazi shit, they're all going to leave. And that's what happened. The advertisers all left. He then threatened the advertisers, trying to be like, well, fuck you. I'm going to sue all of you because this is discrimination. You're hindering my freedom of speech by not advertising on my platform, which no one is obliged to do. Welcome to capitalism, baby. But I guess that was like a whole thing. So now it's somewhere around an estimated $6 to $7 billion worth of value still. I mean, that is still in free fall, as are the amount of people who use it, as are the amount of accounts, major accounts. It's one of those networks that's primarily generated by what are called super users, which is a really small percentage of the users. But like, yeah, those people are leaving en masse as well, as are a huge exodus of people after policy after policy after policy has shown directly that he's not going to protect vulnerable minorities. He's going to simply protect white supremacists and racists on the platform. Anyone who happens to be trans, it is obviously a complete and utter hellscape to try and enter. Or if you're a woman, taking away the block feature ultimately is something that does serve to protect women on social media because they are often going to be the people for whom harassment, sexual harassment, and threats and violence are directed towards. So yeah, if it's a network where you cannot protect half of the user base, or essentially half of the user base you're trying to appeal to, then yeah, a lot of people are going to leave the network and move on to other things. His racism and his promotion of conspiratorial, fucking vile nonsense, that also made a lot of people decide, hey, by the way, I don't want to invest in Tesla. I don't want to have a Tesla car. I don't want to drive a Tesla car. They're now kind of just directly associated with this Nazi, and so now they all kind of become Nazi mobiles.
Acumen means that he brings something near miraculous to the Trump X-Men team. I would vote for Trump as president if I could vote, and I can't because I'm Canadian, and forgive me for that. Just because.
No lies detected. Yeah, profoundly embarrassing to be Canadian. I can't even hate on him for this one, all right?
Musk has agreed to play a role in any new administration that Trump might bring about. He has even wittily proposed to head up a new Department of Governmental Efficiency, a phrase whose initials, DOGE, indicate the willingness in an inside joke manner to do only good every day, as well as signifying a bemused but knowing dog whose image has become a widespread meme.
By the way, this is now what is considered part of the intelligentsia of the right. This is supposed to be profound on some level. Like, yeah, sure. I mean, he's using a template that a lot of people don't take seriously. Comic books, heroes and stuff like that. But he's actually adding some gravitas to the Dogecoin meme and Doge and cryptocurrency. And yes, to do only good. That's what all these billionaires and crypto clowns want to do. Only good. They've definitely proven that. You got a lot of case studies at this point to show that the cryptocurrency industry is definitely invested in making the world better.
It has been my diligent and hopeful
observation. Just the AI because the suit is normal. It is the most normal. It's ironic, by the way. He's doing the whole superhero villain style speech delivery, everything cadence. That's what this whole thing has. A lot of this could be Lex Luthor in his mansion, basically describing that he's assembling a team. Blah blah blah. The Legion of Doom. But he's wearing a normal suit for once. That is odd.
That Musk is a good man, or at least a terrible, complicated man, trying very hard to be good. which is all we could truly hope if we were the least bit realistic about human nature and our own prospects. Could Musk do to the American deep state what he did for Twitter? Could he prune and cut so the Republic?
America, if he's going to do that, y'all are like, that's the end. You know, it's a decaying empire. We're seeing the vestiges of the entire collapse. But like, if y'all get Elon Musk into a position of actual authority beyond what he already has, like his security clearances, etc., and then all of a sudden it's like he wants to run the United States like he did Twitter, which is effectively to just abolish all forms of government and let Ancapistan finally rule. He wants to turn it. You see what Javier Milei has done to Argentina? Imagine that, but being done to one of the largest economy in the world. It'll be great.
Could revitalize? Stranger things have happened in the course of human history. Javier Milei is trying something.
I was saying that as a joke. Realize how bad that could be. He's destroying Argentina's economy. It's really profoundly sad. It sucks because yes, once again, you got an example of endless neoliberal capitalist policies destroying the livelihood and exacerbating wealth inequality in a country that led to someone like Javier coming to power. Because again, he acted like a Trump-like figure. He was like, hey, by the way, I'm an ANCAP. I'm Captain ANCAP. I'm eccentric. I run around with a chainsaw and all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to destroy all of the corruption that is destroying our country. And essentially, libertarian, hyper-capitalist policies. Unless you're an accelerationist. If you're an accelerationist, then boom, that's the next phase. If the disasters of neoliberalism aren't bad enough for you, you should see what completely untethered fucking ANCAP policies look like. Look towards Argentina. Look towards what he's done there.
Similarly demanding in Argentina. And the US of A has a remarkable capacity to reinvent itself. Someone like Musk playing a key role in the governance of the greatest show on earth is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That's an adventure by anyone's standards. I've met with the next member of this group in question, Mr. Robert F. Kennedy, 5 times, speaking with and listening to him at some length.
It's also really, really funny that you made him Beast. I assume you made him Beast just because of the name. Because, this is a guy who is kind of really into just gutting animals and animal carcasses and whale juice and all that weird-ass shit. It's like, yeah, if you don't want a woman to like you, just show up at her doorstep with a bag full of dead raccoons and see what she says, like that kind of shit. The story after story, I think that's why. But again, you don't know the comic books. Beast is one of the most intelligent people in the entire X-Men universe. He is so brilliant and wise, and often is a voice that even the other super intelligent individuals like Xavier will bounce ideas upon and try to be like, well, I need to speak to someone who's like at my level. That's Beast, right? And so you got Beast, but RFK Jr., the man's insane. Like, what little brains he has left that he was given by the brainworm that decided to spare him a couple chunks. Whatever little pieces are left there, he's using them to just peddle the most batshit ideas and conspiracies. He doesn't think that HIV causes AIDS. He put it in a book. That should be enough to be disqualifying for anybody, right? Like, where it's 2024. You should not have someone who's trying to form public policy measures who doesn't believe that HIV causes AIDS. He's a racist. He's a transphobe. Like, if you're like, what has he said that's racist? Oh, I don't know. What about spreading the conspiracy theory that COVID was bioengineered in a lab to spare Ashkenazi Jews? Like, that's the thing that he said out loud and he believes. And no one really calls him on his shit on the right. They just sit there and it's like, so what do you think about microplastics? Oh, well, I believe microplastics are why we have trans people. That's not true. That's not based on reality. Super transphobic. Very weird to say. And it's just like a profoundly strange thing. Microplastics are a real thing. Microplastics are appearing in testing samples of human beings. And it's something that we should talk about. Maybe we should reduce single-use plastics. That might be a possible thing. Not like let's vilify trans people more. Let's go after vulnerable minorities. We should have that conversation. That we utilize and produce a fuck ton of single-use plastics that we dispose and then they get into our food. This is a problem.
Each time. He has the near manic energy and loquaciousness of those with exceptional verbal intelligence and the intensely focused concentration that pushes people who have that proclivity beyond even their own limits in pursuit of a goal. He's dreadfully well-informed, a veritable master of historical minutiae in a manner nonetheless relevant to today's concerns. He is also someone who, like Trump and Musk, can and does draw the overall picture accurately, and even in a somewhat prophetic manner. He is fearless and dedicated, having stood up and successfully against even the largest giants of the proto-fascist modern state. And his
Okay, I open up this. Here are all the conspiracies that he promotes. He believes COVID-19 targets certain races and gives others immunity. Kennedy Jr. was on camera telling fellow diners that COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. And the people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and the Chinese, according to a video made public in the New York Post, which also shows them saying the US put hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes and labs. This is the plot of Metal Gear Solid. Mass shootings are linked to prescription drugs. Kennedy blames school shootings on drugs like antidepressants like Prozac in recent Twitter spaces. Prior to the introduction of Prozac, we had also none of these events. There's no scientific established correlation between psychiatric drugs and mass violence, according to experts. He believes the 2004 presidential election was stolen. Kennedy Jr. said in the 2006 Rolling Stone article he was convinced that voter fraud in the 2004 presidential election allowed former Republican President George W. Bush to steal the victory from Democrat John Kerry, while a 2005 post-mortem by the Democratic Party found a breakdown of the election system in Ohio. It found no evidence of fraud. He believes the CIA was involved in the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy. He's the wrong person. Yeah, this one, I mean, like a lot of people believe it. That's not necessarily out there. The wrong person may have been convicted of killing his father. The pharmaceutical industry is throwing money at Democrats after the Affordable Health Care Act of 2010. Democrats were getting more money from pharma than Republicans. Kennedy claimed in Twitter spaces, though an analysis of the stat news found 23 of the country's biggest drug companies, 2 pharmaceutical trade organizations have favored Republicans in 14 of the past 16 elections from 1990 to 2020, the most recent year that they've studied. Gun ownership in Switzerland is similar to the United States, while vowing to take away anyone's guns. The elected President Kennedy Jr. has made the debunked claim despite data showing that U.S. civilians possess an average of 120.5 firearms to 100 people, the highest per capita rate in the world compared to 27.6 in Switzerland, according to the Small Arms Survey by the Graduate Institute of International Development Studies in Geneva, Switzerland. The COVID-19 virus was genetically engineered. COVID was clearly a bioweapons problem, he said. The U.S. intelligence agencies have said it's possible the virus originated from a lab accident, but have no evidence to support the claim that it was deliberately leaked. Former White House medical advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates sought to exaggerate the pandemic and promote vaccines. He's claimed in one of his books, The Real Anthony Fauci, of launching a historic coup d'etat against Western democracy by exercising outsized influence from the media and public health realm. The thing that sucks about all this, right, is like all these conspiracies that he peddles and believes in, like there are crumbs of truth that he's using as jump-off points, but you shouldn't be looking towards specifically Anthony Fauci or the Chinese creating a bioweapon that is directly going to target black people. Towards how capitalism structures our society. It can be explained that way. It's like, hey, disproportionately, a lot of black people were dying when this pandemic was happening. Why is that? Well, the explanation has to be that this was bioengineered to directly target black people, but at the same time spare Ashkenazi Jews. Like, what the fuck are you saying out loud right now? Disproportionately, there's a lot of black people who were working in jobs where they may have direct contact with people. They may not have a lot of jobs or the same proportion of jobs where they were allowed to work from home, or they were allowed to work from a desk, or they were allowed to have those kind of benefits that may disproportionately have benefited white folk who did have a lot of those positions, who had jobs they could go and then work from a desk or not have to go into an office. If you were working as anything related to, hey, do you work in public healthcare? Do you work in jobs where you're going to have interactions with people consistently, one-to-one, stuff like that? Like, it's because black people had to work. Yeah, like look what 93 is saying. It's because they had to work because they have been historically disenfranchised through racist policies in the United States, racist ass history. That would explain it a lot more than we have invented technology that can specifically target people based on the amount of melanin that they have in their skin. That one is just, again, a racist conspiracy theory fantasy being designed to justify a lot of the shortcomings of racist policies that directly impact different categories. And these are categories that don't exist, by the way. There's no such thing as this is a white person, this is a black person, in terms of like their biological DNA makeup, and we can classify people based on races. These are categories, again, people invented to suppress and oppress one another. That's why those categories exist. There's no way to make a drug or a virus that can be racist in that way. You can't make a racist virus. It's like, oh yeah, this is a really racist virus. It's only going to attack black people. It's going to spare white people specifically because it knows how much melanin you have. Shit like that. Yeah, I mean, the guy is just a complete crank. But it's kind of funny that he's saying that he's just one of the most intelligent people around there.
Single-handedly drawn public attention to what is genuinely a health crisis of gargantuan proportions, despite its invisibility on the political stage until the current time. He's also someone once bitten, twice shy, a seriously wounded apostate, again, like Trump and Musk, as well as Tulsi Gabbard, from his own original favored party, the Democrats. When I first spoke with Mr. Kennedy on my YouTube channel, I asked him the same question I always ask the many Democrat leaders I've spoken with, most private.
I'm behind on the stream, but Doge in this case is Elon, Department of Government Efficiency. Get it? Musk is the worst. I agree.
Unwilling as they generally are to risk being seen in public with the likes of me. The question, when do you think the left goes too far? His answer to that, in interview 1, at the very beginning of his presidential march.
It's so profoundly funny. He's trying to be so serious about his comic book fucking fantasy tier list here. That's all this is. This is a tier list. He's doing a fucking Twitch streamer ass tier list right now, and he's trying to pass it off as something profoundly intelligent.
I'm trying to run a campaign that brings people together rather than a campaign that tries, that is based upon, that kind of tribalism of condemning people for ideologies that I don't necessarily agree with.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I appreciate the theatrics. I really do. It makes him so much more tolerable just to try and hate watch because there's so many boring ass. Like Matt Walsh, he's got no charisma whatsoever. It's why he has to be so openly vile all the time because otherwise he wouldn't get the same kind of attention. You don't want to sit there and listen to a guy be like, women suck because they shop and have periods and period blood is gross. Like you'd be like, what the fuck? Why are we watching this? Did you have someone who's going to wear a costume and do this a lot with his hands? And it's like, yeah, we do actually. we got just what you're looking for.
I had my doubts about the suitability of that answer in the long run, having experienced precisely what happens when the left goes too far in my own private and personal life. Nonetheless, on that occasion, I let the question lie. I can tell you, however, that Mr. Kennedy had plenty to say on that topic when we spoke on YouTube on our second occasion. The erstwhile Democrat contender for president had, by that time, experienced running hard and headlong into precisely what I had intimated in the form of my initial.
Disease can affect particularly ethnic groups more than others. Yeah, but so when it comes to, say, sickle cell anemia, the reason why a lot of, especially white supremacists, usually try and use that as say, oh, well, there is such a thing as race. Why is it that black people are more susceptible to this specific thing? It would be people whose descendants come from certain regions in Africa versus others, right? Like you'd have to look into what region of Africa were your ancestors from, more so than these artificial categories we've invented, such as white person, black person. And at what point is one person considered white or one considered black? I mean, that's something that, again, this entire structure has been trying to do forever. That's the one drop rule, the very idea of what is whiteness? At what point are you considered white? The fact that that has changed over time. That Irish and Italians were once considered white folk, or sorry, not considered white people, and then considered white people, is clearly demonstrable that these all are just artificial categories that we invented.
And purposefully leading question. In consequence, Robert F. detailed for at least an hour his utter dismay with the power-mad, corrupt.
Yes, regional genetics absolutely are, real. Yes, make no mistake. But that's why, one of the best, I think, discoveries from, cataloging the entire human genome was that they were capable of, with complete certainty, saying that there's no biological determinant to demonstrate when we as human beings tell each other is racist, is different categories based on, this kind of again, aesthetics. It's aesthetics. It's like, hey, how much melanin do you have? A lot of that is going to be based on most likely how close a lot of your ancestors were to the equator and how much sunlight they were receiving. That's what is going to explain that, not these artificial categories that we invented.
Ideologically possessed shenanigans of the progressive left, the very force that could continue its current domination of the public discourse and scene if Ms. Kamala Harris and the shadowy and unknown forces behind her ascent to power managed to maintain their positions come November. What is Kennedy like as a personality? Extroverted, like Trump, although perhaps not as much so. Trump is hard to equal, let alone top, in that regard. Not without his pain and negative emotion, like Musk. Not too agreeable, although not at all.
Have you forgot that you're doing the X-Men? You're trying to relate this to Beast, and you did be so dirty here.
All narcissistic. Despite his markedly forceful assertiveness in opinion and as a speaker, this was evidenced, not least by my comparative silence, particularly during our second YouTube discussion. I'm a very talkative, verbally assertive person, for better or worse. But Mr. Kennedy had the stage for the vast majority of our time together. That was as it should be, in my opinion, given the circumstances, but it is still something that does not happen to me very often, even when I intend it to. Does this mean that RFK is inappropriately forward, self-aggrandizing, self-centered? Yes. Not my experience. One anecdote quite tellingly reveals why. RFK Jr. and I encountered one another one evening in a restaurant I happened to be dining in during my last tour. I was there with Dr. Phil in a private room in the back of the building. Mr. Kennedy happened into
goddamn 3 clowns walking to a bar.
The establishment, was informed that we were also there, and sent someone forward to ask if he could come and say hello. The fact that he so politely sought permission, since no offense would have been taken had he not, was something I noted, as was his somewhat near apologetic entrance, asking the two of us very graciously to forgive.
Who talks like this? Fucking supervillain ass. No, I'm not a supervillain, I swear. No, I'm not Magneto, okay? I'm Xavier. I'm doing an Xavier. Don't you get it? I'm assembling the team.
The intrusion. And intrusion it was not, as we were happy to see him and pleased that he dropped in. He could have just taken that for granted, and even justly so. But he didn't. A trivial happening.
You're right. I can't do Magneto dirty like that. Right? We'll just go with the blob for now.
You might object. But I think not. Instead of presuming, he displayed all the social niceties that might be hoped for, and more. I saw evidence of the same proclivity every time I met him. It's not all about RFK Jr.
Well, I know, but the reality is he's not really a Marvel villain. He's Batman villains. Clearly. That's why Taylor keeps dressing him up like Batman villains, right? Like, he speaks like the Riddler. He's got the patience of the Joker. And more often than not, he thinks he's as strong as Bane, but he's basically Bane before the Venom gets into him. That's essentially what he is. He's an amalgamation of them.
And that is a good thing to see, given the fame and family reputation that has been part and parcel of his life ever since day one. This is not to say that Kennedy, like Trump and Musk, is without his eccentricities. But as the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once so perspicaciously noted, great men are seldom credited with their stupidities. RFK Jr. is a singular person, with everything that entails on the positive and...
Oh, now people are mad that I'm doing the Riddler dirty. You gotta give credit to the storytellers behind comic books who have made people, in one way or another, love the villains as well. We love the Joker. And he's really, really evil. I mean, it doesn't matter which canon you want to take and like say like, okay, well, he's not always bad. It's like he's done so many fucked up things. You know, he shot Barbara Gordon, permanently put her into a wheelchair. He has murdered countless amounts of people. And sometimes lines he's slaughtered like thousands of Gotham citizens. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, but he's fun too. Kind of identify him. You know, there's something about that.
Negative side. He has a somewhat conspiratorial mindset, which, given the means of demise of his uncle and father, is eminently understandable. Furthermore, there are indeed strange things afoot in the world.
Like he's sexually assaulted people as a form of punishing, you know, the people he's going after. He has caused mass death on a scale I don't think any other like DC villain has done in the Batman universe. I mean, I don't know if any of you read or saw that like really, really fucked up arc where he's so evil that he cuts off his own face, and like it's like an entire arc of the Joker with this like really creepy. He wears his face like a pinned on skin thing. It's just like really horror like and like, oh man.
Today, such that Kennedy's suspicion on various fronts may be well warranted. Nonetheless, it's still a tendency that has to be carefully held in check. Better to assume incompetence than malevolence, for example, and adept pattern recognizers, of which Kennedy, like Trump, is certainly one, can be plagued by false positives. The tendency—
What does this have to do with Beast and the X-Men? Have you forgotten what this video was?
You see something that is in fact not there. But the tectonic plates are moving under our culture at an ever-increasing rate, and Kennedy's skepticism, his ability to see the forest and the trees, could easily prove something of great advantage to the American people, prone as they are now, to manipulation by the looming quasi-fascist forces of the utopian, authoritarian, wannabe globalist state. Imagine.
Let's read a little bit on Beast. Despite Hank McCoy's feral appearance, he's depicted as brilliant, a well-educated man of the arts and sciences, known for his witty sense of humor, and characteristically uses barbed criticism with long words and intellectual references to distract his foes. He is a world authority on biochemistry and genetics, the X-Men's medical doctor, and the science and mathematics instructor at the Xavier Institute. He's also a mutant political activist, campaigning against society's bigotry and discrimination against mutants. I don't think this fits, I gotta be honest with you, in any way, shape, or form with RFK Jr. While fighting for his own bestial instincts and fears of social rejection, Beast dedicates his physical and mental gifts to the creation for a better world for man and mutant. One of the original X-Men, Beast has appeared regularly in the X-Men comics since his debut. He was also a member of the Avengers and the Defenders. Various storylines of the years have hinted that Beast has the capacity to become a supervillain in the alternate universe counterpart Dark Beast. Oh, maybe he can be Dark Beast. You get that. Media adaptations, etc. I think, you know, if you're a fan of the X-Men series, either the comics or the original, like, you know, the 1997 cartoon, or just the movies, just the concept of, like, obviously, I'm sure a lot of people struggle trying to talk about how the modern version of it went woke when it's like it's an incredibly woke-ass property in the most beautiful of ways. The idea of being able to use, you know, mutants as, you know, as a fill-in for all kinds of discrimination that have historically happened in the United States, discrimination towards black people, discrimination towards LGBTQ plus people, and the othering of them, where it becomes an us versus them mentality and mindset, where you have people who are both fighting for the liberation of both sides, Xavier, Beast, etc., and people who are fighting for the liberation solely of mutants, such as Magneto, for example. That kind of stuff, that dynamic, the way it plays out. Beast is kind of a really beautiful character who's caught in the middle of it all, because unlike a lot of his contemporaries, he cannot hide. He doesn't get to pretend to be, you know, something that he's not. He's always known as a mutant because, again, of his physical appearance and the way that he is. But because of the way he looks, a lot of people assume that he's going to be one of the most brutal and violent members of the X-Men, when he is one of the most, if not the most intelligent member of the X-Men, who's consistently advocating, from usually a political standpoint as well, for the rights of all people, regardless if they're mutant, regardless if they're human. And that, you know, I think is what makes Beast such a profoundly interesting character in the series. And yet now he's being reduced to fucking RFK Jr. RFK fucking Jr. You know, god damn it.
For a moment that Musk can bring efficiency to the federal government, and that Kennedy, with his skepticism and willing to battle Goliaths, however large, stumbling, and blind, can seriously address the twin and terribly pervasive and serious problems.
What the fuck is happening right now? Holy shit. By the way, he's supposed to be the hero of the story. Jordan Peterson, that is. They're supposed to be the good guys.
Of obesity and insulin resistance and their terrible spin-offs. These two things alone would be well worth much attendant risk, in my estimation. Who dares, after all, wins. But there is even more on the table, as there are more remarkable actors involved.
America's healthcare system is lacking in any real care. Insurance companies regularly deny progressive treatment options. Primary care physicians.
Oh, is this an ad? It is an ad. They don't even get Jordan to read his own ads. Wow, he's above it. Because even like, you know, fucking rich ass Ben Shapiro will get up there and actually be like, so by the way, if you are concerned about this and you're concerned about your healthcare, check out Merrick Health. You know, but Jordan's like, oh no, get someone else to do it. Concentrate on my character. Bring on Tulsi Gabbard.
It was in DC during a discussion hosted in this strangest of all possible worlds by Russell Brand. I'd spoken with her at length, as in the case of Kennedy.
By the way, that meeting where the two of them were there and Russell Brand was doing a prayer was so funny. It was so ridiculous that even Jordan Peterson was laughing at him when he was trying to do like a take it very, very seriously kind of thing.
On my podcast, although only once, what is Lieutenant Colonel Gabbard like on the personality side? Moderately extroverted.
By the way, like choosing Rogue, also a very bizarre choice, just because I think it's just because woman. I think that's the connection here. Woman. So we got that. But like Rogue is a character, if you don't know, her power is kind of a curse in that she can never physically be close to anybody, because anyone that she touches, she drains them of their energy. And as a result, she's constantly feeling isolated, both from mutants and humans, and trying to make sense in a world where, you know, society is trying to destroy her. But what is about that? Are you associating with Tulsi? It's because no one wants to Tulsi, so it kind of fits. So is that what they're trying to say? Huh. This streak of hair. There's that. They look physically similar. Okay.
Higher in assertiveness than enthusiasm. She is no giggling girl. Perhaps her military experience mitigated against taking that sometimes charming, but often too easy route. Markedly low in neuroticism, as befits a woman who pursued a true military career. Agreeableness?
Rogue.
Ms. Gabbard cares genuinely about those she served and continues to serve, although I would say she does so in the temperamentally conservative manner that is part patriotism and part respect for the intrinsic dignity and worth of every person, rather than in the oft cloying, false, and morally self-righteous manner that so often characterizes the so-called allies of the oppressed.
Oh yeah, I assume he's positioned himself as savior here.
On the side of the progressive left, she's also very smart, without the more showy brilliance of Ramaswamy, who we still have to discuss, down to earth in that.
Kind of weird that you would compare, I guess, the only two non-white people in this list to each other. It's like an odd choice. A choice nonetheless, though.
Intelligence, and is as conscientious as you would hope an ex-military member and influential political leader might be. Gabbard is the sort of woman who would make of someone a favorite aunt, a close confidant, a trusted friend. If you wanted to say...
What does any of this have to do with Rogue? You're just naming things. Well, okay. Which characters in the X-Men are women? What would we have? Storm? Okay, is just Storm? Storm's black. Oh, okay, no, we can't do that. Maybe, what is Rogue? Okay.
In advice, she'd be your pick. She doesn't have the stunning entrepreneurial flair of Musk, Kennedy, or Ramaswamy,
This woman and
but
his
her
wife
presence
suit
on the
right here, I
X-Men team would add to that excess of plasticity some true stability, the other personality meta trait. This is particularly important when the team in question will be tasked with so much administrative and managerial responsibility. It is great to have someone around like Vivek, for example, who spins off.
Are none of you going to learn how to pronounce his name correctly? Like Vivek goes out of through the trouble of doing that consistently to his own audience, by the way. He's constantly like, Vivek, it rhymes with cake. Vivek, it rhymes with cake. Okay, well, we're talking about Tulsi, but we have the other one. Yeah, we got Vivek over here, who's also acceptable in terms of having around us.
New ideas at a constant rate, but I bet on Gabbard to implement effectively and to pay attention to all the details, although Musk also excels at that, to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. She's a very difficult person not to admire, not to feel lesser than in her presence. She's solid, competent, straightforward, admirable, brave, patriotic, and tough. She'd be a truly thoughtful presence in the Trump X-Men team, which might otherwise tilt too hard toward the entrepreneurial and revolutionary. Slow down, gentlemen. Take some time and think. She has as well the emotional resilience not to panic, even under pressure, not to claim that the sky is falling and rush around madly and counterproductively merely for the show of work. It doesn't hurt as well that she is the epitome of feminine grace and attractiveness. Wonder Woman indeed.
Did you forget what you're doing? Oh, right. Sorry, I mean rogue.
If we can, from the DC world, the comic books, and not the city. I can certainly envision her as the first truly deserving female president of the United States. This brings us...
Whew, well, I mean, yeah, I guess it's inevitable. We're only a matter of time away from Tulsi, President Tulsi. Giddy up. What would you rather have, President Tulsi or President Elon? I think Tulsi. They're both horrifying, but I think Elon has shown pretty clearly that he'd want to just basically move the United States in the direction of outward fucking techno-fascism. But, yeah. All right, bring on Vivek.
To one Vivek Ramaswamy. He and I recorded a number of podcasts, which I greatly enjoyed. That started before he was running for office, when we
I love that you've had, 3 or 4 appearances with him? Yeah, I've yet to learn his name.
Discussed another notable accomplishment, the establishment of his Strive Asset Management Fund, designed to give investors an alternative to the mongers of ESG stakeholder capitalism.
Yes, again, pure Cyclops, definitely. But wasn't that one of those things where he was actually revealed to have not been nearly as effective as he was supposed to be? Like he did a couple of really bad moves. I'd have to look back into this. I forgot the days where we were deep diving into Vivek's history.
Who are doing everything they can to sneak a particularly pernicious form of top-down, centrally planned socialism into the free market system, so they can pretend to be virtuous in a manner hypothetically unlike their greedy by implication peers. Not long after embarking on his daring campaign for president, Vivek began a habit of approximately quarterly appearances on my YouTube channel. That effort, despite its unlikelihood given his unknown status as a political contender, unfolded very successfully, bringing both the candidate and his ideas to a wide public audience, and proving his credibility as a young and rising alternative on the political scene. What can I say about Vivek's personality? He is extroverted, both on the assertive and enthusiastic side, characterized by more positive emotion overall than anyone else we have discussed. He's also very high in openness, both to ideas and, as far as I can tell, on the artistic, cultural side, although perhaps more the former than the latter. He shares those traits with Trump, Musk, and Kennedy, although less so.
You can really tell they had an idea for something. They knew would probably do some numbers. Like, hey, let's do. It'll be a little cringy, but our audience will love it, and then other people will make fun of us for it. But why don't we do the X-Men? What if all these political figures are X-Men characters? But Jordan Peterson doesn't give two fucks about the actual properties he's trying to relate them to. It serves no purpose in this, right? You might as well have just said, here's each one of them is a Power Ranger, and then have nothing to do with Power Rangers the whole time. Now the Red Power Ranger, as you can tell, his veracity and capacity for emotion is unsurpassed here. It's yeah, okay, but why even do that? What's the point?
Although she is still far above average in such regard than Gabbard. He's more polite than Trump, certainly, more measured in his speech, less rough and provocative, although also less witty.
He's not bi or in a polyamorous marriage, so how is he Cyclops? Again, for anyone who's not familiar with the X-Men, Cyclops is kind of like your prototypical American hero style character, similar to Captain America in the Avengers, and that dynamic is what juxtaposes him really well with an anti-hero like Wolverine. Both of them obviously vying for the same woman. They have the same romantic interest, and Cyclops obviously is the one who ends up winning her heart over Wolverine, but both of them having completely different radical ideas on usually how to accomplish any given mission or assignment. And in the cartoon, in the comic books, he kind of starts off as insufferable, and just especially anyone who loves Wolverine like I did, right? Obviously, I was a big Wolverine was my number one guy. It becomes one of those things where you just really start to fucking hate Cyclops because he's so perfect. He's handsome. He's the leader. He's always honorable and trying to do what's the best thing for the team and stuff like that. And then afterwards, it's ultimately he's actually a lot more insecure and troubled and has his own things to deal with. And a lot of this is a mask that he puts on for his own failings in life and stuff like that. What does any of this have to do with Vivek? Again,
although certainly not dull.
And so you gotta fix your string. There, look at that, equal lengths.
Would hazard a guess as well that he is less compassionate and people-centered than both Trump and Musk. Ramaswamy tends to stay in the realm of ideas and is clearly motivated on the political side primarily by intellectual curiosity, as well as the desire to see things done better. He appears low in neuroticism and is highly stress-tolerant, as those are the same.
Vivek is also insufferable. You're right. I mean, there is that, but I think he's insufferable because he's an insufferable person, not because he's insufferable because he's secretly, a good person underneath that is misunderstood, and because of the faux bravado and persona he has to put on deep down, he actually does have a lot more profound sadness and depth of a character. I don't think that's Vivek.
Unlikely to withdraw, like Trump, less depressive than Musk or Kennedy, but also less volatile than Trump, quite stable temperamentally. On the emotional side, that's a good feature in a crisis, as noted in the case of Gabbard. I suspect he is high in conscientiousness as well, particularly on the side of industriousness, which is half that trait, the other half being orderliness. Ramaswamy is very successful for a comparatively young man, and he has done that in consequence of his own efforts. This is not a fate that befalls people who fail to work dreadfully hard. Cautions?
All right, let's get to the final one.
Cognitively gifted, and that is also a good thing. Complex jobs require highly intellectual excitement solution. His team of help him mature, less experienced than he might be. Even
I gotta admit, are any of them gonna find this even remotely creepy? Because it's pretty intense. It's one thing to have a colleague be like, I deeply and sincerely appreciate the work that you do. Oh, thank you. That feels good. It's nice to have compliments from people, But this, where he's basically every single one of you is a titan, a life changer. You have changed the world. You are literally superheroes amongst us, and we have to respect you for who you are. I'd be like, well, damn, Jordan, you're laid on pretty thick, buddy.
Arguably, somewhat overconfident. But it is also a marked advantage in that Vivek is not living in 1995 or even.
But you are. You can't fucking learn his name. Jesus Christ.
the poster child for the American dream in the land where anyone can become president. He is as well extroverted, particularly on the assertiveness side rather than enthusiastic. They're even 90 years age, even more so than Vivek, for whom conscientious. The poster child for the American dream in the land where anyone can become president. He is as well extroverted, particularly on the assertiveness side rather than enthusiastic.
Okay, so we're on to JD Vance, the last one, who is apparently Wolverine. Why, you ask? The last character, I guess, that Jordan could remember.
And appears both more compassionate and perhaps more polite than Trump and Vivek. Vance writes, with real love of the...
What is going on with this image? I know it's not AI, but it looks like it was like touched up in AI or something like that. Like every aspect of it looks strange. Why is this all? What is happening here?
People in his life in Hillbilly Elegy, which is genuinely a people rather than idea-centered book. That is not a criticism, by the way, merely an observation, as I have already commented positively on his intelligence. I think the Republican vice presidential contender will bring a whole other level of concern for
I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that picture. It's a very strange one. Yeah. But it's also like, I think JD Vance is particularly gross just because like anyone who wants to try and peddle a story, which is a lot of lies, by the way, like he's peddling this idea that like his mother became an addict. Well, I mean, he's doing this now in the book itself. He was actually honest about the fact that she was addicted to opioids, but now he uses it as like, oh, she was actually killed by Mexicans in that they were bringing up illegal fentanyl into the country, and that's what got her, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, that's just like an excuse for you to be xenophobic, I guess. You can't sell everyone on the idea that you grew up as an impoverished white person, of which, yeah, there's millions and millions of people who grew up in poor white families, and that's, I'm not saying that story isn't worth telling. It most certainly is, but to use that to then dedicate your career into a kind of I got mine mode, right? Where it's like, yeah, well, I made it, so can you, and I'm going to do everything in my power, including potentially becoming the vice president of the United States, to oppress the poors. Like, it's just so profoundly fucked. You should be using that entire, like, hey, I grew up in abject poverty, I grew up around addiction, I grew up around a lot of trouble and stuff like that, as a way of being like, and that's why I want to now try and make sure no one else has to have that kind of a life, and get all of these measures put in place to improve the quality of life for poor people in America, improve the quality of life for addicts in America, improve the quality of life, like improve welfare programs and stuff like that, rather than be like, I want to gut all of it and basically leave you all to suffer.
Working class to the Trump X-Men team, not least because he is not dismissive of his past, as so many who have escaped upward tend to be. Joining the elites in their contempt for the workers and the inhabitants of the lower rungs of the economic ladder, I detected a profound absence of such dismissive sentiment in Hillbilly Elegy, a work that was instead characterized by the substantive gratitude of the well-integrated personality. Vance is also a very good speaker. That's the extroversion as well as raw cognitive power. Fast on his feet and also no pushover, despite his people-centered outlook. He holds his temper very well. So he appears low in the neuroticism aspect of volatility, more stable in that regard.
Definitely a trait that Wolverine is well known for. Controlling his emotions and temper. Not as if it's just like such a noble character trait of his that he has actual methods of fighting where people want him to go into a blind rage.
Than the Donald, whom he defended in his debate better than the former president managed for himself, and has also overcome many serious obstacles in his uphill climb. Thus, he appears low as well in withdrawal. Vance is another person who, like Tulsi Gabbard, is unlikely to panic under difficult conditions. It is a very positive attribute in a leader. He's another person likely to be a steadying managerial hand, balancing the dangerous brilliance of some of the other members of the Trump code.
Hey, Raiders, welcome in. Hey, everybody. Can you please go to TV KF Logan 1875? I'm actually just ending my show as well, so I can send all of you to another place. We were just watching the horrifying Jordan Peterson Trump X-Men team. But yeah, that's the end of me. That saps what little powers I had left. If you haven't seen it, by the way, please go subscribe to Kevin Logan. He's awesome. He does great work. This whole thing is him comparing every one of the fucking, Trump sycophants to X-Men characters while knowing nothing about X-Men. There's like barely any ties with any of them. Like I guess maybe, yeah, you get Doctor Strange because the name fits. That's it. Holy shit. Yeah, we saw this on Rhizomes. We looped the intro a couple times. It's just ridiculous. It's just so much fucking glazing of all these people. Trump is a brilliant mastermind. He has unfathomable abilities and gifts that no other human could ever have. Yeah, garbage. Anyways, everybody, yeah, I know, Doctor Strange is in the X-Men. Yeah, I know. Well, neither is Iron Man. Iron Man is fucking what Elon Musk is. I thought he was Deadpool, which I think like one of the alternate X-Men team-ups he's been, so I was like, okay, loose, but still, I'll grant that one to you. But yeah, two characters that are not X-Men, but yeah, Marvel. They're Marvel. You got that, so yeah.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/thesource. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Taddy, Everything Important, Hagar Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Kawhi 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Devil, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here. Mr. Perkins, I understand you're kicking things off. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, witnesses and Auditor General. I like that opening statement. My opening round is for questions for Mr. Rami. In your previous capacity, primarily as VP of Investments, are the context of my questions in this round. The Fisherin Center, which is a center that Annette Fisherin set up at Cape Breton University, applied while Annette Fisherin was chair for, I believe, almost a total of $6.8 million through various SDTC funds, and that consideration came to the investment committee, I believe, which you oversaw. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, this project was never approved or even considered by the Project Review Committee. The company had applied, and routine due diligence was conducted. But upon being made aware that SDTC staff had conducted due diligence on this application, the PRC removed the project from any further consideration.
So on July 30th, 2021, you wrote in an email to your team, to someone named Jen, that you were fast-tracking the approval of that. What did that email mean?
Mr. Chair?
I think she was the applications lead.
That's correct. So this project applied via the standard application process. The fast tracking you are referring to occurs when we have sufficient information regarding any application to move to the second step or the third step in our comprehensive six-step due diligence process. In this particular case, while I don't recall the exact details, if it was approved for fast track, that means it would have met that criteria. In general, in our process, probably about 10% of the projects that do apply would receive this fast track consideration.
So I appreciate that. Thank you. Did Ms. Fisherin call and inquire at any point in time onto the status of that application?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Fisherin never did ever call to inquire about that application.
On January 18th, 2022, you wrote that while the application would not proceed, that SDTC would give its best efforts to find the Sharon Center money elsewhere in the government. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, while I don't recall the exact nature of that email or recall that email, what I can say is it is common practice at SDTC where we will, if there is not a fit for funding within the SDTC programming, we have a variety of federal and provincial partnerships. And given the work that we would have done, for example, on an application and all the diligence, we do try and pass that off to other agencies, potentially where there might be a better fit. We don't try and influence those decisions. It's really more a question of can we convey what we've learned and pass that off for others for potential consideration.
So in essence, you act as a business development arm to find other government money for projects, including one named after the family of the chair of the board. On June 9th, 2022, a few months after that letter, the Sharon Center got $2 million from the industry department. Then it got another $2.2 million from, I believe it was a COA, and then another $1 million from a COA. And it goes on and on over the next couple of months, $1.4 million from DFO, for a total of almost $10 million. So did your team help secure the ISED or a COA money in terms of directing them for the Sharon Center when it couldn't get it from SDTC?
Mr. Chair, my recollection after would have been maybe after the initial round of introductions. I don't recall or remember us participating in any diligence by these other agencies. But to be fully, I'd have to look into to confirm that. But that is my recollection.
But you did commit, as you said, was your standard practice to help them, and then suddenly they, over the next couple of months, got shockingly money from the ISED department, where SDTC reported to that minister, and also got money from a COA, which also falls under the industry department. So I think actually it was a pretty good, in my view, bailout to get free business development, government granting money for an entity that was set up by the chair, that then went and got money, actually more money than it was seeking from SDTC in the next few months from other departments. Did SDTC charge the Sharon Center for any of those services?
Mr. Chair, as I previously just said, as a standard practice, we do try and engage in referrals to other agencies. It goes both ways. We also work actively, for example, with the Clean Growth Hub, and we receive many referrals from other funding programs. We offer this as a service for applicants in terms of trying to help them as much as we can with those particular referrals.
Thank you. That concludes your round. Mr. Besides that, I'm going to turn down Mr. Cooper. You have the whole 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rami, on January 18th, 2022, you wrote to the Sharon Center in which you stated that SDTC would, quote, give best efforts to help the Sharon Center secure funding. The whistleblower stated in his testimony that unprecedented efforts were made by employees using SDTC's reputation to help secure funding for the Sharon Center. And we know that not long after you indicated that SDTC would undertake its best efforts to assist, that the Sharon Center received $10 million, or nearly $10 million, in funding from ISED and COA. So how is it possible that you thought it was appropriate to use taxpayer-funded resources at SDTC to help secure funding for the chair's personal vanity project? Mr. Chair, as I would have previously said, we do have a common practice for applicants who don't make it through our own process. We try and refer them to other funding programs, whether federal or provincial, and we try and assist in that referral process. I don't recall the specifics. Yeah. Well, sir, Mr. Rami, I appreciate that there is a general practice or a general process, but this was not a normal application. It was an application from the Sharon Center named in the name of the chair. It was her vanity project. She served as a director. Staff flagged the funding request for $6.8 million from SDTC to be in a conflict. So if that's a conflict, isn't it also a conflict, or gives rise to the perception of a conflict for SDTC to say, well, we can't fund you directly, but we're going to be the agent of the Sharon Center to help secure funding from other government departments and agencies? Mr. Chair, again, we assisted with referrals. Once those referrals were done, my recollection is we were no longer involved in any other application or diligence or whatever it may have been. The whistleblower said that unprecedented efforts were taken to help secure funding, and that would be supported by the fact that you confirmed that SDTC did provide assistance, and then, just by coincidence, $10 million arrived at the Sharon Center from none other than the Department of Industry, from none other than COA, which also SDTC, just by coincidence, falls under that department as well. So are you disputing what the whistleblower stated in his testimony? Mr. Chair, just to repeat what I said, we have a referral process. Once that referral is done, we're not involved in any of the... I don't understand, and I'd like you to explain, because you wrote the letter, that if there's a conflict of interest to fund the project because it's the chair's vanity project, wouldn't the obvious thing to do to walk away entirely from the Sharon Center, as opposed to saying, we're going to take our best efforts and then direct staff to assist in helping secure funding to that project? Again, Mr. Chair, to repeat my answer, we... Do you not see the conflict? Do you not see the perception of a conflict? I mean, this is an organization that is riddled with conflicts. So many conflicts that within hours of the Auditor General's report, the minister shut down SDTC. Do you not see the conflict or the perception of conflict with what you wrote when you said, we're going to help you even though we're conflicted to actually fund you directly? We're going to do indirectly what we can't do directly? Mr. Chair, our role wasn't to provide funding. We provided but to act as an agent of Annette Sharon's vanity project, after which she got $10 million from the very same department that SDTC fell under industry. Again, Mr. Chair, to repeat my answer, we weren't involved in the decision making at all. We wouldn't participate in that. So you don't see conflict. No wonder this is such a mess. It's all about helping insiders at SDTC. We'll leave a room and get funding for a company. Well, we can't fund the chair's accelerator directly, but we'll go around and we'll help them behind the scenes. And
thank you.
It's really
not please. Thank you, Chair, and through you, Chair, thank you to our witnesses for joining us this afternoon. I want to begin with you, Mr. Ram. In response to a previous question from Mr. Massey, you were asked about whether there had been any discussions about severance or exit payments for executives. You really didn't answer it, so I'm going to give you one more opportunity. It's a fairly yes or no question. Have there been discussions about severance or exit payments?
Once again, Mr. Chair, as for my previous answer, I'm very focused right now on helping the new board with its
Sir, I'm going to stop you. It's a yes or no question. Have there been discussions, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, that'll be a decision of the board.
No. Under in our system, a refusal to answer can constitute a contempt of Parliament. So I'm going to give you one more opportunity to answer a very simple question. Have there been conversations, yes or no, regarding severance or exit packages for executives at SDTC? It's a yes or no question. You're required to answer.
Mr. Chair, I have clarified the terms of my employment till the end with the new board, and that'll be a question that's better directed to the new board.
So I'm just going to
They decide on my compensation.
Sir, you failed to answer. I'm not going to dwell on the issue, but it's a clear failure to answer a question that was duly put, and it requires a yes or no answer. I want to go to the amended contribution agreement that was signed between SDTC and the Government of Canada. Would it be possible for you to give us a line-by-line analysis of what changes were made between the previous and the current contribution agreement?
Mr. Chair, I believe so. I'll have to look into that, but I believe we can do that.
Okay, I look forward to receiving that. Who within SDTC approved the changes to the updated contribution agreement?
The final approval authority, Mr. Chair, would have been the new board.
So the current three-person board?
That's correct.
Great, thank you for that. I would like to know, were there any projects that were previously ineligible that would now be eligible under the new contribution agreement?
Mr. Chair, with regards to any of those projects that were found ineligible as a part of the OAG sample, as per the recommendation, the new board has put in place a process for reviewing all the projects in her sample period. The review of those particular projects is still in progress, so I don't have anything to report to you at this particular time.
I just want to back up on that a little bit, because the question was, with the changes in the contribution agreement, would previously ineligible ones now be eligible based on the changes in the contribution agreement, and vice versa, those that were eligible, are there any that would be now ineligible?
Mr. Chair, I'm unable to answer that question. There are clarifications to the contribution agreement. I'm not conducting the eligibility review. The board is directing that process. They're working with independent assessors, and they're committed to getting that process right. The work is ongoing.
So I want to follow up on that, because we keep talking about this process. Now, in this updated contribution agreement, it says very clearly that the foundation agrees to pursue in good faith the recovery of funding for funded projects in such cases, and then it talks about the three types of things. But you keep going back to this ongoing review. Is the foundation, is STC actually making, as required in this document, good faith recovery of that funding? And I don't want to hear this being pushed off. We know there are a number that were ineligible. So are you making a good faith effort to require the repayment of those funds?
Mr. Chair, the board of directors is looking at every project to see if funding can either be resumed, terminated, or recovered. They will take action if and when required, and the work is ongoing.
Not quite getting to the root of the matter, but one final question. Under section 20.03 and again 20.04, 20.03 requires that the minister be notified and informed about any potential situation that is reasonably interpreted as either conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest. I'm curious how many times and under what circumstances has the minister been informed of these types of conflicts of interest?
Mr. Chair, I do not recall. I'll have to look into that.
Would you be able to provide that information in writing to this committee within the timelines that the chair will lay out?
I will look into that.
Thank you very much.
Let's vote. Let's get out the 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 vote. Let's win.
Was amazing. Kamala closing her campaign with a heaping serving a cringe as a VP Donald Trump make a final push to win over undecided voters in swing states, Jesse. Right now, this race is tighter than the hairpiece that's glued to Jesse's scalp. Trump is closing like a madman with 4 rallies across 3 swing states, while Harris is sticking to one place, the Commonwealth of PA.
We stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America's promise, and we will take back the nation that we all love so much.
It's about the win, and it is about more. It is about more. It is about just strengthening our country and reminding each other we are all in this together. We rise and fall together.
I've been waiting 4 years for this. We're just one day away from what will be the most important political event in the history of our country.
It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next president of the United States of America.
But that's just a warm-up to Kamala's star-studded finale in Philly, featuring Joker 2 star Lady Gaga, Latin sensation Rick Martin, and talk show queen Oprah. Never heard of her. But Van Jones is worried the celeb bonanza finale could backfire.
I don't think you understand. Working people sometimes have to choose. Am I going to go to the big cool concert this week and pay for babysitting for that? Or am I going to figure out a way to get to the polls? I don't like these big star-studded events. In fact, probably helped us lose last time. I don't want people going to concerts. I want people knocking on doors. I want people out there fighting for this thing. I'm just nervous.
All right, Dana, I have to come to you first because you seem to understand the coils and the engine of this whole system. And I don't understand. As we add more experts in analysis, the election doesn't become more transparent. It becomes more complicated. It's like we turned the election into a phone plan or a cable provider where there's I don't even know what I'm listening to.
Rick Hume said something this morning in the newsroom that I thought was true. You know, sometimes you get frustrated with your phone and you just want to go back to a paper calendar.
Yes.
Because that's when you everything was there. He said back earlier when he was reporting in his beginning of his career, you would, as a reporter, go and actually talk to people and get the feel for it. And now everything is so overpolled and social media is distorting things and you just don't necessarily have a good feel. So no one really knows exactly what's going to happen. I do want to add one thing though. It's smart for her to stay in Pennsylvania because if she doesn't win Pennsylvania, she's not going to win the presidency. And Van Jones, who we just showed from CNN, he also said during that same hit that he said nothing is making me happy about Pennsylvania. He said I'm nervous all the time, but he said Philadelphia is where they need big numbers, but it's been trending down. And it's not in terms of people, just Republicans, it's just people are not going out to vote. So we started this with her chanting, let's get out the vote, let's get out the vote. I don't know if the chanting's going to do it. I don't know if Cardi B is going to do it or Lady Gaga or Oprah even could do it. Because if people don't feel motivated to go out and vote in Pennsylvania, that's going to be really tough for her.
If only she had put Shapiro on the ticket, but she had to keep the Jew off the ticket, Jessica.
My favorite game.
Yes. Isn't it an interesting microcosm of America? Lady Gaga endorsing Kamala, but Lady Gaga's dad endorsing Trump. So who has a closer grip on reality of everyday Americans? The one who feels the effects of a bad economy or crime or immigration, the restaurant owner in a crime-plagued city, or the pop star, his daughter. Shouldn't she listen to her dad instead of her friends?
I think she's listening to herself. She was born this way, and she has always lived this way. And I don't think we need to pit families against each other. He has had success, and she has obviously had wild success and is an incredible talent. And there's no reason to minimize her for this. There is reason to consider if there will be someone who sees this as the final night is just about stars and it's not about Kamala Harris making her pitch. She will, I'm sure, give her same stump speech that she has been giving, which has been wildly effective. Now, in every survey, the late breakers are going for Kamala by double-digit margins. And Trump used to be leading in that category, people who were deciding closer to the end from 4 to 6 weeks out. But the last 2 weeks, it's been about her. But Van Jones says, I want people knocking on doors. They're having to send home canvassers because they have so many. And on Saturday, this was incredible. The Harris campaign was knocking on 2,000 doors a minute across Pennsylvania.
2,000 a minute, you
say?
A minute, my goodness.
Yeah, and you just don't
hear those kinds of stories from the Trump campaign. Now, that's not to say that they don't exist. They're not lies. I mean, my mom is right now in Scranton knocking on doors.
Really? Oh.
You got something against my mom? What? Oh, you said it.
Of course not. No, we all said wow.
Wow. Oh, okay. Anyway, the closing message differential is so stark, though, and you are seeing the effect of this on people who are making these late decisions and just the conversations about how it's ending. So Donald Trump has had to be in North Carolina, which I'm sure he's not thrilled about. So that's the only battleground state that he actually won. He had to go back there. And this rally that he gave yesterday morning, the first one in the morning in Pennsylvania, where he did everything from saying, he shouldn't have left in 2020 to that weird comment about, shooting the media, that they'd have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much. So his spokesperson had to come out and clarify that. Now, if you want to say everything about Trump taken out of context, it doesn't matter. He only has a finite amount of time left to tell the American public that their lives will be better under another Trump administration than under a Kamala Harris administration. And she's the one that's actually making those connections. She's the one that's convincing people that she'd be as good on the economy. She's completely erased his lead there.
It is. We will get into that in the B block. She seems to be actually not talking about any policy at all, Judge.
Yeah, so I'm curious. When people go knock on doors, what do they say Kamala's policy is? Other than, she's this great person who wanted to decriminalize the crossing of the border by illegals and who wanted to ban fracking and confiscate guns and eliminate private health insurance. When they knock on doors, I'm curious as to whether they have answers for that. But look, here's the issue. She's in Pennsylvania 4 times tomorrow, okay? She's doing that because she needs to do that. Had she chosen Josh Shapiro, if she ends up losing this race over Pennsylvania, it will be on her totally for not picking a guy because he was Jewish, for not picking a guy because he would outshine her. Now, there are 300,000 Jewish votes in Pennsylvania. 80% of them are Democrats. So the smart thing to do would have been to allow Shapiro to carry the weight on that. But she wasn't smart enough to do that. So now she's got to be in Pennsylvania all day tomorrow. Let's talk about this overpolling. I'm sick and tired of the polls. The one thing I do know is that Democrats are 16 times more likely to pick up a phone and get involved in polling. That's number one. Number two, 70% of America thinks that we're going in the wrong direction. All right, number three, 65% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So it's not like everybody's like, yeah, let's keep going with the Biden administration because she can't think of one thing she would do differently. And in the end, the Kamala camp is worried because they keep telling women, I don't know how good their polling is. It's okay if you don't tell your husband that you're voting for Kamala. And then she says to the bros, hey, bros, it's okay if you don't tell your men friends you're voting for Kamala. She's worried about that shy Kamala vote. So I think she's got a lot more to worry about. And in the end, his message is a positive one. We're going to have a golden era. He's good with the economy. It was better when he was there. And that he has done it before and she can't even articulate it.
Jesse, I saved the Jesse for last. Can you respond to Jessica's optimism about Kamala? And also, what do you make of the polls, the shy voter phenomenon, and my new shirt?
I'm not a fan of the shirt.
Okay.
It's a little too urban for me. But it looks good on you, Greg.
Thank you.
I can tell you did chess this morning. Jessica keeps talking about all this door knocking. Well, it's not working because the Democrat machine in Pennsylvania has gone kaput. The early vote is way down for Democrats. Female votes down. Urban votes down, and the rural vote is way up. So you can knock on as many doors as you want. Republicans have sliced the early vote lead in half, and that's why they're terrified. You talk about these late breakers or going to Kamala Harris. What survey is that? I haven't seen that survey. The Democrats keep talking about this mysterious survey.
No one's
seen anything like that. Because if it's actually happening, it would show up in the early vote. And across the board in every single battleground, the Republicans are either winning the early vote, or they've actually just destroyed the Democrats' traditional. You think it's cannibalized, but if you look at the data, it's low propensity voters that they're turning out. And Republicans always show up on election day. So what the Democrats, Greg, are deciding to do or relying on, they are now relying on this avalanche of enthusiasm on election day. That has never happened before for Democrats. Democrats never produce huge avalanches of voter turnout on election day. They have to have that with Black Americans, Hispanic Americans. If there's that type of enthusiasm, why isn't it showing up in the early vote? It's a great question, because there's no enthusiasm. I have a theory here about Shapiro.
Yes.
Obama's wingman was in charge of the VP processing. Obama loves Shapiro. They went with Walls instead. It's almost like they burned Walls on an L because they wanted to save Shapiro for 4 years.
Interesting theory.
Is it?
Not really. I was just being nice.
That's sweet of you.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is interesting. I'm just crushed over Ricky Martin. I'm burning all my Menudo albums. Ricky Martin. All right, up next. Kamala refuses to squeal on Callie's stuff on Prime Appeal.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.
He's Hitler. And then they say he's a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I'm the opposite of a Nazi. I don't know.
There's an old principle in politics that if you have to say it, you've already lost. Less than a week until Election Day, Donald Trump took the stage at a rally in Atlanta and drew even more attention to a serious accusation by stating, I'm not a Nazi, I'm the opposite of a Nazi. It was strange of Trump to go there because at this critical point in a closing campaign, successful candidates usually try to unify their supporters and solidify their message. But Trump, who has never been known to show much discipline, decided to bring even more attention to his alleged fascism, authoritarian impulses, and adoration for tyrannical dictators. And keeping this issue going with, I am not a Nazi, is not going to help Trump with voters on the fence. And it might even embolden Trump's opponents. The irony is that Donald Trump's willingness to discuss and debate his alleged adoration for Adolf Hitler may not even be the most damaging issue his campaign is facing right now. At a rally in New York City at Madison Square Garden, self-described comedian Tony Hinchcliffe smeared Puerto Rico and delivered graphic insults of Latinos. Latinos. Latinos comprise 12% of the electorate. And Donald Trump needs to gain ground with this group, especially in the swing states, to have a chance at winning.
Right, why are Republicans so nervous about those comments right there? Well, it has to do, as I said, with one of the most important voting blocks in one of the most important places, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, you remember the Commonwealth? Joe Biden won it by just 81,000 votes in 2020. Donald Trump won it by 44,000 votes in 2016. So you get the idea. It's really close in Pennsylvania. Okay, there are around 600,000 by some counts, 600,000 Latino voters, I'll put an L right there, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Around, by some counts, 300,000 Puerto Rican voters in the state of Pennsylvania. The third highest Puerto Rican population in the entire country. You will notice one thing about these two numbers here. They're both way bigger than the margin in Pennsylvania the last two elections. They are a key voting bloc in the Commonwealth.
The Trump campaign, as part of its damage control effort, has condemned the comedian's remarks and maintains the comments were never vetted in advance. But there are several reports that the Trump campaign did see the remarks in advance. Either way, the insults of Latino voters and the complications created for the Trump campaign amount to a serious campaign PR crisis. And the blunders, analysts say, reflect what the Republican Party has become in the MAGA era. A party that often engages in blunt, sometimes reckless rhetoric, even if it risks alienating some voters. The days left until the election votes are counted, major missteps like Tony Hinchcliffe's insults of Latinos and Trump's own defensiveness have prompted countless political analysts to question the campaign's strategic judgment. But there's also an argument that this is simply the new Republican Party identity. A party so embedded in the MAGA mentality that clumsiness, insults, and insensitivity are the norm. In this version of the GOP, traditional political caution and discipline has been replaced by an embrace of unfiltered, aggressive messaging that's often out of sync with broader voter constituencies. While the Republican far-right base may identify with the campaign's no-holds-barred style and coarse language, in an incredibly close election, such boneheaded errors could cost the GOP crucial support. In many ways, these missteps may be unavoidable because they reflect a new identity that prioritizes loyalty to the harsh MAGA brand above all else. This paradox highlights what many see as both Trumpism's greatest strength and its greatest weakness. Donald Trump broke the traditional political mold by coming across as more genuine and authentic, a quality that has a powerful appeal for millions of Americans. His supporters often describe him as someone who tells it like it is, rejecting the polished, often scripted approach of establishment politicians. This perceived authenticity has allowed Donald Trump to cultivate an intensely loyal base that appreciates his willingness to go against the grain no matter the consequences. However, the flip side is that this authenticity often leans into negativity, characterized by divisive rhetoric and controversial statements that don't always land well with the broader audience. In a close election, that raw, unfiltered approach can become a liability. For every voter who loves Donald Trump's directness, there may be others put off by the relentless intensity. As we approach election day, Trump's refusal to play it safe and his lack of sophistication could rally his core supporters while also alienating undecided voters who might be searching for a more unifying figure in a highly polarized climate. It's the double-edged sword of Trumpism. The very thing that makes it powerful also makes it potentially self-destructive.
You know, this honestly isn't really about a comedian. This is about the Trump campaign. Those comments and that individual saying those things on that stage, inciting an entire arena of individuals who have been previously incited to commit attacks like the ones we saw on January 6th by people like Donald Trump. None of that was an accident. These campaign events are put together. They are vetted. That language was vetted by the Trump campaign. That person was approved by the Trump campaign because he is speaking on behalf of the Trump campaign.
And even if the Trump campaign denies it, the proverbial ship on this has already sailed. A Trump rally kicked off with insults of Latinos. And by the way, the rally also included insults of African Americans, women, Jewish people, Muslims, Samoans, Malaysians, New Yorkers, and people who do not think Kamala Harris is the Antichrist. In some ways, you could argue that Trump hosted a massive get out the vote rally for Kamala Harris. Trump and his crew made the case to tens of millions of voters to come together and support the Democratic Party's vision of a diverse, unified America over Trump's racist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, dystopian potpourri of flaming hate, boiling ignorance, and festering resentment. It was a staggering and horrific way for Donald Trump to end a presidential campaign. But it was great for the Harris campaign and perhaps helpful for our democracy. Because here at the end, Donald Trump and the MAGA believes that Democrats, journalists, and any critics of him are the enemy within and should be swept away by the National Guard and perhaps even the military. There should be no doubt that Trump will throw out the Constitution and embrace tyranny. Because while Donald Trump may reject the words, including tyranny, fascism, and authoritarianism, his actions and the actions of his highest profile supporters embrace it all. America's undecided voters have gotten an earful and an eyeful of Trumpism, and I'm convinced most of these voters are repulsed and will cast their ballots accordingly. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.
I mean, turnout is really what's going to swing this election.
Tom Lee, the managing partner and head of research at Fundstrat Global Advisors, reveals his 2024 U.S. election prediction, as well as how this will affect you as a Bitcoin investor.
Last time you were on, you talked about the Trump trade being pretty strong. A lot of things turned back, reversed. DJT reversed. Bitcoin didn't move into the mid-70s, got into the low 70s. I don't know whether the banks and other Trump trades changed, and all the betting markets certainly moderated late last week, came back a little bit. Do you have a change in your opinion on the election now?
And that's true, because even in just the last week, actually 5-6 days ago, Trump's favorability to win was almost 67%, with Kamala around 33%. Today, things have changed, with Trump now only a 57% favorite and Kamala 42%. Again, these are the prediction markets. The official polls have things much, much closer.
Well, it does seem like over the last 4 or 5 days, the election really narrowed when you look at betting markets or the polls. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily trust polls, but I think the quality and the adjustments of polls have made them more accurate. So I think it is really a toss-up, and it's going to be a very close election. And something our clients are preparing for, because we did a survey last week, 76% don't think we'll have a winner declared election night, and 43% roughly expected 1 week after. So I think markets are kind of bracing for this period of uncertainty. I think that's why many of the trades have reversed.
And it should be noted that the number one thing that will cause volatility in a market is uncertainty, meaning if there's a clear either Kamala win or a clear Trump win, it's more of a landslide. That is much, much better compared to what maybe the more likely cases will be. And we'll get to this chart in a second. Watch the whole video.
So I think it's going to be a week where there's going to be a lot of worry. One thing I was thinking about over the weekend, though, is I think the market's fear of uncertainty will peak before. It's very likely it peaks before the election outcomes actually decided.
So understanding all that, and by the way, not all prediction markets are created equal. Poly market is a whole lot closer. The Margex market is still insanely bullish on Trump, meaning on Margex, and I'll link this down below. If you were to put $100, let's say, on a Trump victory, you would have a potential return of $40 or $140 in total. Yet, if you put $100 on Kamala, you could secure up to $310 in total. That's a potential 210% potential return. Less than 24 hours left. I will link this down below. Actually, just 14 hours left. And by the way, use a link down below or code altcoin and claim up to $10,000 in bonuses. But are prediction markets like this entirely accurate? I mean, I would say the mainstream media showing you polls, they have a skew, but also the prediction markets. We have to acknowledge who's using them or not using them.
One of the things that happened in the polls is the view that there's a lot more women going to vote than before. But that these signals, whether it be Bitcoin or whether it be DJT stock or whether it be the betting markets, may also all be off, if this is true, on the assumption that actually is a very small percentage
market is still insanely bullish on Trump, meaning on Margex, and I'll link this down below. If you were to put $100, let's say, on a Trump victory, you would have a potential return of $40 or $140 in total. Yet, if you put $100 on Kamala, you could secure up to $310 in total. That's a potential 210%. So the prediction markets, we have to acknowledge who's using them or not using them.
One of the things that's happening in the polls is the view that there's a lot more women going to vote than before, but that these signals, whether it be Bitcoin or whether it be DJT stock or whether it be betting markets, may also all be off, if this is true, on the assumption that actually there is a very small percentage of people in the betting markets who are women, for example. There's a very small percentage of people who are women who actually trade in Bitcoin, not who own Bitcoin, but who trade in Bitcoin. Very small group of women who are trading in DJT stock. What do you think of that?
I think there's some credence to that, just because we know, like when you look at the Iowa polls, it was really the senior women voters that changed a lot. And you're right, these markets can be narrow, and they're very responsive to just changes in liquidity. And it is, I think it's a very tight race. I mean, it's going to be very close. I think anyone who thinks that they know who's going to win is really playing with fate, because I think it's a very tight race.
So Tom Lee at this point isn't willing to pick a candidate. It's too close. But once we have a winner, how this will affect you as an investor.
I'm bullish only in the sense that election uncertainty has caused people to de-risk and cash to sit on the sidelines, but the fundamentals have been good. Earnings season's been very good. The Fed is dovish, and I don't think it's going to matter who ends up in the White House. Even if it's split Congress or a sweep, I think markets do pretty well either way. So it sets up for a really good rally into year-end. But when it starts in November is just what we don't know.
And let me share with you my prediction. If you hold Bitcoin, my chart, depending on which candidate wins, but in the latest altcoin news, Waves founder unveils Units protocol for layer 2 interoperability.
So I'm Sasha Ivanov. I launched Waves blockchain back in 2016. It's like an OG chain, very old.
Just know Waves used to be one of the top blockchains, top 10, back in 2017. Today, it's more of an old dog in the space, although the metrics, the holders, there is still a large community.
But now we are moving forward. So what we are doing now, we are turning Waves into an ecosystem of interconnected EVM chains. And Waves itself is becoming a layer 0 that connects those chains in a trustless manner.
So just to be clear, the Waves founder is launching a new protocol for layer 2 interoperability. Actually, thank you, Units Network, for sponsoring this segment of today's video. And in a nutshell, Units Network is a modular infrastructure with layer 0 scalability and restaking for consensus. And I know what you're thinking. Austin, don't we have interoperability chains today? Don't we have L2s today? Well, Waves founder Sasha Ivanov explains why Units protocol is actually very much needed as an L2.
So the current state of this like L2 narrative, you don't have like full decentralization there. So what you have there is usually one sequencer node on which all those like layers run, and you also don't have like trustless interaction between those chains, because you usually have just centralized bridges that connect those chains. And that's where what we're building, Units Network, comes into play.
So it's aiming to be the most decentralized, connecting the most chains, but also there will be demand pressure from the current Waves holders.
So we have like a network of validators, Waves validators, and actually they validate not only Waves, but all those chains connected to it. So what happens actually? They restake their Waves balance in those chains. Basically, their contribution is based on their Waves balance, and the consensus that is established in Waves is exported to those higher chains, making them properly decentralized. And Waves itself is becoming not even layer 1, it's becoming layer 0. And all those like connected chains, which were like layer 2s, they become layer 1s because they're properly decentralized.
So I will link this down below for you to do your own research. Be aware this is launching soon, November 5th, on multiple different exchanges, so expect volatility. Things get very, very volatile around launches, and also volatile around elections. So this is my chart, this is my prediction on what happens post-election, and let's start with Trump. Looking at a clear Trump win or a clear Kamala win, to me I put best case in the sense that it's clear, it's a landslide, it's virtually not up for debate, although we'll see what the candidates choose to contest, time will tell. But if Trump wins, to me, that's an instant Bitcoin pump. I mean, he has ran on pro-economy, he's also ran on pro-Bitcoin. You can type in on YouTube right now every single promise Donald Trump has made to Bitcoin holders, and it's clear he is positioning himself, he has positioned himself as the Bitcoin candidate. That being said, if Kamala wins, just based on sentiment alone, I think we'll see an instant Bitcoin, and actually crypto in general, dump. This would be just on sentiment. Kamala really hasn't said that many pro-Bitcoin statements. I mean, she put out a pamphlet for black men, how she'll protect the Bitcoin rights of black men in America. She's also made statements lumping digital assets and AI and just future innovation together. So for that reason, market sentiment, I expect a dump. Looking at a Trump win in the weeks to follow, I would expect we see a new Bitcoin all-time high within weeks. I mean, this year, 2024, is only it's only about 7 weeks remaining. I think Bitcoin surpasses its all-time high before 2025. Now for Kamala, even though we get a Bitcoin dump on the day, on the weeks, probably weeks that follow, this Bitcoin train is not stopping. I think we see a new Bitcoin all-time high in Q1 of 2025. I mean, there's a clear lack of supply on the market, and BlackRock and Fidelity and the US Bitcoin ETFs are currently buying up the supply every single week compared to the amount of Bitcoin that are being mined. Also, Bitcoin is already regulated, so I would expect this trend to continue. Really, I think the altcoins and the broader crypto market, that's where we're going to start to see the major differences. If Trump wins, I think the altcoin bull run starts within weeks, continues into 2025 and through 2025. If Kamala wins, I do think altcoins in the long run, I think they will dump harder than Bitcoin initially, but I do think in the long run into 2025 and beyond, they'll do better than the last 4 years, but just okay in general. I do say better than the last 4 years because really it's Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, that was appointed by the Biden administration, specifically not Kamala, but through Biden's appointees. He has been a huge net negative for crypto. With either candidate, they appoint their own people. Any appointee other than Gary Gensler will be better than Gary Gensler, and there will be a new appointee no matter who wins. So much less of an altcoin bull run, in my opinion, for next year if Kamala gets in. But I do think that more regulated cryptos like an Ethereum, maybe like a Solana, I think this will be better for them. Also a Kamala victory in general, just thinking out loud, might be better for Bitcoin. Because if altcoins are going to have all this uncertainty, maybe a lot of that crypto money will just go into Bitcoin, just go into Ethereum, because there's uncertainty in the market. Also, maybe meme coins will really pop off if Kamala wins as a big like FU to the system. Maybe we'll see a future where it's just ultra regulated and then ultra meme coin unregulated. Again, a lot of people get mad at me for saying, Austin, why don't you take a clear position on a candidate one way or the other? And to that, I say we have 1.49 million subscribers because we try to the best of our ability to give you all the information on both sides so you can make the best decision for you. And that brings us to what I think would be the more likely scenario. If we go weeks and weeks and weeks and we're not sure who wins. Candidates are contesting it from both sides. I mean, the polls do suggest this is going to be ultra close. But if it looks like a Trump win in any aspect, even though it's much less, I do think we'll get a Bitcoin pump on that news, although much less. And also long term, this does not change a thing. New Bitcoin all-time highs within weeks, at least by month 1 or 2 of next year. And on the flip side, if it looks like Kamala is likely going to win, although so much more uncertainty, I think Bitcoin will dump in uncertainty, although much less. But again, due to Bitcoin already being regulated, I do think we see new Bitcoin all-time highs, at least in Q1 of next year. And as for altcoins, whether it looks like maybe Trump will win or maybe Kamala will win, in the short term, I think that means major altcoin uncertainty. Although as the weeks continue and we do get more of a winner, then I would revert to either Trump best case or Kamala best case on where this altcoin market trends.
If Harris wins, the effect on BRICS will be X. If Trump wins, it will be Y. What's X and Y?
Well, to put it simply, if Harris wins, then BRICS will have a much harder time. If Trump wins, that really galvanizes the anti-Western global movement, because as we know, he's sympathetic to certain leaders of BRICS countries.
The authoritarian ones.
Yes, oddly enough, that's right. So it's easy to laugh about where BRICS comes from, that it was this Goldman Sachs product. But we have to think about the League of Nations. That also rose as a dream of a few lawyers at the turn of the 20th century. So I think we do have to pay attention to what it could become in the future, especially if the election shows the rest of the world that maybe the model of liberal democracy in the US is not the model that we want to follow, and that there are plausible and appealing alternatives that are now rising. Historically, that's a path away from democracy and towards other regime types.
The outcome of the U.S. election affects this how?
Trump increases the unpredictability of the U.S. as a partner for the West. He also takes a more extreme form of isolationism than any U.S. president, I think, to date. So where does that leave? The fact that he likes autocrats is a bad signal, a very bad signal for the West. Will he become more attractive to those middle powers in the BRICS? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if U.S. instability and unpredictability actually helps those members of the BRICS who rely on the U.S. for some security guarantees. So I think the best answer is some chaos, but I also think we're not close to a world where the U.S. and the EU are going to stop being major economic and geopolitical powers for the immediate future. So there'll be an incremental shift. There'll be bad messaging, bad theater around it. Will there be structural changes quickly away from the G7 towards BRICS? I don't think so.
Okay, let me hold you there because I got 30 seconds left. I want to hear Rohinton on this as well.
I'd say that a Trump victory means more for the G7 than it means for BRICS. I'd be more worried about the G7, never mind the BRICS. Second, whoever wins, there's this slow dynamism in BRICS of institution building, which we talked about a few minutes ago. That will continue. Now, its speed might change here and there, but I'd say the new development bank, the counterpoint to the IMF, counterpoint to payment system, cooperation on commodities is going to continue whoever wins. Because Kamala Harris really has echoed a lot of the anti-China rhetoric that's going on in the US. Trump is most crude about it, but Biden and Harris have not been that different on that one. And so from China, I'm not seeing much difference.
The Regina civic election is almost here, and new billboards have started popping up across the city, targeting 3 incumbent politicians, including Mayor Sandra Masters.
It's like, oh, social media has come to the streets. That's kind of what I mean by social media, because you can put any handle you want and say anything you want.
It's part of a new campaign by Common Sense Regina, part of a recently formed network of organizations focused on municipal politics. The network's spokesperson lives in Alberta and operates the Alberta Institute, a libertarian think tank.
Because municipal government is doing so many things that aren't their job, they're also doing a bad job at the things that are their job.
McCaffrey says the organization wants a common sense approach to government that means a focus on potholes and snow removal rather than flashy, non-essential projects. He says Common Sense Regina is led by 6 people, but wouldn't say who they are or who funds them.
Unfortunately, I think we live in an era where if you go public with political views, you open yourself up to being attacked and denigrated.
One of the other politicians targeted says that explanation is ironic.
They're an organization that do nothing but attack, and yet they're hiding in the shadows.
The billboards likely cost thousands of dollars according to Masters, and there's no limit on how much an anonymous organization like this can spend. But advertising by candidates cannot be anonymous, and there is a limit on spending.
If you're the candidate they're supporting, you get to stay perfectly clean.
Hawkins has served on council for 3 terms, and in 12 years says he's never seen anything like it.
I think there's nothing common sense about their approach to politics.
Regina residents head to the polls on November 13th. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
As the saying goes, my friends, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I don't know what you're doing, but I can tell you that Fortitude Ranch, a network of timeshare resort fallout shelters, preparedness camps, they've called in their members who may be living in areas of potentially high tumult. And I'm putting it lightly. We have a story from the Post-Millennial. California man hospitalized with brain bleed after being beat up by neighbor over Trump banner. It was probably no more than 10 or 15 minutes later he came over to my house screaming and yelling. Well, this man is all right, and I hope people remain calm and there is no violence. This election must be won in the ballot box. It must be a tremendous popular vote victory. You all need to go and vote. And then hopefully things are peacefully settling down. The corporate press is certainly saying something else. They're suggesting it may get very, very bad. Aside from the story about this man who was mercilessly beaten over a Trump banner, they're now saying the far right is preparing for something truly dangerous, where there's a quote. They say, fence-sitting is coming to an end. You will soon choose which side you're on. That's kind of nightmarish. Can we go back to just, sitting in our lounge chairs, ordering wings and watching the game? It's funny, because when I was young, I was like, people are so lazy. All they do is order wings, sit in their lounge chairs and watch the game. And now I'm like, let's go back to that. Because when you're young, you see these problems and you want to change them, and you're wondering why they're not being changed, and you get older and you realize it's better to reform than revolutionize. Now, there's certainly a lot of people that on the right and the left who are revolutionary. Me, I'm a reformer. Because I think people understand that in most circumstances, we can gradually come to a functioning system of change without burning everything to the ground. I look at the left and they say, Tim, we have 10 years before climate change wipes everything. No, look, man. The turn of the century, 1900s, there was horse crap everywhere. And they were like, this is it. The horse crap will drown us. And then cars got invented. Now, instead of crapping on the ground, crap is in the air. But now Elon Musk is making them electric cars, along with many others. And it's centralizing pollution. It's not solving everything. But I just mean to say that slow and gradual changes, we will survive. The apocalypse is not coming. That's an extreme exaggeration. I will say, when I was going to get breakfast over the weekend, it was a 2-hour wait. And I was sitting here being like, I'm starting to understand Bill Gates. I'm kidding. Calm down. The left won't care that I said that the right will. It's a joke. But take a look at this. The Post-Millennial. An Orange County man is in the hospital with a brain bleed after being assaulted by his neighbor over a missing Kamala Harris sign and a trash Trump flag. John Mutter told an LA Fox affiliate that it all started when his neighbor had his Kamala Harris symbol sign stolen from his front yard. Mutter believes his neighbor assumed that he took it because he had a Trump flag attached to his garage. He was thinking it was me because I had my Trump sign, which is the furthest from the truth. I was on the sidewalk. I knew he had a Ring camera, so I said, hey, can you stay off my property? I left. It was probably more than 10 minutes later he came over screaming, yelling. The surveillance camera documented the angry words between the two men. But the scene quickly turned ugly as Mutter says his neighbor allegedly beat him up and left him in the garage to die. He knocked me out. I have a major brain bruise in the back of my head. I got kicked in the face. There was mass blood. He left me there basically on my own to survive. Wow. Wow. Lourdes Barreto, Mutter's wife, expressed outrage. He could be dead right now for this man, and this man didn't care about it all because of a Trump flag. I just can't believe the violence. For what flag? Are you kidding me? It's not that. It's a cult, dude. This is what they're reading over at the New York Times. On Telegram, a violent preview of what may unfold in election day and after. Right-wing groups which use Telegram to organize real-world actions are urging followers to watch the polls and stand up for their rights in a harbinger of potential chaos. And there's January 6th. It's electioneering. This is from today, and they're basically saying, yo, there's going to be violence. I hope not. I hope they're exaggerating, and I hope everybody just refrains. Everybody, you should go home with your families, sit back, let Trump, the legal system, let this play out. But I'm going to tell you what, I was there in 2017 when the far left went nuts. I wasn't there in 2020, but we all watched online. We don't want none of that. I'm hoping that we get a clean victory and that Donald Trump sweeps, wins a national popular vote, electoral college, the House, the Senate, and the Democrats are rebuked. We tell them we don't like your ideas, you lose. I hope. However, shadow campaign fails. Because in that circumstance, I do believe things will calm down. And I'll tell you why. In the event that Trump loses, I do fear a reaction from elements of the right. I don't think it'll be a broad section, but a strong section. I was talking to Sam Sear last week, and it's fascinating because these leftists, they don't listen to a word I ever say. It's funny because I was like, I'm pro-choice. And he's like, yeah, well, what about the instances of rape? I'm like, I guess in the instance of rape, there'd have to be a rape. I got you. I'm like, yeah, but I'm still pro-choice. Like, they don't listen. I believe the risk of a civil war igniting is higher potentiality from the right than the left. Now, hold on there, gosh darn it. What does that really mean? It means when we see action from the right, which is incredibly rare, it is what I refer to as incredibly acute. Fringe groups, disorganized, engage in action which is over the top extreme. The left engages in substantially more political violence, but it's blunt. So I'll give you 2 examples. How often, tell me this, does the right riot? They never do. When's the last time you gave me an example of the right-wing rioting? Figured, January 6th. But it was at the Capitol, during the certification process. I call that acute, meaning it is rare that you see any action taken, but it is substantial action. It wasn't an insurrection, it was a bunch of angry people who stormed barricades and were yelling. And the people that were Trump supporters, and cops that were fighting, politicians think they hurt. It was bad. And we know what happened, it shouldn't happen. I think everybody recognizes it was bad. There are a lot of people that are cheering it on, but that's not the majority. Republicans, conservatives, Trump supporters, they decided to riot, and they chose the Capitol. That's bad. Democrats riot all day, like the summer of love, it's nuts. We do get periodic, what I refer to as sharp, acute action, but usually it's blunt in that there are, the story I was talking about with the guy who was assaulted outside of his house and left with a brain bleed, I call that blunt, meaning it wasn't a mass trauma event, it wasn't a Capitol, it wasn't shocking, and the news won't care. So the left is doing it more, but they're dodging the press. So what does this ultimately mean for chaos in this country? If the left engages in widespread rioting, you're not going to see a right-wing reaction. People will largely just say they're protests. It's violent, it's dangerous, stay home, and that's kind of the end of it. If something happens that truly outrages the right to an extreme degree, the right, in my opinion, is more likely to engage in something like January 6th. Now, many people told me I'm wrong, and they say January 6th sent a clear message, and Republicans are going to back away and stay away from that stuff. Fair point, I agree. Largely. The Republicans are going to be like, hey, that was a bad move for us. We don't want that. We could have won legal battles. Instead, Trump was besmirched. Here's what I see as the potentiality. It's probabilistic. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, and I'm not saying it's greater than 10%. I'm saying in the event that Kamala Harris wins, by any means, there are going to be angry right-wing individuals. If it does bubble up to any kind of public action, the right will take a more direct approach, which will have a larger impact. They're smarter, they're less organized in certain ways, but they'll take actions that are going to be significant. January 6th is an example. It's extremely unlikely, it's extremely rare. However, in the event it does happen, it will have a bigger impact, which I believe could ignite civil war. So I want to clarify this. I'm not saying it's a 50-50 chance of civil war or anything like that. It could be 0.2, 0.001. I'm saying actions from the left, running through DC and starting fires, ain't going to start a civil war. Even widespread rioting across the country ain't going to start a civil war. January 6th had more potential to start a civil war than anything else, though I think it was absurdly unlikely to get anywhere near that. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. The right almost never engages in this stuff, but if they do, it's going to be sharper, more focused, and better planned. The left is probably going to do it no matter what, but most people are going to ignore it. So we end up seeing the left beats a guy up, believes him to die, and nobody cares. The left is talking about it, it's not covered in the New York Times. What if it was the other way around? Oh, you know it would be. That's the game. So I say this, my friends. I hope that Donald Trump wins the national popular vote. The left can riot, but what happens is moderate default libs see the writing on the wall and say, hey, I want nothing to do with this. You guys are on the wrong side of history. And then there will be blunt political violence on the left, which is protests, riots, fires. It'll be bad. Don't get me wrong, it should be stopped. But it's not going to be burning down Capitol buildings or anything like that. Look at what they were doing in Portland when they surrounded the federal building and they were explosives at it. Really, really bad. Should have been stopped. But it's like, it didn't rise to that level where they were capturing people and shutting down press and things like this. I think we may see things like that. There are a lot of people on the right who say I'm wrong. There are a lot of people who say I'm right, but I do believe it's true and correct. And it's funny, the reason I brought Sam is I was talking about this, and he says, who do you think is more likely to start a civil war? The right. And he's like, really? Oh, okay. I'm like, of course. What? The left is going around smashing windows and putting up Starbucks and McDonald's. If the right does engage in any kind of action, they're more likely to do it at a government building or something more serious. But the reality is, though the left may do it more, the things they're engaging in just don't really rise to that level often enough. But maybe I'm wrong. Because one way to look at it is, I don't know, they did fire on the White House grounds, set fire to St. John's Church. I don't think that's what would start civil war. Shutting down an election process could be a catalyst. Not in itself, it would be a catalyst for chaos. But there is, it was funny, I told him, like, the left starts civil war too. And I'm like, it was funny, Sam was asking me, is he really thinks it's going to be a civil war? I was like, no, I mean, the potentiality exists, figure it out. But let me say like this. I think I convinced him a little bit. Because he was like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, okay, let's say Trump wins. Okay, let's say he then goes around with a bunch of illegal immigrants in California using the National Guard and the military. He's like, well, I guess if Trump calls him, could he? Well, he said he would. And? Now, the history of thinkers. You may say that from Trump's procedural within the law. Okay. That's why I warn repeatedly, if Trump is doing domestic deportations, no military, no trucks, no buses, it's got to be granular. Local police making arrests one at a time and deportations swiftly. Because I will not tolerate myself trucks, trains, buses, and this kind of weird militarized operation. It's going to be bad. It's going to be hard, to be expensive, but it has to be. Because if it was easy, it would just be the way. But here's the reality. If Trump starts doing this stuff, maybe the left then says, oh no, he's Hitler, and then what? Exactly. So I don't know what to expect, my friends. I don't. What I can tell you all is that I hope you're prepared for the worst. But I hope you're all doing the best. I hope you're all going out and doing your part, bringing your friends, your family, and everyone going and voting together and just doing what needs to be done. I hope Trump wins. I hope there's no violence. I hope the left is demoralized and we just get a clean process by which we avoid civil conflict and we navigate out of a series of events and a period of civil strife where we come to find peace and things stabilize. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Show coming out tonight is going to be a blast over at youtube.com/timcast.IRL. You know, we're here at Daily Wire Studios. That means we're going to have a bunch of really awesome people coming on the show all this week, especially tomorrow. Follow me on X and Instagram at Tim Cast. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all tonight.
Details of the alleged leaked and falsified documents have been trickling out slowly because of a court gag order. But Israel's Hostages and Families Forum is determined to get to the bottom of it, concerned by the court's report that it could have hurt efforts to release their relatives.
We're fighting for almost 400 days. We want to know that the people that make decisions do it as well, that are doing the right thing.
First priority of the court should be to remove any hurdles so that the families can get the real situation, the real information.
On Sunday, an Israeli court partially lifted the gag order, announcing that Eli Feldstein, a spokesperson for the office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, had been detained along with at least 3 others for allegedly leaking classified documents to foreign newspapers. Netanyahu said in a statement that he was only made aware of the affair by the media and denied any wrongdoing by his office staffers. His opponents say they don't believe him.
This affair originated in the Prime Minister's office, and the investigation needs to determine whether or not it was under the Prime Minister's orders. If Netanyahu knew, he is complicit in one of the most serious security breaches on record. If Netanyahu did not know, then what does he know?
The documents are said to have formed the basis of articles in 2 European media outlets in early September that were consistent with Netanyahu's allegations against Hamas over the impasse in ceasefire talks. And as he was calling for lasting Israeli control over the Philadelphia corridor, which one of the articles suggested the militants plan to use to smuggle the hostages out of Gaza. Critics have long accused Netanyahu of prolonging the war for political gain.
The trade relationship with the U.S. remains Ottawa's biggest concern given the tight integration of our economies. Here in D.C., the ambassador has spent months, if not years, cultivating relationships with both Democrats and Republicans to stave off any policies that might harm our interests. I want to talk a little bit about each of the candidates' policies. So let's start with Donald Trump, because he has repeatedly said that he wants to impose these automatic tariffs between 10 and 20% on all U.S. trading partners. Have Canadian officials been, I suppose, registering their opposition to his inner circle, and have you received any assurances of a reprieve for Canada?
So we have been registering our concerns since he first mentioned this particular idea and policy. And I would say it's more than registering concerns. It kind of goes back to using facts to demonstrate exactly why a policy such as that, it's not just that it's not going to be good for Canada, which it won't be, but it is not good for the United States. We are by far the biggest customer. I am confident that many of these people understand that applying those tariffs to Canada will be problematic in the United States for U.S. consumers.
The worry about what is to come is not just punctuated by Trump's promise to bring sweeping tariffs on imports. Not much is known about Harris's positions on trade issues, though she has been critical of past trade deals. On Kamala Harris, she was one of 10 senators to vote against the new NAFTA. Of course, I know it's because she felt, didn't go far enough on the environment, not necessarily because she's anti-trade with Canada, but she has said that she will use the 2026 review process to make changes. So just how worried should Canada be should she assume the presidency?
We're not worried about the review of the CUSMA with either a Trump administration or a Harris administration, because we agreed to that provision. We agreed that we would take a look at how the arrangement is operating after 6 years. I don't believe that Vice President Harris is a trade skeptic. She's from California. It's a massive trading state. It has billions of dollars in trade with Canada every year. I think she is a pro-environmental leader. I think she wants to make sure that when we trade internationally, we don't do so at the expense of environmental standards.
Rising protectionism on both sides of the U.S. political aisle will remain a key concern regardless of whoever sits at the Resolute desk in 2025. The challenge for our governments will be to seek and secure exceptions and exemptions for Canada. In Washington, D.C., Karen Seolin, City News.
It is election eve, and this swing state feels like it is the centre of the US election universe at the moment. We have our team right across the United States for you this morning. We have James Morrow in North Carolina. We have Ross Greenwood in New York. We have Annalise Nielsen in Washington, D.C. And we have Peter Stefanovic in Florida. We'll get to the team in just a moment. But first, let me bring you up to date. Around 80 million Americans have already voted before Election Day even gets underway. I mentioned Pennsylvania because that's where we are here right now. And Trump and Harris have been across the swing state today. Kamala Harris, well, she's doing 3 rallies here today. It'll end here in Philadelphia. Let me just tell you about history and what you're going to witness here behind me. These steps were made famous by Rocky Balboa. He, of course, was the underdog running up these steps at the end of that movie made famous by Hollywood. And here they are. Now, Kamala Harris will hold her final celebrity-adorned rally here. As I mentioned, Sylvester Stallone, the ultimate underdog, and that's how Kamala Harris has cast herself during the campaign. But in her final days, she is certainly playing the winner. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people lined up outside to get into this event, and it's a couple of hours before it even starts, and Kamala Harris is not expected to be here till late tonight, perhaps around 11 p.m. But it has got that energy about it on Election Eve. It'll be her final message. She will be on message, and there'll be no more of that underdog status. She'll be talking like a winner. Donald Trump, of course, has his focus on Pennsylvania as well, but he was in North Carolina earlier today, one of the swing states as well that he needs to hold on to, and he made the only pre-election eve announcement, and he's talking about 25% tariffs on Mexican goods.
If they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send in.
Over the past 4 years, Kamala has orchestrated the most egregious betrayal that any leader in American history has ever inflicted upon our people.
Kamala Harris also tearing a path through Pennsylvania. She's been in Allentown and Pittsburgh, where we were just yesterday. She's trying to keep on message. There's always awkward moments in the campaign as well.
So Pennsylvania, I'm here to ask for your vote. I'm here to ask for your vote. Pennsylvania, the race is not yet over. Okay, we got a lot of work to do, and we have got to finish strong. And make no mistake, we will win.
Okay, let's bring the team back in. When we say we've got you covered for this US election, we really have you covered. Let's go to James Morrow now. He has been in North Carolina. He's live for us. He was at that Trump rally this morning. James, great to see you. What are you picking up there?
Well, it's really interesting, Laura. What I'm picking up here is I think that Trump is going to, despite what Mick Mulvaney was saying beforehand, I'm going to disagree with him here. I think that Trump will hold North Carolina for a number of reasons, not least, which is that the Republicans have a slight advantage in their early voting in this state. You talked about 81 million votes being cast already. 3 million of those votes have already been here in North Carolina, and a slight majority of those over the Democrats were cast by people who requested Republican ballots. So that gives them a fair chunk of votes to start the night off with. And the other thing that I'm hearing, too, is that for people not just in North Carolina, but other places we've traveled in the States, is that, when Trump talks about policies, like he was doing in that rally there before, they say, you may not like what he is saying, but at least he's saying a policy which I think stands in a bit of contrast to the way Kamala Harris has kind of tried to avoid policy, avoid press conferences, and, go on the whole sort of celebrity endorsement route.
Thanks, Chair. Mr. Freeland, how many jobs, Canadian jobs, will be lost with your job-killing oil and gas cap?
I was under the clearly mistaken impression that we were here to talk about the TMX pipeline, a pipeline which we got built and the Conservative government didn't. And since we're talking about jobs, I'm glad to point out 35,000 jobs were created during the building of the pipeline.
Okay,
and
well,
that's great.
how many jobs will be lost with the emissions cap? I just need the number, Minister.
There will be tens of thousands of jobs created as a result of the emissions cap. If you just look at the Shell Polaris project, the Strathcona project, the Pathways project that we all hope will move ahead, all the jobs that were created through the implementation of methane reduction technology, this is an enormous opportunity that will create tens of thousands of jobs in Alberta. You see it with Linde, you see it with their products, you see it with Dow and its first net zero petrochemical facility, you see it with the Imperial biofuel facility. Just my goodness, I mean, go and have a look at what's happening on the ground.
If you don't have the number, just say so.
Tens of thousands.
Okay, so you're saying tens of thousands of jobs will be created. Deloitte has estimated that 110,000 jobs will be lost in Canada due to your job-killing oil and gas cap. Are you confirming today that tens of thousands of jobs will be more than 110,000 jobs that you're going to drive away from Canada? Yes or no? I just need a yes or no.
Look, the oil and gas cap is intended to incent economic activity and the long-term competitiveness of the oil and gas sector while doing what we need to do to address the climate issue. It is very disturbing for me that the Conservative Party of Canada increasingly seems to be a group of climate deniers. At the end of the day, you have to actually address that issue and address it in a manner that's going to create economic opportunity. Your questions are non-answer. At the end of the day,
we have Ms. Stubbs, we got a point of order. You know what? Once again, colleagues.
I wouldn't deign to
Ms. Stubbs, I want to answer your point of order. If I could ask you to just pause, thank you. Colleagues, once again, question and allow time for an answer. Just so, Charlene, you have time to ask your question, and the Minister has time to provide a fulsome answer to your question. So if we can work within those parameters.
I'll move on because the Minister obviously, with his non-answer, proves that he admits that the jobs will not be recovered, the ones that he's going to lose with this emissions cap. So I'll move on. And I think it's important to note that it's my constituents and Albertans who are going to be impacted the most with this oil and gas cap, that they know how many jobs will be lost because most of them will be out of work in that field because of you. Mr. Freeland, you preside over one of the worst GDP per capita growth since the Great Depression. Can you confirm that you've done an impact assessment that what this oil and gas cap will do to your deficit?
Okay, there are so many untrue statements embedded in what you've said, so I'm going to have to go after them.
I just want an answer to my question. Have you done an impact assessment
I actually wasn't given a chance to answer.
and GDP per capita growth? I just need that answer.
So, once again, Charlene, you've asked your question. I want to give the Minister an opportunity to answer your question. Minister Freeland, please go ahead and provide an answer.
It is absolutely appropriate for me to make clear the falsehoods embedded in your question. It is not okay for me to just drive by those. So I'm going to go through them systematically.
Just the GDP per capita, is it not the worst?
If that was the only question you wanted to ask, you didn't need to offer all of the false fluff to begin with. So let me go after the fluff.
It would be nice for you to answer, so we can move on.
So, Mr. Allen and Ms. Freeland, if you could get direct and answer the questions that he's asked and provide an answer.
I'll be direct. Thank you,
No, hold on, Mr. Allen. I want to give Minister Freeland time to answer the questions. Mr. Freeland, briefly provide an answer to the question.
I simply can't let the falsehood stand. So first of all, you began by saying something untrue about what my colleague Minister Wilkinson said. Minister Wilkinson was very clear that we believe that our policies are both bringing down emissions and bringing good jobs to Canada.
Which is not true.
We believe we can and must do both. In terms of GDP, since we're here to talk about, no, you didn't actually.
So we have a point of order, Mr. Freeland, and I know you went to the GDP answer, but I have a point of order from Mr.
Yeah, just not the bizarre spectacle of extremely powerful elite ministers of the government of Canada, the G7 country, constantly shutting down and cutting off both women member of parliaments and an ethnically diverse member of parliament. So perhaps these guys, who have to play politics, just answer the question.
Colleagues, first of all, Minister Freeland is also a strong woman in the government who's here answering questions. Let's not target members based on their gender or their ethnicity. I'll ask everybody to take a breath and go down a notch. So we get back to the issue at hand today. That's the pipeline expansion. You do, Mr. Hallen, have time. I have it on hold, but I do have a point of order I have to address. Minister Freeland, a brief. I want to give you a chance to answer on the GDP brief, and I'm going to go back to you, Mr. Hallen, on the GDP answer you're just about to give, and then we'll go back to you.
Okay, TMF forecast that we will have the strongest GDP growth next year, and it looks like we're achieving a soft landing after TMF forecast that we will have the strongest GDP growth next year, and it looks like we're achieving a soft landing after the greatest recession since the Great Depression.
Minister, just to correct your falsehood, you said 0.25% of GDP. In fact, your gas cap, oil and gas cap, is going to take a 1% hit to our GDP, according to Deloitte. You can shake your head all you want, Mr. Wilkinson, but that's the truth. Yeah. Now, the dollar is trading at $72 right now. In your budget, you had projected WTI would be at $78. Currently, it's at $71. The PBO recently said you will blow through your projected budget by $7 billion, which we know because either you can't do math or you can't manage or both. Now, can you please confirm just the number? How much worse will the deficit be?
Time is up, and a brief answer, please.
What will the deficit be?
Mr. Hallen's question was incoherent, and it wasn't clear. He said the dollar is trading at, I think he meant oil, but he meshed up his words in his word salad. So it's really impossible to answer a question which is so incoherent and incoherent.
Okay, time is up with Ms. Stubbs for 6 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Freeland and Mr. Wilkinson, for being here today. Of course, Conservatives always support the nation-building Trans-Mountain Expansion Pipeline undeniably in federal jurisdiction. What we advocated, though, was for the federal government to assert federal jurisdiction and the rule of law in order to ensure the private sector proponent could get that pipeline built on their dime and on their schedule. Mr. Freeland, do you agree with Stats Can from last Thursday's report that if Canada didn't have contributions from oil and gas right now, that Canada would be in a recession? The strength of the Canadian economy today, in the past, is very much built on our oil and gas sector. I absolutely recognize the value that it brings in terms of jobs, in terms of revenues, in terms of our trade balance. So the two things that report said that are keeping Canada's economy going is public sector spending and oil and gas production. The problem is that because your government has killed two other potential export pipelines in Northern Gateway and Energy East, and only now is getting the Trans-Mountain Expansion built and starting to operate as a $34 billion liability on taxpayers, pipeline capacity is actually full, which will automatically cut production, Canadian energy businesses, and jobs and opportunities. So based on that, how can the Liberals and your anti-energy, anti-private sector colleagues possibly justify imposing an oil and gas cap on Canada? A job-killing oil and gas cap on Canada. I'm going to start answering the question, and Minister Wilkinson may want to offer some thoughts. Look, I do think that in areas where it's possible for everyone in this committee and everyone in our house to agree, we should. And I think that it is really meaningful and actually great that we have completed a nation-building project that both Rachel Notley and Danielle Smith support. That is a good thing for Canada. I also absolutely agree, as do all economists, that oil and gas is an important part of Canada's economy. Having said that, it is absolutely inappropriate for Conservatives to criticize our government when it comes to pipelines. We got a pipeline built to Tidewater. Conservatives did not. That is the reality. This is a nation-building project. I think there was in the Calgary Herald. In the Calgary Herald, there was a senior Alberta energy leader talking about this as a nation-building project, and it was argued that because of your lack of getting pipelines done, does it self-impose a job killing oil and gas cap on itself? The United States does it. The key question here is who got a pipeline built and who didn't. So the answer is that our government built. It's a nation-building project that is contributing meaningfully to our national security and to good wages for Canadian workers. I think that is a record I'm proud to stand on.
I'm happy to answer the question about the emissions cap. I mean, the emissions cap has not actually been announced to date, but it is both an important part of reducing carbon emissions in line with the as well as
Can I ask you to hold 1 second? We have a point of order. Go ahead, Mr. Point of order.
Member Stubbs specifically asked a question to Mr. Freeland, and I think it would only be appropriate and proper for Mr. Freeland to answer your question and not Mr. Wilkinson.
I would say that the emissions cap actually falls within my area of authority.
Mr. Falcon, ask you to hold a sec. To address your point of order, procedurally, a question was asked to Mr. Freeland, but the emissions cap does fall under Mr. Wilkinson's mandate jurisdiction. So if you want a specific question on that, I think that is appropriate for Mr. Wilkinson to answer. But I will go back to Ms. Stubbs because it is her time to ask the questions. But I would allow, this is a good reminder for committee members. If you ask the question, allow the ministers to answer so they can give a fulsome answer to the question asked. So Ms. Stubbs, I'm going to go back to you and if you'd like to direct that question.
Chair, I certainly will when the question is actually answered. So, Mr. Wilkinson, can you confirm whether or not Canada's biggest competitor in customer the United States, whether the OPEC producers, Canada's biggest competitors in hostile regimes, whether Mexico, Canada's North American competitor, whether Norway, whether European countries, whether countries in South Africa or South America impose on themselves a job-killing oil and gas emissions cap? Can you confirm?
Well, it is a cap that is actually intended to drive employment in oil and gas producing areas in this country. There will be thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs created because of the initiatives around carbon capture and sequestration, the implementation of methane reductions. It will strengthen the long-term competitiveness of the industry, which the world is moving towards low carbon, irrespective of what the UCD says, which on the weekend has decided the Department of Climate Change is not an issue anymore somehow. It is something that actually will help us reduce emissions. No sector has passed, but it also is going to strengthen the competitiveness and create jobs and economic opportunity. Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, and Newfoundland.
And it's true, European countries are all backing away actually from these policies because they're causing unreliable and too expensive.
That's not true. That's not true.
It is absolutely true. If you watch what the rest of the country is doing, and that there is no other oil and gas producing country on
Earth. You just talked about Europe. That's actually doubling down the energy transition because it's both energy security and climate.
And Sweden's announced this is oil activities.
Just for the sake of translators, we have two people, Mr. and the person asking the question is not talking over each other. I'm just aside from allowing the minister to respond or the question to be finished. I'm worried about the translators.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jordan. It's a very good point on a point of order that you've raised. Colleagues speaking over each other does not make the job of interpreters any easier. It makes it much more difficult. So I'll address you, sir, in 1 second. So I would ask Ms. Stubbs with your time to ask the question, but also allow the minister time to answer the question in a reasonable amount of time. And I hope that addresses your concern and concern that this committee members. Mr. Allen,
thank you, Chair. I agree with my colleague, Mr. Jari, about showing respect for our interpreters, but I hope, Chair, that you would see in the last exchange, Ms. Stubbs actually had not gotten to her question, and it was the minister that interrupted her. And I would also ask the minister, please respect the interpreters and that Ms. Stubbs finish before you answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, for providing that and agreeing with Mr. Jari. I just will say that Mr. Wilkinson was interrupted as well through providing his answer, so it goes several ways. I would ask all colleagues to ask and allow an answer from the minister. I think we can set the ground rules that we can give them enough time to make sure they can give a full answer to the very important question they're asking. You have 20 seconds left, so I'm going to turn it back over to you. You have a question if you like, and we can move forward. Thank you.
The reality is none of those countries are imposing a job-killing oil and gas emissions cap on themselves. They will hurt their people and their economies. And your collective failures after 9 years on pipelines have maxed out pipeline capacity. Those combined will cut production, oil and gas production, jobs, businesses, and money from Canada, no matter what you say. And that is actually the truth about what is occurring here. And you do owe it to Canadians, especially the small and medium-sized producers, operators, indigenous communities, and contractors, who all together, including the chambers of commerce and other private sector components, are saying your damage Canada catastrophically.
Minister, we are at time. I give you a 5-second answer there. You can provide that 10 seconds. Go ahead. Go ahead. If you'd like to provide a short answer.
The fact is, our government built pipelines to Tidewater. The Conservatives failed to do so. And as a point of fact, the capacity is not yet fully utilized. That's a fact.
Thank you, Minister.
So final question, before we go too far down the rabbit hole. It cost us $34 billion. Are you going to get that money back, or are you going to strike the debt at some kind of national reconciliation, fighting Putin, saving the planet initiative? Are we going to get $34 billion back? And how are we going to get it back if we're not getting 100% of the polls?
So first of all, Mr. Angus, I object very strongly to unlocking reference to fighting Vladimir Putin. He is the biggest menace to global
security.
But you threw that into your question.
Now, in terms of $34 billion back.
Because it's relevant, I didn't say volume. In terms of the actual value, and let me be categorical, I am very confident that Canadians will get a good deal on this. I'm very confident we will, yes.
Thank you very much. Time's up.
With more on the candidates' final sprint to Election Day, let's bring in Laura Barone-Lopez, who's been covering the Harris campaign.
And Lisa Desjardins, who's been reporting on former President Donald Trump. It's great to see you both. So Laura, we'll start with you. What has been the final message from Vice President Kamala Harris? Have you noticed this shift?
We have noticed a shift. In the final month, Harris was being much more explicit when she was talking about Donald Trump and what she sees as the threats to democracy that he poses, calling him unstable, looking for unchecked power. She was repeatedly quoting former Trump officials like his longest-serving chief of staff, John Kelly, as well as the former Joint Chiefs of Staff, and their words as they described Donald Trump as fascist and as dangerous. But in her closing remarks, starting this weekend, Harris has not been naming Donald Trump specifically. She's been trying to create more of this unity message, and that is a notable shift. I asked Jen O'Malley Dillon, her campaign chair, about that today, and the campaign chair said that she wants to end with optimism, this theme of unifying the country, that she will be a next generation.
Lisa, what about the Trump campaign's final messages here? Any big shifts now?
As you know, Donald Trump has very many messages most often, but one that they like as their final message is this idea that Harris broke it, Trump will fix it. That does a couple of things when you talk to senior campaign advisors for Trump. They say, first of all, it tries to tag Harris to the Biden administration, but it also leaves a much more vague opening so that any remorse, any grievance that voters have, they will blame on her, whatever it is that's broken. And it also helps with his brand, which of course is a get it done kind of businessman. So they like that message. She broke it, we'll fix it. Something else they're doing in ads, though, is they're focusing on the economy and immigration. And as Laura has been reporting, in some specific markets and online especially, anti-transgender rights commercials. Talking to campaign advisors about what's going on with that, they say they're trying to make up ground that they can see they've lost with women, suburban women, over abortion, and trying to see if that helps. Not clear if it will, but that's part of their final strategy. They do feel like they gained ground earlier this fall. They think the vice presidential debate may have been a turning point for them for momentum. They also like to point out that Harris has not had a traditional news conference, but overall right now they're trying to portray Harris as someone who's not ready to be president.
Laura, how has the Harris campaign been spending these final days? What are your sources telling you?
The Harris campaign is feeling pretty good about the election right now at this point, Jeff. They point to their expansive ground game, specifically that in the final weekend, they had volunteers knocking on hundreds of thousands of doors across the battleground states. In total, campaign officials said that the campaign has knocked on 16 million doors across the battlegrounds. The bottom line is that Harris's campaign and Democrats are relying big on turnout amongst women, and they're also really hoping that they are going to be getting a bigger margin of those disenchanted Republicans than Joe Biden got in 2020. Those people who voted for Nikki Haley in the primary, those Liz Cheney type Republicans. But when I asked Jen O'Malley Dillon, the campaign chair, today about those remaining undecided fence sitters, she said that the campaign is still consistently seeing them in the final 2 weeks breaking for Harris, and she has in the past specifically noted the Madison Square Garden rally and Trump's rhetoric in the final stretch.
Lisa, how is former President Trump looking at this moment? It was striking to see Vice President Harris say she feels she has the momentum, and he was saying, well, this feels like ours to lose. What does this moment look like to them?
Well, they have an interesting communication strategy. They've gone dark essentially with the press. They haven't had a press call in the way that the Harris campaign has. One of them said, if you're spinning, you're not winning. But they still weren't giving me numbers like we have from the Harris campaign on how many door knocks. Part of that is because their get out the vote canvassing strategy all along has been unorthodox. They have changed the playbook that the Republicans had 4 years ago. It was a roll of the dice. They've been trying to go for low propensity voters, but also from Trump volunteers. Some of them, people who've never canvassed before. So it's a question of whether those folks will get out the vote or not. How many doors they've knocked on, we don't know, because they're also relying on a myriad independent groups to get out there on the abortion issue. Americans for Progress. They're meant for prosperity. There are many different groups doing this out. One thing that they like right now, the Republicans in the Trump campaign, is the early vote turnout. They like that rural counties have turned out as we've reported here. They think that that is going to be a boost for them. They admit they don't know. Are those new voters or are those just voters who would have come out anyway? But they think they feel some momentum in the early vote going their way. But any source that I trust is one who will admit it is very close. They see many past Trump campaigns winning, but they also admit they don't know.
All right, Lisa Desjardins, Laura Barone Lopez on the campaign views before this last day of voting. Good to see you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bitcoin's going to have a post-election boom, and it doesn't care whether Trump or Kamala wins. Now, I found something very startling in the data. Did you know that during every single presidential election, Bitcoin sets a low that it never revisits again? Let me say that one more time so it really sinks in. Each election week sets a Bitcoin price floor that is never revisited. Let that sink in. Now, we got a great article by CoinDesk on Yahoo Finance that a lot of people are probably going to see this, and it has a price prediction, and then I'm going to give my own price prediction in a second, because they're saying it's likely to top 100K after the U.S. election if history is any guide. Now, we're going to come up with another number in a second. Now, 2012, you can see that also took place on November 5th. Bitcoin was only $11. We ended up getting a cycle top November 2013, and Bitcoin rose 12,000%, jumping to over $1,000. Fast forward 4 years, and then the price was around $700. Peaking in December 2017 to over 18K. And then we have 2020, where we had Bitcoin rallying $478. Now, I went into the data here just to verify myself on chain. And yes, folks, we got incredible returns when it came to Bitcoin. 2012, 11,000% return. 2016, 2,600% return. 2020 dropped down to 400%. And so now we're wondering what kind of return can we expect this cycle. Also, we need to look at the number of days later so we can come up with the exit strategy for Bitcoin. And on average, Bitcoin's going to peak 389 days after the election. Now, it's important to know that after each event, aka after each election, the size of the jump for Bitcoin dropped, providing diminishing returns. Now with this diminished returns, we should still expect a post-election rally of around 47.8%. And that's going to give us a $103,000 target in fourth quarter 2025. Now, since we are expecting to peak about 389 days after election, what kind of percentage gain are we going to be looking at here? Now, first thing I did, measure 389 days. And if you count the days from election, you're looking at November 28th, 2025. But how do we calculate what we're going to expect for an average return here? Because you can see, it is diminishing. Well, I found a great graphic to kind of maybe guess where we're going to be at. This is Bitcoin's price after halvings. Now, the post-US election average return from each cycle, you look right above my head, 1 month, 23%, 3 month, 105%, 6 month, 470%. But once again, we are expecting diminishing returns. So we're going to be looking at the 3 years here, and we're going to go with the weakest year, which is 2016. Now, 2016, you can see the 6 month return was only 131%. And so to calculate the 131.73%, we have the formula right here, and we're going to find out what is Bitcoin's price target if we can mimic our weakest cycle, which is 2016, 6 months from now, which is May, $157,000 Bitcoin. So 157. And when I went to the charts, I found something very intriguing here. If we use our Fibonacci extension tool, we go from the swing high to the swing low here. We're going to see right here at the 2618, $157,000 Bitcoin. And so when we go to the calculator, see $157,000 Bitcoin, I think that is very possible, folks. So I have a May target for the upside. And so you got two different signs saying 157 is going to be quite possible. So that is a moonshot target for May. Now I think that might be a little bit of a tall order, 157,000 by 6 months, but I definitely think it's doable within 12 months. So that's my price target for Bitcoin at this cycle. If it happens in May, we're going to take that profit and walk away. If it happens in November, well, guess what? It's going to be a very volatile summer, folks. That's all I got. I'm BZ. I'll see you and your Bitcoin at the top.
Exceedingly kind introduction. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. I think also I can give a talk in a space with lots of wonderful thinkers, colleagues, and also friends here. I'll share my slides so we can get started talking about bicycles. All right. So today I recently came upon this bicycle metaphor, especially this training wheels metaphor. And today I want to share some of our more recent work around human AI collaboration and to improve learning and human learning, that is, even though I think there's lots of parallels to machines learning as well. And I started using this training wheel metaphor specifically, and this I really like this training wheel metaphor for how we can use AI or language models to help us learn certain skills. And I like this metaphor because training wheels are supposed, or typically are removed eventually. And I think in all of our current AI excitement that in many ways I share, I think we forget about this sometimes. So today I want to talk about especially learning of skills that are particularly relevant to our mental health. But much of what I will show you is really not too specific just to mental health. It generalizes to other skills, social skills, communication skills. And
hey there, James here. I want to show you this incredible feature that the team's been cooking up for a while now. It's going to go live soon. I think everyone does
technically, there's been tremendous advances in AI over the past few years. And in some sense, we now have machines that at least to have some sense, some definition, they listen to you, they respond to you, they can translate between languages, they can solve at least some problems, they can learn, they can retrieve information, seemingly express emotion. And that used to be science fiction. As maybe some in the room here know, C3PO was famously fluent in over 6 forms of communications, and machines are getting closer and closer to that today. And usually here I would do a quick poll for anybody who's awake and active on Zoom. Maybe you can share a reaction. Some of us have learned how to ride bicycles, and I'm curious, maybe to get us awake, I'd be curious to see maybe like a thumbs up or something like that. Who has learned how to ride a bicycle and used training wheels for that? Or perhaps use that for your own children. Apparently there's even bicycle emojis. This is a spec out Zoom room. That's fantastic. And maybe to follow up on that, I'd be curious how many people still use those training wheels today. I think I remember seeing you bike around campus, Michael, and I believe that was a no training wheel scenario. And that makes a lot of sense. Like that is not always done, but training wheels are super helpful to teachers. And initially, these are really helpful scaffolding in some sense. They help us to learn a skill of riding a bike. They make this practice a little easier. We have to maybe focus on a few less things, and kind of the perfect balance comes a little later. They help us learn a skill and make this practice safer. So in some sense, I would argue that biking with training wheels is a little easier. And I want to point out that sometimes in order to learn skill, we make things harder as well. And it's a little hard to see, but this person here in front of this picturesque background is running at altitude with a weighted vest. So this is something like maybe they're training for a competition near sea level, but it's an entirely reasonable thing in the spirit of learning to make things harder. And we often call this idea desirable difficulties. That difficulties might actually be desirable, and there's lots of meaning in the difficulty and in the friction that help us learn and train. And today I'm going to focus on some skills that I think are just really, really important. They're skills that help us improve our relationships, our interactions with others, our mental health. Who knows? My hope is that they ultimately also contribute to help maintain a healthy democracy as well. And I'll now introduce some of those skills. One key skill is empathy. By that I mean the ability to understand or share the emotions and experiences of others. Another one is emotional regulation. This is the ability to manage and express emotions appropriately. This is our beloved dog, Lacey. Lacey and I are both working on emotional regulation, and we often do that together. Another critical skill is conflict resolution. This is the ability to address disagreements constructively. Conflict is very, very normal, but it's good to have healthy ways of dealing with it. And the final one I want to point out, I'm sure we could keep going, is the skill of cognitive flexibility or reappraisal. Being able to be open to new information, being willing to change your mind, for example, in the face of new evidence, being able to challenge your existing views and perspectives. When I think about whether, as a society, we're getting better at these skills, I'm not entirely sure. But I do want to acknowledge that learning these skills and exercising these skills can actually be deeply challenging, deeply uncomfortable, actually painful. So why aren't we outsourcing all these things to some AI model? If it's so painful, why don't we let somebody else do it? Of course, I'm kidding, but it's actually something I'm quite concerned about. We increasingly see more and more kind of AI assistants in our life that help with lots of things. And they can be kind of particular convenience. They tend to be very, very agreeable. We've increasingly started it. So they try so hard to be helpful that they can be pathologically helpful to a degree that's actually harmful. And in general, I worry that this technology could perhaps too much reinforce our existing beliefs or biases and not challenge us and our beliefs enough. And if you're not sure about how real these models are, when I prepared for this talk on Tuesday, I just happens to put into one of our a particular popular language model, hey, I think Tuesdays are absolutely the worst days of the week. Don't you agree? And shockingly, the language model agreed with me on somewhat particularly arbitrary. I actually cut off the code here because I'm not comfortable putting everything on the slide, but they vehemently agreed with whatever random beliefs I put in front of it. Now, if we actually want to learn important skills, how would we do that? And thankfully, there's a ton we can build on from education and learning theory. It's very reasonable to start with some scaffolding, to begin by understanding a given task with some form of guided support and structure. We might then move on to deliberate practice, practicing specific areas where we need improvement, using some guidance from scaffolding to do this purposefully and intentionally. And then finally, we might integrate constructive feedback, whether that's during practice sessions or after practice sessions. We can use it to refine our practice, to improve our performance, and potentially return to practice with this feedback in mind. And I believe, and this is really the core hypothesis behind lots of our current research, is that language, and therefore also language models, can provide this scaffolding and this practice and this feedback. We need to create new opportunities for learning. And I want to illustrate this hypothesis with two recent projects. And in each project, we will teach some important skills with some form of AI support, scaffolding, and practice and feedback. But then we will measure performance without those training wheels. They're meant to come off, and that's why I'm trying to use this metaphor here. And I want to discuss how to design human interactions to actually empower users to transition from this AI reliance to actual mastery of the skills that they're acquiring. Really trying to ensure that this AI support really is more of a stepping stone than a crutch. And one way to see this is really that ultimately we're designing AI support here with planned obsolescence in mind. And the hope is that some version of this will lead to more effective and sustained learning outcomes. And I, especially at Stanford HCI, I feel like I might be preaching a little bit to the choir today. As so often, this talk will focus primarily on work I've personally been involved in. I just want to say that we're very excited and thankful for so much of the awesome work that's happening around you in this space. There's thousands of people that we could reference over and over again, whether that's work from Dean, Michael, James, Emma, Omar, Matthew, Dora, Hari, Rose, and many friends here on the Zoom call as well. While I won't refer to your awesome work as much during this talk, it does hold a very special place in our minds and hearts. And with that, I'll share about this first skill about reframing negative thoughts. And I like doing this by introducing Nathaniel. Nathaniel took this picture willingly, which was sent as part of a really awesome art campaign. And he was one of the individuals that shared his personal story in this art campaign called Let's Talk. And as you can see here, the artist really powerfully expresses inner reality as layering on his face. And I'm showing you this because it illustrates, I think, really well that we all have negative thoughts. We express them through language, even if we don't make it as explicit as artists perhaps do here. But I think it's really that so much about our psychology we process and express through language that really get me excited about opportunities to use, for instance, language model technology and develop that specifically for mental health purposes. So, as I mentioned, it's very common to experience negative thoughts. I'll pick on myself now, but I hope that at least some of you can relate to this. And it happens to me pretty often, and I like to tell my students that nobody has been rejected more often than myself. But it happens to me quite regularly that I submit something and I get rejected. And this can lead to thoughts like, I'll never succeed as a researcher. And these thoughts are quote-unquote just thoughts, but they really matter. For instance, they matter because they relate to our feelings and our behaviors. Like thoughts like this are often followed with self-doubt or frustration, maybe relates to some behaviors that are not my interest in the end, and often creates vicious cycles of negative feelings, behaviors, and thoughts. But it's really, really difficult to challenge them. They often entrench and automatic. These thoughts can be emotionally triggering. But thankfully, there's kind of a well-established, proven therapeutic techniques to overcome these negative thoughts, to challenge them, which is called cognitive reframing. And the core idea is just that we can challenge this negative thought and never succeed as a researcher with more balanced, more helpful reframed thought. For instance, this could be something like, well, it's normal to feel disappointed when paper gets rejected. I can use this experience to learn and grow. And this is really at the core of cognitive behavioral therapy, the form of therapy that's particularly popular, and where there's a particular amount of evidence that this can be effective. And again, reframing these thoughts really matters because then this leads to different feelings and different behaviors. I might be more optimistic, I might feel better about myself, and maybe instead of procrastinating, I seek feedback from friends and colleagues like I'm doing here today. Now, how do people learn this type of skill currently? Often there's kind of worksheets and pieces of paper at the center of these type of exercises. In the right column here on this kind of almost empty sheet of paper, you see that there's these empty text boxes to figure out an alternate thought. And maybe some of us are lucky and privileged that we have access to a therapist that can teach us these skills, work with us through these. Often you will still be alone at home, maybe with your therapy homework that might look like this type of worksheet. Or for really most people, they don't have access to anything other than maybe a PDF version or some digitized version of such a worksheet. And this is a really difficult task to do. As I mentioned, negative thoughts are often entrenched, automatic, emotionally triggering. They're difficult to overcome in the moment. And most of us do not have access to the few experts in the world that can really teach you these skills and provide the scaffolding, practice, and support. And sadly, mental health is still heavily stigmatized in too many places. So these challenges led a wonderful organization called Mental Health America and our research team to be very interested whether we could develop some form of human AI collaboration that can provide more scaffolding that would make it easier to engage with these type of skills and would make this training more widely accessible. And I'll start by showing kind of a demo here of how this process works and then reflect on where any AI interaction actually comes in. And this is very similar to these worksheets. And we start by negative thoughts that we're starting with right now. I'll share hopefully somewhat relatable negative thoughts. I'll never achieve success as a researcher. You probably got it if you ever had that thought. And at the bottom here, you see what's most people have the most popular negative thoughts. And they're quite heavy and crushing, ranging from no one cares about me to I'm a failure to I'll never be able to do anything, I'm worthless, or I'm scared that something will happen to the people that I love. Those are some of the most commonly put in thoughts into the system. Next, we learned that it's really helpful to ask about a situation in which this thought came up. We do need to provide value to any user here pretty quickly, but to be useful, we really need to learn at least a minimum about you. And here we're learning a little bit of context by figuring out what's the recent situation that led to this thought, like a recent paper rejection. And now we're starting to talk about thinking traps. That's our kind of attempt to be a little more accessible than cognitive restructuring or cognitive distortions. And in many ways, like we could all learn these skills in many different ways. For instance, you could read about 50 pages in a book, maybe learn about the 10 to 20 different types of thinking traps and learn to identify them. That can be a really tall ask for somebody who's going through something right now and wanting to use a tool. So the first way how any form of AI comes in is that we can analyze the thought situation you bring up and we can figure out what are some of the patterns that might be going on here. There's like types of cognitive distortions, and in some sense you only need to learn about something that's immediately useful to you right now. And the other 19 classes or types of thoughts, maybe we can learn about it a little later. So here our models assess that maybe there's over generalization, fortune telling, or all nothing thinking going on, all of which are true to some degree, and I can pick one to challenge specifically. And then the most difficult part for people and the most exciting parts, maybe from the AI perspective, is that we can suggest potential starting points to challenge these negative thoughts. So we call this a reframe. And here we actually intentionally generate multiple reframes in the hope that at least one of them is something you can really relate to. So I'll read some of them out. For instance, one says rejection is part of the process. I'll take the feedback I received and use it to improve my paper and submit again. Or it's normal to fail disappointed something doesn't go as planned, and I can use this experience and learning and naturally have more success in the future. And this is not meant to do your thinking for you. That's part of the actual kind of active ingredient mechanism of this therapeutic process. But it's extremely difficult often to challenge negative thoughts that perhaps have been reinforced by trauma for decades, and to even have a starting point of how you might think about this differently. And again, like I compare this to the status quo of doing these exercises, which are often pieces of paper that do not give the same importance. They don't listen to you, adapt to you, respond to you, or give specific feedback in the same ways. So after lots of systematic ethics and safety considerations, after ensuring high quality and safety, we actually deployed this model on a very popular mental health who you adapt to you, respond to you, or give specific feedback in often pieces of paper that do not give the same importance. They don't listen to you, adapt to you, to the status quo of doing these exercises, the same point of how you might think about this often to challenge. So we call this a reframe. And here we actually intentionally generate multiple reframes in the hope that at least one of them is something you can really relate to. So I'll read some of them out. For instance, one says rejection is part of the process. I'll take the feedback I received and use it to improve my paper and submit again. Or it's normal to fail disappointed something doesn't go as planned, and I can use this experience and learning and naturally have more success in the future. And this is not meant to do your thinking for you. That's part of the actual kind of active ingredient mechanism of this therapeutic process. But it's extremely difficult often to challenge negative thoughts that perhaps have been reinforced by trauma for decades, and to even have a starting point of how you might think about this differently. And again, like I compare this to the status quo of doing these exercises, which are often pieces of paper that do not give the same importance. They don't listen to you, adapt to you, respond to you, or give specific feedback in the same ways. So after lots of systematic ethics and safety considerations, after ensuring high quality and safety, we actually deployed this model on a very popular mental health website called Mental Health America. It's available to everybody right now, so I'll also pop this QR code again on the last slide. But everybody can currently use this for free, and we've been extremely privileged that despite it's actually been a bit hard to find sometimes. We've had over 160,000 people use this tool over the last about a year and a half, and it has allowed us to do dozens and dozens of randomized trials to really learn more about how to design these tools, how to improve these interventions themselves, and learn about the psychology behind it all. One thing I learned pretty quickly that got us more excited was that it really seems to improve engagement by a lot. So this common reframe that I introduced really is a very common skill. You might have heard of it before. Your clinical psychology friends almost certainly have heard exercises before. Even this mental health website, they actually had a tool that taught that already. It was just a digital version of one of these worksheets essentially. And here I'm showing a completion rate, which was abysmal for the previous tool. It's really a difficult thing to do, especially at the time when a lot of people seek to do it. And while far from perfect, seeing that adding some of this AI support compared to the previous tool, we saw these much higher engagement completion rates. And one thing that sticks with me is that we actually already, even though we never optimized this for cost, we can already deliver these type of iterations. The cost is actually lower than printing out a worksheet, even though humans have to hand use a piece of paper. We can have deliver these type of iterations really for cents or fractions of cents today. But what's only more engaging, and all the numbers and results I will share are from proper randomized trials, where for instance we found that a pixel by pixel identical version of this tool, just one without AI support, where you have to find the starting point for reframe yourself. People actually rated the ones with AI support as more helpful. They also rated higher that they were able to actually learn this skill in a meaningful way. We find that most of the time it helps people feel better within just a few minutes. Technically, this is not actually something that the intervention is designed to do. This is a deeply cognitive intervention that doesn't seek immediate emotional outcomes, but it's nice to see that over 90% feel the same or better. But what's really interesting from maybe more linguistic perspective is that we could learn what actually makes particularly helpful reframes in a way that we couldn't do before in part for a reason of measurement and scale. So for instance, people in psychotherapy have known for a really long time like what would a good reframe look like, an effective reframe. And they would say things like, well, it really has to be relatable to the individual. It has to be helpful in overcoming this negative thought. It should be memorable because chances are you've had this thought before, and chances are this thought will arise again. So it's helpful if you can retrieve that and challenge that a little bit more easily the next time. What we didn't know though is how do you actually create reframes that are relatable and helpful and memorable. What does it actually mean? How can a machine perhaps help you get there? So this lets with lots of super awesome clinical psychology and mental health experts and people with experience to start with various hypotheses of what might make things more relatable and helpful and memorable. And we came up with different constructs like is something rational, actionable, or specific, is it impactful, is it positive, is it evil? And then we developed natural language processing tools to measure exactly how actionable something is and how to make something more rational. And then we're able to actually we always show you typically 3 alternatives, and then you can see what you click on and what people actually rate most helpful with appropriate randomization happening. And that allows us to reinforce psychological theory and learn more about how to create the most effective reframes. Here I'm showing you preference ideas. If I show you one of these 3 randomized order, what do people like to click on? What one they actually want to start out with and use as a starting point. People like highly specific and empathic reframes. If things were simply more positive, that was actually preferred less. So just for instance, if something overly positive, people clicked a lot less on. And these are average across the highly varied population. There was some kind of medium complexity, readability, and the complexity of the language that works best for this broad population. So this is what people click on. This next slide is about outcomes that people report after going through this exercise. And we found that reframes that were more rational, that is, they make less assumptions about you and for instance about your social or financial resources. If we make less assumptions, that actually on average creates reframes that people find more relatable. We learned that actually working with a specific type of cognitive distortion or thinking trap that people find more helpful and making things actual and specific were perceived as more helpful as well. And finding this actual and specific were also the 2 constructs that seem to positively impact how people are to remember the type of reframe that they came up with. So this was exciting to see at the same time when we built any tools or systems. They often don't work for everybody equally well. It's important to us that it works well for as many people as possible. So we did a large study to figure out who does this work for and who doesn't work for. Many times you don't find different performances across lines of race and ethnicity. Here actually, I know these numbers are pretty small. People had even some tried. The key takeaway here was actually that teenagers, people between 13 and 17, systematically reported much worse outcomes compared to the average. You also see this for education levels, but the 2 are highly correlated. Now, we actually started rolling this out to only adults after being more confident about being able to provide high quality and safety roles out to teenagers. But this is actually a really important part of the demographic for the organization we work with and teenage adolescent mental health. So something that's happened worse and worse over recent years. So we tried to figure out what we actually do to make this better. And one thing we actually found out is that the types of reframes that younger folks are really in tend to be a lot less complex sentences, like in terms of reading level or sentence complexity, however you want to define that. They have the shortest sentences and the shortest words in their reframes. So we make the not too complex from that and said, well, what if we make our reframes that we suggest also a little bit simpler and more casual? So we did an experiment where we kept everything the same and we just had language models rewrite this, made it easier to understand more casual. We actually saw significant improvements in randomized trials here for 13 to 14-year-olds. We see that after this very simple treatment, something that language models can do to a decent degree, they actually found those reframes to be significantly more relatable, significantly more helpful without impacting any other outcomes negatively. Seeing everything shown so far from studies of larger scale online deployments, we're grateful with some funding from the NIH. We're able to do a proper pre-registered clinical trial of some of this technology where we have people pay people to keep using these tools for 4 weeks and gathering lots of different outcomes along the way. And while we weren't shocking with our findings, it was good to see that in a proper pre-registered clinical trial, we did see that reframes with the actual were more effective, and found that people in the randomized study with the AI group use the tool more often. And while we can prove that, we think that if people have a better experience earlier, it's especially difficult to do this skill. This additional scaffolding that makes reframes more effective actually just makes them want to use the tool a little bit more. And the situation in the health world, engagement is really a holy grail. Where many people say something, all these things we think that really help you with, if people just did them. But it turns out it's really hard to actually do that and to sustain that use. The last thing I want to share for this first seal is we also did this longer-term trial to take the training wheels off. So when we did the first 4 weeks, we asked everybody to use the tool at least 3 times. And then we measured this complex composite measure of the axis, essentially measures things like seal use, so soft scales here include hypothesis taking negative, recognizing negative values, and evaluate the situation where hypothesis taking in a rational way actively works to develop rational use. So people use with those type of well-established validated scale. What we find after we take we asked about this when people use the scale outside the tool, and then after another 4 weeks, after 8 weeks total, when people haven't seen this tool for at least 4 weeks, we ask again, and we see that this improvement in this common training scale is sustained at least for another 4 weeks. So even when we take some training wheels off, people seem to be able to apply the scale a little bit better in their own lives. Next, I want to change gears to second skill, is conflict resolution and having difficult conversations. Turns out that many important conversations we all need to have are quite difficult. Maybe you have aging parents and you're thinking for health options, maybe you're feelings and you're negotiating salary and you're advising a PhD student going through something. There's lots and lots of examples of difficult conversations. And they're all difficult for multiple reasons. Many times we're not trained in how to read and have specific type of conversations. We're not sure what the strategies, how to start them, how to express our needs clearly. And there's this emotional component often comes in the way. We feel that people are pretty good at some communication strategies, and strong emotions come up. They can get in the way while you're attached to outcome conversations. It can make it even more difficult to have these conversations effectively. Not different with other healthy skills. You can learn skills. There are professionals that teach you these skills. Just there's few such professionals. Few people access to them. It's often outreach for most people. But these experts who say, well, I'm seeing those difficult conversations with you and provide just-in-time feedback. But most people access to some free resources, worksheets, and use conversation strategies. When you worksheets to practice something, it's not quite the same fidelity as if you could practice conversations that really. So one of these tasks is effective, accessible, and more effective, and we try to use language technology to develop that good passive rivals. So this work that I teach you in she calls her system Binge, which was a interactive training system backed by language model that will simulate difficult conversations, provide just-in-time feedback to support both their conversation strategies as well as the emotional regulation components to having those conversations. I went into a crazy amount of detail. There's I did a lot of psychology work that people have done for decades and decades how to teach these skills, and they have effective frameworks for how to do that. And we attached to a particular one called Dear Man framework in behavioral therapy. As the name fails, suggests a gender neutral framework of how to have conversations, and it has specific skills like how to describe facts of the situation without judgment, to express your emotions using I statements, to assert things that you do and want and so on. And I'll show you the other part of the this work that this rather than multi. So I'll help the important components to understand of the flow of how this skill practice looks like. So we start with the situation. Anybody can come share the conversation they're about having difficult. Here we have a situation where it has difficulty remembering medication. I'm considering how a nurse to take care of him. He agrees things that doesn't tell. My goal here, for instance, is to convince them to accept the system to their life and help with healthcare. It starts out with getting a suggestion for a skill. We might not know how to start here at all, even though one of the ways to describe the facts of the situation. So we can then choose what skill we actually want to express, and we'll select exactly we'll select here which type of skill we want to express, and we here just follow the recommendation using the skill, and I'll get to exercise that and invite out first conversation for using the strategy. See how different ways to express feedback for health. Now we'll get some specific feedback. I'll talk about the quality of feedback in a few minutes. Here, for instance, feedback to improve your activity. For instance, I know statements about health maybe not less to do, and finally the user can change the original message based on the feedback. And then on the right hand side, we have this ongoing conversation where we can simulate the conversation partner for computer practice purposes. Now, there's multiple components to this system. On the one hand, you have this simulation of participant provided communication scenario. We also have questions about your conversation partner. So they're particularly stubborn where provided it's more challenging to have this conversation, we try to simulate here. And on the other hand, you have this expert like just-in-time feedback. There's two components of feedback. One is to help advise you what skills you want to use next. So what's the strategy to respond to whatever conversation context we're at. And then feedback on skill use. And concrete actionable advice to perhaps avoid judgmental language or words like constantly and stick to the facts and allows us to have a conversation with a better likelihood. Now, from a communication perspective, essentially means these two tasks. We want to, given a situation, if you use skills somebody wants to express, we want to simultaneously rate how well they did that and generate improvement. So here, for instance, if I say constantly figure out your health, you might point out this judgmental language where often language words like constantly and sticking more to facts. And you can also give a situation how somebody else responded, help figure out what's the strategy to continue to have this conversation. This is a skills session. Now, of course, we have to result. We work both with lay people, the target population where you're curious about what are difficult situations in life that you're uncomfortable having, avoid having, that you're having. We want to have types of areas that you're comfortable, and then work with experts in this behavioral theory framework that uses it applies regularly in terms of letting data particularly high quality versions of this practice feedback look like. And I won't go into all the details here, but if there, I also want to do all the automatic aspects of the evaluation. In many ways, I also caution about many of our methods, automatic evaluation things. They fail to capture what we found human expert evaluation in the right ways. So one thing I circled here is human experts deciding something along the lines of this feedback that here a IRG for this slide where it has 2,000 pixels. How often does this feedback express about the same what the lead expert does? How often actually match that feedback? This was only happening 6% of the time for a decent general language model. It actually happened 83% of the time after we added several thousand pixels and involved things like visual language generation, chain of thought, specific classic theories of showing what are good and not so good ways to express skills. And while the online skills tend to show that direction, it was nowhere near as significant. Personally, I trust in the human expert evaluation a lot more. Now, also, very much we see
yeah, I have a question on this ebook. So what is the second language developed on Justin?
Yeah, so many times future learning context just a few examples that are very commonly done. This contrastive here is one of the more unique bells and whistles we added, whereas contrastive here shows not only how to do something by only a single example and a way obvious particularly bad way, right, but always to show for the same situation. Here's a positive way and a contrasting way of doing. Having both of these present in the context significantly improves the quality of feedback.
Thank you so much.
So essentially, multiple data points about the contrast of their skill expression looks like in that direction. So now we're going to talk about Rena's we try to prove all these abilities so your peers who actually learn a skill. It doesn't take to learn a skill, and we worked with about 8 years old people. They were either scientific justice simulation, one condition, or simulation feedback condition. We also have 3 ways to skills. And we asked people to do 2 different difficult situations, conversations that you're having, article having, possibly having, and on a 9-point letter scale, we have worked with situations that were 7 states and 9s. And so here's the flow of the study. So each participant takes 2 situations that were particularly difficult. We'll call the less difficult, the slightly difficult one of situation 1, and also the more difficult one we hold out for now. We then ask a bunch of questions about how uncomfortable are you having these conversations, what emotional status is, and we simulate only for the first conversation to see how you have these conversations prior to training. The training happens here I'm showing us the training wheel. So now there's 2 simulations here. You have simulation only simulation feedback condition, and you use the first situation, and measure how you do this with the training on. And then we intentionally take the training off. First, we'll have that same conversation scenario again, and we evaluate your skill uses as well as emotional responses. And then finally, we take this whole same situation to see what's actually generalized to a different scenario, and you're having this conversation without any feedback again. So here I'll evaluate this user perspectives. We hear about judging after skills that might not be easy. Does it reduce difficult negative emotions every time you have these scenarios, and do you feel confident in your ability to have these conversations properly? The first one we use validated tuning models that I built. The other 2 were based on self-report from our business. So now we'll use 3. We'll start by skill mastery. So here on the x-axis, S means simulation only, S means simulation and feedback. And the y-axis is the difference of post versus before training. And what we see here is that simulation didn't improve skill mastery, skill expression, skill use. The condition where we also have feedback improved this by about 17%. You also break it down into subskills, and we find that both the conversational skills and the emotional skills also seem to be improved, but only significantly improved in the condition where we actually feedback as well. Next, I'm going to talk about emotion reaction. We focus on primary negative emotions, anger, fear, sadness, disgust. So for instance, we figure out how angry are you about the situation. Here's what we find. You actually find the simulation only condition only helps reduce the negative emotional response, for instance, fear and sadness. About 25 respectively. We find that actually adding feedback to it reduces it significantly more, about 41%. However, for anger specifically, we found actually it starts with a power to the degree that significantly reduces anger only the feedback condition, help people also be less angry about the situation. Number 2 is about versus you're confident about the situation, hopeful value that you have in the meaningful way, you actually have this situation. Here's what we find. And find that simulation helps some degree, more like 17 and 27% to improve confidence and use story. And find that adding feedback helps significantly more, going from 17 to 44%. And then for 2 other measures around full communication, those are only significant points are 8% say when feedback was present. So to summarize, try to listen to practice and practice and feedback. This 8% we can do this with quality equivalent to the work experts in as having skill at the so easy that we know how to apply skill. All people skill training doesn't necessarily that's holding enough to be an drastic change. We found that skill use and emotion work after skill session. Both outcomes happen for both simulation and feedback. Those emotional regulation outcomes, I think those before, and emotional emotions, I already help somebody decrease table chart. Now, I usually talk a lot more in these talks about extremely important technical safety considerations. I get that today. I'm going to show you some of those work on the other side. Of course, in this world of technology and the whole opportunity officers, I have I think the most important thing to do is co-design these systems from all the stakeholders from the beginning. It's not how I follow research, but I don't know how to do that anymore. We do operationalize existing IX frameworks that are principle-based in a variety of ways. Of course, there's minimum requirements of consensuality review. But a lot of things are also flagging for state content both on agencies, agencies, flagging talks about things that are legal bar, and before some version of that, testing or teaming before we put this on the I'll do my last slide. I'll be super excited opportunities to challenge people using help us learn skills. Really work on the public more effectively. We're working on education to action. Every your condition mistake and be part of the process. Condition has to explain that. Take accountability and move forward in the process. Something that's critical to not trying to do. We're trying to teach critical thinking skills around information coordination. We also explore some more creative tasks in collaboration with some communities around photography. So this is all I'm sharing. We have 7 questions. I'll keep my summary here short. I will say I'm so grateful for the amazing health professionals and people who have helped with really how we this and some of the insights which I showed today are not used as everyone makes very much people have to that's the people I make also kind of specifically highlight Ashish Sharma, the first project I shared today, not using the same. Thanks for the invitation for today.
All right, thank you. I think we have some time for discussion. Let's see, I'm going to move your slides. I think you can go to drive down to use sharing and you can see folks.
Yeah, thanks for sharing session work really. So I was wondering, work is taking things that have been done with human supervision and better human supervision and using LLMs and scale accessible. I was curious, if you're doing a lot to implement your if you're doing a lot to like other LLMs in ways that you do more than individual human, any ideas for the universal LLM?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Anyways, yes, we often think about with people if they have accessible. But it's not a question that I use for people out. We know the world in which the person has multiple places in the first place most of the time. It is really a world where supply and demand are massively far from each other. So I'm often, especially large scale deployments, focus on human collaborations and application resource collaborating with AI tool. I don't think that should or in the term will replace traditional health systems. At the same time, those are so absolutely massive resources that even the US people absolutely care will have access to absolutely no care. In that world where we think about schools as at least a minimum level of education and healthcare access that we all need. Uniforces, I especially stuff when in that same conversation, we find all the time that some people here they respond to us with things like I don't see a person that I'm comfortable sharing. We also find people that are privileged to have access to therapists and sharing things like actually something useful. I don't have to share therapists in the world about all the time. Where people have rare access to professionals who help them. There's complex emotions and stimuli in a strong way where working with a multi-extremely AI tool will give access to some people that are not currently well served by the system. That's definitely one that we haven't as much track working on. I think exciting is how we can continue to have these tools for a longer period of time and people use it over time. So if there's people having access to therapists over a longer period of time, that therapists will know better how to file things and be able to do more over time. That's something we're on these learning tools go they better every time use them, which will require some form of state and memory to provide software recording software transfer I should be able to provide even more value quicker. This is a critical thing. I think all the courses or value provide here really important. People here inside traditional clinical studies that are paid and we will continue to for our challenges. And we find is especially in providing value quickly enough, people use the same calculation exercises on super critical. And most commonly with ratings of intense tension is to remember how to be more useful even quicker and to take out the friction in the areas.
Now, I think one quick one. I'm curious, how do you take frameworks off? How do you
yeah, how do you take frameworks off? In mostly I love this question. I think one thing how you see this question and the answer is, for instance, in first training workshop 48 week difference between the frameworks off. We actually have all outcomes engagement with the tool, outcomes retention, both outcomes inside the tool and outside the tool. We're trying to characterize really how well is your with framework with framework forms. So to be able to assess when we start to see first uses of outcomes and that first inform when it's time. How to use assess this right now is use of measurements evaluating outcomes both in outcomes tools. I quickly talk about so far I actually have a lot of space that would maybe clear all this how works this framework not for. We'll see the continuous in this first around frame. We saw people this outside tool moving forms as reported using validated sales self-reported foundation. We saw an increase for the first weeks and then the forms before. So this is how this is very practical for that. And then frankly the educated all the tool right folks. We actually can see these are from 2 to 3 not from 3 to 4. And we saw these areas stable rather than down so there's no real intention of assessment like over the support things. This is skills like framework teams like culture of how we synthesize data that probably I think are important.
Right, of course. I think we're time today. I just want to work and looking forward to the success. Yeah, we'll close the and conference. Thanks all. Have a good See you later.
Walmart Delivery Pass. Get unlimited free grocery delivery. Convenient and unlimited. For just $8.97 per month or $89 per year. With no more fees. Subscribe today.
From behind a window, onlookers watch as a young woman sits in her underwear. The woman raises her arm, appearing to reason with the man and woman stood beside her. Named as Ahu Daryai, the footage appears to show the university student in an act of defiance against Iran's strict Islamic dress code. The circumstances remain unclear. Outside a university in Tehran, a crowd watches on. And as she walks on the far side of the road, she removes her underwear. University officials claim it's because she's mentally ill, but people who know her tell Sky News this is false. They've got her, onlookers say. In this video, it appears a person is put into a car before being driven away. Human rights organisation Amnesty International reports the woman was violently arrested.
She is in danger, definitely. She can be imprisoned, and I fully support what Amnesty International says, that she needs to be released immediately without any condition.
There are questions now for her safety as Iran's morality police continue to enforce strict religious rules. It's after Kurdish Iranian woman Mahsa Amini died in police custody in 2022. She reportedly wasn't abiding by compulsory veiling laws. The backlash public, with women setting fire to their hijabs in the biggest protest the regime has ever faced. For acts like these in Iran, what fate Ahu Daryai faces is unknown. A severe breach of the country's rules could prompt a similar level of punishment. Amelia Harper, Sky News.
The Albanese government will spend a further $600 million in an attempt to retain the defence workforce. The federal government is offering $40,000 bonuses to personnel who sign on for another 3 years. Joining me live is Veteran Affairs Minister Matt Keogh. Matt, thanks for your time this morning. Thank you. So $600 million extra to try to get defence personnel to stay longer, but at the same time, the downgrading of the government's ambitious recruitment target. So why have you done this?
So the $600 million investment on extending the continuation bonus that we've already been trialling since last year, which has proven to be very successful, and so keeping that in place for personnel that have finished their initial service obligation to have them sign on for another 3 years, but also expanding it to pick up people that have been in service around that 7 to 9 year mark, the middle ranks, where we have seen historically a bit of hollowing out, allowing them to sign on for a further 3 years so that they can receive the bonus as well. This is about retaining people in the defence force. It's about retaining them for longer. That's very important, as well as the recruitment efforts that we are undertaking. We've got to see the average service length increase from around 7 years to an average of 12. So these are important contributions to that, as well as expanding the operational reserves by 1,000 personnel to 2030. But what we've done with the workforce numbers is take an actual evidence-based, realistic approach. What we've seen by the previous government, desperate for a media release as always,
but never with any funding or with the necessary work. They made an announcement about workforce because there was nothing standing behind it. What we have done with the Defence Strategic Review, followed by the National Defence Strategy, and the updating of the investment plan around what are the capabilities we actually need for Australia, and we've laid that out earlier this year, and this workforce plan matches our personnel numbers to the actual capability. So where we have set out things like the surface combatant ship building plan and what we will be acquiring in terms of naval capability and other capabilities, we've analysed what's the defence workforce requirement that's actually required for those, and that's what this plan is about delivering on.
Okay, Minister, plans for a major sale of properties from the federal government's defence real estate portfolio to make way for housing has been shelved until after the election next year. Is this to avoid backlash over the disposal of prime military sites to turn them into apartments in the lead up to the election?
So again, we did the Defence Strategic Review when we came into government. That was very important. One of the things that the review called for was a review of the defence estate, something that had not been done for a very long time. We've received that review, but in terms of being able to move forward on that, there's still a lot of work that has to happen. It's got to be aligned to things like our workforce plan that we've just announced today, the National Defence Strategy. There's a lot to work through in terms of how does it affect our people. So now that we've got the Defence Estate Review, a very important, if you like, foundational document coming out of the Defence Strategic Review, we are now working through the implications of that, how you would actually bring that to bear. And that takes some time. We've got to do this work properly, and so that'll be something that we'll come forward with next year.
Okay. Australia will send 14 rigid hull boats to help Ukraine to bolster maritime and coastal defences in its war against Russia at a total cost of $14 million. Was this at the request of Ukraine, and did its Navy indicate to Australia that they needed these type of boats?
Certainly all of the military equipment and support that we've provided to Ukraine because they have requested that type of assistance, and we've worked with our partners to make sure that Ukraine is provided with the sorts of equipment that it needs, and I'm sure everyone's seen the reporting of the way in which the conflict in Ukraine has involved maritime operations as well, and so providing them with these vessels is a very important way of supporting them in their time of need with the Russian invasion.
Okay, so are we expecting any more aid to head to Ukraine in the lead up to the election?
This has been a long-running conflict, certainly longer than anyone would have liked to see it continue on. And over that time, we have received a number of different requests from Ukraine, as have our partners, and we have sought to meet those needs where we can and where we are able. And so we're in a constant dialogue with the Ukrainian government about what their needs may be, and we seek to engage with them and our partners to make sure they get the support that they require to fight back against this illegal invasion by Russia. And so that's an ongoing conversation, and as we pursue, as we work through those conversations with Ukraine, we will announce further things if that is appropriate at that time.
Minister Mackie, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Want fast home internet? Sign up to VDA 100 megabits per second internet for just $44.95 per month with free modem rentals. No term contracts. Everyday low prices. Hurry, offer ends soon.
So there's a new ad supporting Kamala Harris where a bunch of dudes walk into the polling location, and there's a guy and he's like, "You guys ready to make America great again?" And the guy's got his arm around him, and the other guy's like, "Yeah." These two guys go to the polling booth, and they look up at each other, and they nod, and then the guy's daughter is like, "Yay!" And it's like, "You don't need to tell the boys who you're voting for." And the guy looks around, and he's like, "Yeah." And then he marks off Kamala Harris, and I'm like, "Dude, never. That will never. Okay, maybe it'll happen once or twice. But there's so much more to this that I find absolutely hilarious. This is the second ad. The first ad campaign showed a woman going with her husband, and her husband's like, "You're gonna vote for the right one?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then she goes to the polling booth, looks up at another woman, they smile, and then she marks off Kamala Harris, and it's just like, you know, you can vote for whoever you want. I'm just loving that the Kamala Harris campaign is like, people are embarrassed to say they support Kamala Harris, so they're all lying. I got news for you. There are no social consequences for saying that you like Kamala Harris. No one is deeply concerned about the mean people on Twitter. That's why the big celebrities take massive endorsements to come out in favor of Kamala Harris. In fact, with Donald Trump, there is a fear you will pay a social price, but that fear is starting to go away. So now they're running commercials trying to claim that people secretly like Kamala Harris but are afraid to admit it. That's right, the silent majority, the people who like Kamala Harris for some reason. Incredible. But check this out. The Washington Post. In a bathroom stall, a simple message: vote Harris, no one will know. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies are going to the bathroom and putting post-it notes on the wall, some that are that are wet. And it says, remember, it's your vote, no one will know. And there's a bunch of these post-its. I gotta tell you, if I went into a bathroom stall and saw a wet, stained post-it note, I would not consider what was written on it. I would go, ew. But sure, ladies, you do you. So I will read to you this story about the incredible bathroom stall message that women whisper campaign are saying to each other. But of course, we have the ad. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the new ad to get men to vote for Kamala Harris.
Come on, boys. Let's make America great again. It's your turn, buddy.
Before you cast your vote in this election, think about how it'll impact the people you care about the most.
Daddy!
Remember, you can vote any way you want, and no one will ever know.
Do your patriotic duty?
You bet, brother. What happens in the booth stays in the booth. Vote Harris Walls. Paid for by Vote Common Good.
You bet I do, buddy. Look, I love this. It's like dudes secretly being like, I was for Kamala Harris the whole time. Are you kidding? Oh, man. I just love the paranoid, delusional state these people live in, where they think the boys are showing up to be like, yeah, Harris. Hey, you know what? Tell me I'm wrong. If, I don't know, come November 6th, all of these, like Kamala Harris wins and all these dudes come down and they're like, I secretly voted for Kamala Harris. I just be like, well, there you go. I guess I was wrong. I'm willing to make a bet, but I'm not. But sure. In the meantime, women are putting same post-it notes in stalls to share with each other the need to keep your belt secret and vote for what do you want. Here we go. They say in the final days of the presidential race, what started as a whisper campaign has become the subject of a controversial 30-second ad amplified by Michelle Obama and drawn furious backlash from the right. One woman stuck a note at the door of her hair salon in North Carolina. Another pressed it onto the back of a tampon box in Arkansas. A third hung one on a mirror in a woman's bathroom at Ohio airport. Woman to woman. The note read, no one sees your vote at the polls. In swing states and Republican strongholds, on college campuses and in sports arenas, sticking out to the peer reminding women that their votes are confidential, kept private, even especially from the men in their lives. You know what this says to me? More women are going to vote for Donald Trump. Hands down. Let me tell you guys something. Men are disagreeable, women are more agreeable. It's not an opinion statement. This is what the data shows, okay? You may disagree with me, like it. This means that in confrontations, women tend to align with the group. Men tend more likely to challenge the group, though that's just tendencies. It's still, I think, like 55-45, like men are going to be largely agreeable, people don't want confrontation that we get. But what this means is that many women are being told that you vote for Trump, you're voting for a racist, sexist bigot, Hitler, and that means popular culture and the majority is against you. You want to be agreeable. When they're coming out saying, pay for by Harris Walls, your husband doesn't know what you're voting for. Yeah, that means the women are more likely to say they vote for Harris because of social pressures, because it's a social penalty supporting Trump. And then they're going to vote Donald Trump. And I give you one of my favorite moments from 30 Rock. 30 Rock's a great show. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a shame they had to cancel it because that was just truly one of the best shows ever. And Alec Baldwin and Tina Fey. In the first season, I think this is 2008. Can you believe how long it's been? 16 years. Tina Fey, who plays a character named Liz Lemon, is just confessing everything. I forgot she confessed to, I think, Jack Donaghy or something, but she's like, I tell my friends I voted for Obama, but I actually voted for McCain. And I'm like, there it is right there. It is socially unacceptable to vote for Donald Trump, especially for women in urban areas. But if you're going to keep going around saying your ballot is secret, paid for by Harris, the real message that I think is coming across is women are going to be like, yeah, I don't like Donald Trump. He is smart, he is weird, but Kamala Harris is nuts. Not to mention there are a lot of women that probably don't want women to be president. I know, call it sexism, but I think it exists.
They say, the origins of the trend are unclear. The co-founder of Women for Harris Waltz, a group supporting the vice president's campaign, some members have been sticking notes in bathrooms in similar places for months, encouraging them to vote their own minds, reminding them their ballot is secret. I think that favors Trump. So let me tell you, people like to say married women vote Republican. So women should be encouraged to get married. I'm like, no. I mean, the people should in general be encouraged to get married. But it's not that. I think it's a reverse correlation. Women who vote Republican are more likely to get married and be married, and women who believe in marriage are more likely to agree with Republican messaging on family and community and culture. I don't think they necessarily correlate in that a woman who gets married decides, I'm going to do what my husband tells me. No, I think it's that women get married because they want to get married, and they agree with Republicans because they want families in the first place. Republican values are more likely to defend families. Meanwhile, Democrats are running this insane ad. I can't even show on YouTube where it's a woman on the ground bleeding, pregnant, and her spouse or whatever is on the phone, and he's like, doctor, what do I do? And he's like, David, she needs an abortion. And he's like, and then a Republican congressman grabs the phone, and he's like, not while I'm your congressman, I won. And I'm just sitting being like, okay, first of all, this is the ad that thinks convince men, and apparently this ad is driving men to Democrats. No, it isn't. Dude, let me just tell you, if your pregnant wife is on the ground bleeding profusely, you don't call your physician, you call 911. They're not going to tell you on the phone to go get an abortion. They're going to say, sir, your address, please. They're going to show up, and they're going to try and stop the bleeding, figure out what's going on, and transport your spouse to the hospital, where they will perform the requisite life-saving measures. But let me just say, I am not surprised to find that a commercial targeting men to vote Democrat may convince men who are not smart enough to dial 911. And the best part is, they have physicians who don't immediately go, dude, what? Hang up, call 911. They say, have you considered bringing her right now to go get an abortion? Okay, dude, let me tell you. This keeping your ballot secret thing in the bathroom, funny, but I don't believe that women are saying, like, my husband's forcing me to vote for a Republican. She's probably, if you're like, a lot of these women who are married are actually telling their husbands to vote Republican. They say polls are going to rip between how men and women vote. And election law have margins. Harris needs women, even women who are dating or married Donald Trump supporters, to turn out in droves to vote for. Yep, I don't think they're gonna get it. And the reason is, I think there are even moderate and Democrat women who are like, I'm not voting for a woman. I don't know. Not every single Democrat is a feminist who's going to go out there and scream the woman president. It's about time, blah, blah, blah. I believe it's one of the reasons Hillary Clinton lost. The left likes to say Tim Pool's sexist for bringing it up. I'm sorry, this is reality. Mostly men, I mean, I don't vote for a woman, but I'm willing to get a large portion of women like, don't care. And you know, there are a lot of conservatives who have no problem saying it. They have no problem coming out being like, I wouldn't vote for a woman. Me, I'd support Tulsi Gabbard in 2 seconds. I support her in the primaries, 2019 and 2020, and I think Trump bringing her on one of the best things ever. But I gotta tell you, there are a lot of people that are going to say, no way. And I've seen these mandatory interviews. I can't remember who they walked up to a group of black men, and they were asking them, and they said, I vote for a woman. For Trump. Like, why? I vote for a woman. That's it. That was it. Especially with like a lot of people in cities, they want to be tough, these guys. They're like, no way. And there's going to be a lot of women who are just like, look, women are great at what they're great at, and they should be president. That's what they're going to claim. I don't agree. I think they'll allow the right person. A woman can be a CEO, but you know, you're more likely to find male CEOs. That's true, because of the bell curve, the very hypothesis. But that doesn't mean that a great woman to be president. Indeed, how Tulsi Gabbard would be fantastic. But that being said, how you overcome that bias, I don't know that you can at least right now. So, run your campaign, I guess, but you're sticking notes in bathrooms. I gotta tell you, I think it's likely to lose better Trump. Smash that like button, share the show with everyone else, subscribe, follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Become a member over at timcast.com. We got one more second coming for you. Stick around and we'll see you all then.
If you're a YouTuber and you want to save hours managing your library, you need to come check out the screen card all the videos. Click the button. Go ahead.
Well, to discuss the issue, we're now joined by Canada's Minister for the Environment, Stephen Guilbeault. Minister, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure, Michael.
Now, your government calls this a pollution cap, but Alberta says it will ultimately become a production cap because companies will choose to develop resources elsewhere once they meet your allowable emissions ceilings. Does that worry you at all that this will have
technologies out there, and we're not talking about technologies that haven't been invented yet. Like, these are all off-the-shelf technologies that companies can implement right now to reduce pollution.
Except that when you listen to the Alberta Premier, because she had a news conference not long after your own, you know, she says technology has already led to a big decrease in the amount of carbon that's created by the oil and gas industry. So she is making the argument, lean in on this, because not only she, but for example, business groups will point to the fact that industry will move elsewhere, and they're very worried about the impact this will have on essentially oil and gas workers in the province.
Well, it is true that there's been a slight decrease in the emissions of the oil and gas sector, but nowhere near to the levels that are required, and nowhere near to what we're seeing in other sectors. For example, if you look at the electricity sector, buildings, and many others. And really, Michael, it's about making sure that every sector does its fair share when it comes to fighting climate change, and also making sure that those companies that have made, like the profits of these companies have increased tenfold since the pandemic, going from about $6 billion to $60 billion. And what we're doing with this regulation is ensuring that they invest some of those profits into making sure that there is a future for workers in Alberta in the energy sector. Because as world energy and oil demand declines, those producers of oils that will still have a place in this low-carbon future will be the one that can produce oil as low emitting as possible. And that's already what we're seeing. For example, Suncor has already invested in a very important carbon management project. Strathcona, which is another oil producer in Alberta, has invested $2 billion in another carbon management project to reduce their emissions. So companies, the smarter amongst the group, are already doing it, and we want to make sure with this regulation that the entire sector does its fair share, as other sectors are doing their share as well.
Mm-hmm. So again, Alberta's calling this a production cap. You don't think this will cap production in any way?
Listen, Michael, if I was as federal environment minister to put in place a cap on production, we would lose in courts. And this wouldn't help Canadians. This wouldn't help us fight climate change. This wouldn't help us advance reaching our goals in terms of cutting pollution. So what we're doing is going after pollution. And then the Supreme Court of Canada said clearly that the federal government has a role to play. And this is good news for Canadians, because this is good news for workers. It will mean billions of dollars invested in the energy sector to create good-paying jobs for years and years to come.
Now, Premier Smith is promising to take your government to court over this, because again, even if you are targeting the emissions and the pollution here, they say the practical impact will be on production. Are you confident this will win in court?
Yes, we are, absolutely. As I told you earlier, we anticipate by 2030 that the production sector is going to increase by 16%. So I'm not sure I follow the Premier here saying that it's going to lead to production cut when we're actually showing that production will increase.
Mm-hmm. Now, in your news conference today, you said that Alberta does stupid things, and in response to that, we heard the Premier accuse you of having a, quote, deranged vendetta against Alberta. What do you say to that?
I said that conservative leaders in Canada are playing stupid games when it comes to climate change. They're pretending that climate change isn't happening. Just for this summer, Michael, $7 billion in climate damage, the worst year ever. And that's just 2 months of 2024, not the entire year. And Canadians are paying for that all across the country. Atmospheric rivers in British Columbia, forest fires in Jasper, Fiona on the East Coast, heat waves.
climate change is real, it's happening, and as a responsible government, we're putting in place a plan to ensure that we can fight climate change, we can invest in the Canadian economy, and we can create good jobs. Conservatives leaders like Pierre Poilievre and Premier Scott Moe and Premier Smith are pretending that climate change isn't even real, and that's why I say they're playing a very dangerous game with the livelihood of Canadian, with the future, not just the economic future, but what kind of planets will we leave to our kids and grandkids? We have a moral obligation to act, and unfortunately, they're failing on that obligation.
Do you think you did enough consultation with Premier Smith and Premier Moe before coming up with these draft regulations?
Well, I mean, we tried. Alberta refused to show up for most of the meetings, so we can't force people to participate in our consultations. But we've been working on this for 2 years, Michael. Like last year, roughly at this time, we produced a framing document which was based on months and months of consultations, like more than 100 meetings with industry, experts, provinces. We've continued the consultation since then in 2024, and these are draft regulations. We will continue conversations to finalize the regulations in 2025. But at the end of the day, if some provinces simply won't participate, it's not something we can control, but we're willing to work with everyone to make this the best possible regulations they can be.
Are you worried that Parliament may not last long enough to see these regulations see the light of day?
Well, my message to the Bloc Québécois and to the NDP who've called on us to move ahead with this regulation, putting a cap on the pollution of the oil and gas sector, is that if the Bloc Québécois decides that they want to work with Pierre Poilievre and make the government fall, they will be responsible for preventing us from being able to put in place this important piece of regulation and to make sure that Canada does its fair share, to make sure that the oil and gas sector does its fair share when it comes to fighting climate change.
Mr. Stephen Dubois, thank you so much for the time this evening.
Thank you, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. I will have, ladies and gentlemen, a live stream at 8 p.m. Eastern, when most of the polls have closed, tomorrow evening, November 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern. The link is already up on the community tab of this YouTube channel. Be here to get the up-to-date latest coverage on the numbers, the outcome, the results, all of that. We're probably not going to know until at least Friday, maybe Monday. There are probably going to be numerous legal challenges, possibly all the way up to the Supreme Court. But hit subscribe to this channel. Let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. Tell your friends. Each of the live streams from here on out for the next week, 2 weeks, are going to be the most benign, algorithmically friendly, guideline-friendly headlines and titles. So if you see latest update on numbers or results or swing state tallies or outcome, it's not, spicy, but that's what it's going to be. That's what you're going to see on this channel. So definitely hit when you get the notification, because tomorrow evening is going to be one of the most important nights in American history, literally. Hit subscribe to this channel. We'll get to the analysis in a second, to my super chat. Thank you. Let's get started really quickly. 7 p.m. Eastern, the polls close. This is according to NPR in Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vermont, Virginia. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, North Carolina, Ohio, Virginia. And then they close 8 p.m. Eastern in Alabama, Kentucky, D.C., Delaware, Florida, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Tennessee. And then 8:30 p.m. Arkansas, 9 p.m. Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, Wyoming. Then 10 p.m. Eastern, Nevada, Montana, Utah. 11 p.m. Eastern, California, Idaho, Oregon, Washington. And then 12 a.m. Hawaii, and then 1 a.m. Alaska. This is according to NPR. Okay? When do polls close in every state? Here's a timeline. So it's huge, ladies and gentlemen. John, thank you. This is huge. This is enormous. This is a beautiful, beautiful moment in American history. I think Trump Republicans will take the House, will increase their lead in the House, retake the Senate, retake the Oval Office. It'll be a trifecta. It will be absolutely beautiful. We're not going to find out tomorrow night, but it's going to be, everyone will be on, everyone will be watching. The entire planet will be watching. And I hope you'll be on this channel watching as well. I know there are about 5, 6, 7, probably 10 channels you're going to watch tomorrow evening. I hope that I'm one of them. God bless you all. Let's do this. Hit subscribe to my super chat. Thank you, John. Thank you, J. Pat. H.A. Bannon needs some parody in these times. That's true. These 10 times. Bernard Sanders wants you to watch this channel. John, thank you. J. Pat 09, thank you for being a member for so long. Let's get started, everybody.
President Trump holding a record-breaking rally last night at Madison Square Garden in New York City, appealing to deep blue New York City voters in one of the final campaign events before the November election. Watch.
Next Tuesday, you have to stand up and you have to tell Kamala Harris that you've done a terrible job. We're not going to take it anymore. Kamala, you're fired. We're bringing back the American dream, and we're going to bring it back at the highest level that you've ever seen.
Joining me now is former House Speaker, Fox News contributor, the author of March to the Majority, Newt Gingrich, back with us. Newt, great to see you. You were at the rally at MSG last.
Trump is campaigning. He's campaigning in blue states because he knows very well he gets the popular vote. It's game over. It's game over for the opposition party.
Tonight, how was it? What were your takeaways?
Well, I think Chris and I both, first of all, just thought it was amazing to be at Madison Square Garden to see the sheer energy level, which is something several of the speakers commented on. This was a crowd that was on fire. They were excited. And the president lived up to that. His speech was, I think, very powerful, very direct. Melania was wonderful introducing him and being part of it. So were Eric and Ron and Don Jr. So you really had this whole effect on Laura Trump. But you also had, in a sense, a new Republican Party. I mean, you had people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Giving a talk at a rally for a Republican nominee. You had Tulsi Gabbard, who's now switched parties and become a Republican. And it was just really interesting. You had people, as different as Vivek Ramaswamy, who's a very successful entrepreneur. And, of course, you had Elon Musk, who's the wealthiest, most successful man in the world, and who also has made amazing achievements with his new Starship, which will ultimately, I think, go to Mars probably before the end of the decade.
So this is very important. Hit subscribe if you're new to this channel. This is very important. The Republican Party has been completely reshaped, completely revitalized. It's transformed into a new political party. That's why when Kamala Harris or Biden, when they say, well, Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney and George W. Bush and Mitt Romney, I don't know Bush and Romney, but I know that Dick Cheney is voted for Harris. That is the worst thing that could ever happen to a political campaign, to have any Cheney, I should say, Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, who lost like over 40 points in Wyoming, and her father brought us into never-ending military conflict with Bush and Rumsfeld. That's the worst thing for any political party. You have the most unpopular, they say Trump is polarizing. Nobody is more polarizing than the people who got us into never-ending military conflict 20 years ago. The old Republican Party, the Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld Republican Party does not exist. These are relics. These are fossils. You might as well go and excavate a million-year-old dinosaur fossil. That's newer and more important to the world than anything the old Republican Party has to offer. That's why when they say, oh, this general doesn't like Trump and Trump is so mean. Yeah, The New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN, The Atlantic, all of Hollywood, every celebrity, almost every celebrity, the good celebrity, awesome celebrities have a mind of their own. They don't need Hollywood. They're choosing Trump. But the people who really are the most insulting are the journalists, quote unquote, who want to do hit pieces all the time on anyone who disagrees with the Democratic Party. So whereas Trump makes a comment, could be crude here and there over the years, you have a public relations monstrosity where Democrats have this veneer of civility, and yet they utilize quote unquote reporters and journalists to do their dirty work. Why do you think there are so many hit pieces written by these wonderful publications against conservatives? Where's the investigative journalism of the New York Times and the Washington Post to find out why there were two attempts, especially one attempt on Trump's life that almost ended his life and actually did end the life of a firefighter at that rally? Ever wonder why the New York Times has not investigated that? Ever wonder why the Washington Post has not investigated that? Why haven't they investigated the attempts on Trump's life? And God forbid, if the tables were turned, you better believe there would be every single investigative journalist on the planet at these publications doing everything possible to find the truth. But I mean, just if you're a conservative or if you're just somebody that doesn't opposes the Democratic Party, you will get hit pieces. I mean, there were hit pieces written about me years back. Democrats don't have to insult anyone. They have reporters and journalists to do that through disingenuous, dishonest, deceitful, and unethical hit pieces.
And so all of this talent coming together, and I would say, frankly, I'm happy to swap Robert F. Kennedy for Liz Cheney. I thought that was sort of captured where this race is at, and I think that the fact is that Trump's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, so you think Trump could take New York? Can he win New York?
Well, I think it's a long shot. I mean, it depends on how tired New Yorkers are of crime and the costs of taxes and corruption. He's certainly going to do better in New York than he did in...
He doesn't need to take New York. He can't take California. He doesn't need to. You just need to get the popular vote. Even if he loses the popular vote, it really doesn't matter. All of me is a tank for the Democratic Party anyway. So it doesn't matter. But if he gets the popular vote, then every single article written about how the popular vote should determine the presidential contests will justify Trump's victory in the minds of wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats.
His first two campaigns, and I think he has an outside chance. I don't think if he carries New York, this will be a landslide of a Reagan scale. But he certainly has momentum. What he is doing is he's helping re-elect Republican congressmen in New York, and that's vital if Speaker Johnson's going to have a big enough majority to enact the Trump agenda.
So you've got a new ABC News Ipsos poll putting Harris ahead of Trump nationally at 51% versus 47%. But that same poll shows Trump leading Harris on key issues. He's up 8 points on the economy, he's up 7 points on inflation and conflict in the Middle East, he's up 12 points on immigration. But what's with these polls? I mean, they're so close when you look at these national polls, and it's much different than the predictive election markets. When you get just something like a poly market, which actually people put their money on and they're betting on, you've got a much wider gap. You've got Trump right now at 66.6% versus Kamala at 33.4%. Do you believe the other polls that have them so close nationally?
Well,
Donald Trump intends.
Well, especially the different polls. Trafalgar, for example, which was remarkably accurate in 2020, shows Trump doing very, very well. The Democracy Institute poll, which is a joint British-American venture, shows Trump doing very well. So you can polls. I would say two things about what I watch right now. One is, by the way, the gambling market, which is not sort of my normal take. Then recent betting, it's 95% Trump.
The polls have to correlate to basic logic. Paul Bartlett, by the way, thank you so very, very much. The polls have to correlate to logic and reason, okay? 4 years ago, you had Democratic governors leading the charge to shut down state economies. People were told to stay home. Life was miserable for a great many Americans. Okay. And still, it took days until Trump finally lost. We have a different world today. They don't have Twitter. Now you have X. Elon Musk is allowed critique of the Democratic Party. That's what's called free speech. When Democrats or wonderful liberal Democrats say, well, there's no free speech, there's no moderation. Yeah, here's the issue. You can now critique the Democratic Party without 50 intel officials lying through their teeth saying it's a plot by the country. That's the issue. Free speech is about being able to not only critique the Republican Party or Trump, but also to critique Biden, Harris, and the Democratic Party. That's what free speech is about. Okay, it's not like some modicum of guideline rules. It's about not tipping the scales overtly for one political side. And they say, well, these books are banned. Well, yeah, there's an age restriction for certain topics, genius. But free speech is about being able to criticize and to talk about any story that's relevant to a presidential contest. It's so simple. And yet you have people who defend the 50 intelligence officials say, oh, Hunter's laptop. It's a propaganda campaign by the Kremlin. It's like, no, that was never true. You would have had to have been an imbecile to believe that. And that was a suppression of a very important story that we still haven't gotten to the bottom of, because the Democrats, of course, are going to do everything possible to prevent any investigation of corruption. Okay? You have pretty clear graft and bribery. If the tables were turned and Trump had a laptop, see, Trump doesn't have servers, they're private servers, the top secret intel on them. He doesn't have laptops with graft and bribery. Trump doesn't have these things. He also doesn't have intelligence officials going after him. This is the left in our country. But anyway, we have a different world now, ladies and gentlemen, a completely different world. The more information you get, if you're an informed voter, you're choosing Trump. I'm not trying to be belligerent or rude or condescending. If you understand that inflation, interest rates, mortgage rates, foreign policy, like issues that affect national security of the border, if you understand that Trump did a lot better on all those topics than Biden did and Harris did, you're obviously going to choose Trump. If you think that Trump's personality is horrible, then you'll vote Democrat. Or if you're just indoctrinated for years and years, you're a lifelong Democrat, like I was up until 7 years ago. I was a lifelong loyal Democrat my entire life, people. And I saw the light. I finally realized, wait a second, I wasn't born to just show allegiance every day to the Democratic Party. They've done nothing for me. If anything, they're not doing a lot for the country. They're actually destabilizing the world, a whole bunch of foreign policy decisions, interventions, ousting world leaders. You have Bush and President Obama, who had the same type of foreign policy that created instability throughout the world. And then you have invasions under Biden. So objectively, just forget about allegiance to one ideology. Forget about allegiance. Forget about personality. Forget about what Trump echoes or what he suggests or what he is, any guilt by association, all the nonsense of propaganda, the stupid propaganda nonsense they level with Trump. Who was better for the economy, Trump or Biden? That's a rhetorical question. Who was better on foreign policy, Trump or Biden? Who's better on the border, Trump or Biden? Hey, it's Trump all the way. So the polls have to correlate to reality. When you have polls saying Harris is at 4, why? What did she achieve for her to be up 4 points nationally? I don't know. Was it a bill? Can you name any of the bills if you're running for Harris? Can you name one bill? The Inflation Reduction Act, did it help reduce inflation? And if so, why are interest rates so high? Build back better. How do these $1 trillion bills help the country? Let's continue.
She's still at 30-something because it's a lagging indicator. But in recent betting, they just said she's going to lose. The other thing is, look at the state turnouts. I've been stunned. In state after state, either the Republicans are ahead, which they are in most of the states, or...
By the way, like I said, I'm not going to do a live stream tonight. I'm not going to do a live stream tomorrow morning or afternoon. I am waiting until 8 p.m. Eastern. Be here, ladies and gentlemen. A great many of the polls close. We'll have already closed. We're closing at 8 p.m. We'll have a long, hopefully very long live stream, and then I'll probably do a live stream in the middle of the night. So, because people are going to be staying up. Okay, this is a very important time in American history. You have people who are indoctrinated and have there's no reason. Trump's bad. Trump's like, you're not really educated. You don't know much about politics. You're just you follow the herd. You're like you're just a follower. If you like Harris's policies, God bless you. Like I respect the individual. I respect the American citizen that loves Biden's foreign policy, thinks it's fantastic, loves Biden's economic policy, loves his policy on the border. Give me that person that loves Harris's policies. If that person says it's better for America to have high inflation, it's good to have high interest rates. It's very good to have no functioning border. It's very good to see these invasions or whatever. I'm being flippant. Give me an individual who says I really like those policies. These are great for America. Good, God bless you. Go Harris. Go Democrat. God bless you. It's fantastic. At least you're not indoctrinated imbecile. If you just say Trump, oh, he's emboldened the bad people. He echoes the words. He echoes the words. He suggests these things, and he's a bad human being. I like the character of Democrats better. Okay, well, Harris did not win a primary. They ousted and removed in the most diabolical manner a sitting president from his candidacy, from his campaign. Biden won his primary. You can take all Trump's insults and bottle them up, and it still wouldn't be 1/1 millionth of the most overt, nefarious, removal of Biden. I don't even know how to explain it. I don't even know how do you remove somebody who was primary. I don't even know why Biden stepped down. That was more despicable than anything Trump's ever said. So sparing the nonsense about Trump being a flawed person. Nobody's more flawed than the wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrats who literally took a primary away from a man who won it. And they don't even see it as a bad thing. Like, well, why have a convention? Why even have a convention? Don't even have a convention. It's a waste of time. So on one hand you say, well, we can do what we want. We can cheat Bernie Sanders, we can cheat Biden, and we don't even need to have a primary. Why have a convention? Why Harris be at the convention? Why Hillary Clinton speak? For what purpose?
The margin of really has narrowed dramatically. It's 950,000 votes closer in Pennsylvania than it was at this stage in 2020. 950,000 votes. And the reason is pretty simple. Everywhere you look, and I talked to Sean Wiley about this Republican National Committee last night. He said everywhere they look, Democrats are not turning out. They're not turning out because, frankly, Kamala Harris is not believable.
Look, I want to be as algorithmically friendly and as civil as possible. The man who's going to become the next president, God forbid, wasn't supposed to be here at this point. Thank God he survived. And there was a father and a firefighter who saved his family, who gave his life for his family, who is no longer with us because of that first attempt on Trump's life. Okay? Now, switching topics, of course, has nothing to do with what I just said. Democrats are now faced with, or they were faced with two choices. A man who likes John W. home, he was running for Happy Meal, slurred his speech, made up words, started meandering off physically and mentally into the sunset all the time. It took one debate for the entire world to see, oh my God, there's something wrong. And the pundits, the millions of channels, oh, he's fine. He just lies. Nobody lies more than you. Nobody lies more than the people who said Biden was completely just fine. You have that, who couldn't even miss one debate nationally, completely upended and destroyed his campaign because everyone saw he's running for Happy Meal. Or you have Harris, who laughs at everything and never answers even one question directly. You will never in a million years say yes or no for Harris, or even most little Democrats topics. They'll either try to redefine words or not answer questions because if they utilize the English language or any language, but let's just say the English language, to actually answer or to form a rebuttal, you're not going to win the argument in most arguments. It'll always revert back to Trump mean we're bad, Trump's worse, which is not an argument at all. We have a great economy, record low poverty, record rising household median income, record low unemployment. Don't remove Americans from never ending withdrawal. Biden did not buy it. It was a May 1st withdrawal. May 1st 2021 withdrawal, not a haphazard summer withdrawal. And first president stepped in for Trump is a great president. Let's continue.
And it doesn't make any sense. You don't see how raising the middle class shout so often before people think it's a joke. Right. So if you look at the actual numbers, something phone calls say how you vote. Something to go vote and the places where people are going to vote. For example, with Senator Scott, who's on the very first hour, the Florida was open. The Neil crowd, very big Republican turnout, and the Democratic precinct, very small turnout.
I have two questions for you. First off, some states are saying it'll take longer time to vote tonight. We're going to actually we're going to get the results for a week. From Georgia Senator.
We will not know the results until Monday, at least. We will not know the results tomorrow night. We will not know the results Wednesday night. We will not know the results Thursday night. We will not know the results Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. We might know the results Monday. We'll probably know the results next Tuesday or Wednesday, which will be Trump regaining the Oval Office. And every single wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrat, absolutely lidded, who knows? Some might be secretly happy, but celebrities, leave. Oh my God. Most voters, most people supporting Trump would get some kind of, they gather enough money for first class tickets for every celebrity that they wouldn't have to pay. Go anywhere you want. I'm leaving. Goodbye. Nobody wants you. Nobody needs you to be here. Celebrity. No problem. No. I'm leaving. We didn't leave the first time. When you lied the first time, how many celebrities are leaving this year? Hollywood is like no longer Hollywood was. It's a tiny, insignificant fraction of the grandeur or the aura that it used to be. I can't even name who is the top celebrity in 2024. I don't even know. Nor do I care. I just don't care. Like in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. If you're a movie star, you're a movie star. I don't even know who's a movie star now. Maybe a couple people, 3 or 4 people, but they were movie stars 20 years ago also. I'm talking about who's a new movie star today. I can't name one.
Kevin Lessler, and RNC chairman Wiley on Futures yesterday. So when do you believe we will know the winner of this election? Kelly, you've got some states like Arizona say, oh, we're going to know 13 days. What about Georgia?
Georgia, I believe we're going to know the night of. We have a law that requires the early votes absentee ballots to be counted the day of 8 p.m. And I'm confident that our turnout levels are going to dictate that we will know, hopefully, everyone's up to vote President Trump will win.
We're going to win on November 5th. We're going to know before November. Kamala back.
Not that Trump wins, if Kamala tries to oppose it and challenge it. She's somebody who wants to certify the election.
Yeah, so then Mike Pence was credited. He did the job of the vice president. In the year 2000, after a very long bit of recount, it's Al Gore, who was the vice president, who was certifying George W. This is America. In America, when the game is over, you're supposed to shake hands.
Oh, you better believe Democrats will behave in far more egregious manner than Trump. He calls them negative. Literally nothing when man said calls anyone to commit a crime. Again, you have to believe to make a very absurd leap of logic. Trump complained that he was cheated, therefore he committed crimes because of him. No, that's not it. That's not nothing to do with it. It's impossible to prove that Trump's words caused anyone to commit a crime. It's okay to be angry or sad or disappointed in the outcome of any football game, whatever. That doesn't mean somebody told you or influenced you or compelled you to commit a crime. You commit a crime because you're an adult, individual, whatever. A human being, you make a bad decision. It has nothing to do with anyone else but you. You can blame other people, but generally judge on yourself. I like another person. It's all people who influence you.
And work together. And we want that attitude this fall. Whoever personally, whoever wins, as an American, I will try out to be an effective American president.
All right, well, she's supposed to certify the election, so we'll see. We'll watch that. Great to see you. Thanks so much.
Oil prices down.
Welcome to Senator Trump. Well, Senator, good to see you. So listen, I see your card. You've done campaign trail for a while with President Trump, and with the polls, we're in a dead heat, right? Some polls have come up. I don't think you get a better read on what's happening in these swing states than by going to swing states and talking to voters, going to coffee shops, going to breakfast, which is exactly what you're doing. What are you picking up in swing states across America on who has the edge before 4 days before election day?
Well, Sean, in the last 3 days, I've been in Wisconsin, New Mexico, Vegas, Nevada, Phoenix, Arizona. I'm currently in Michigan and Wisconsin right now. And I'll tell you, the crowds for President Trump has been just overwhelming. Right now, we're speaking to a crowd of several thousand here in Detroit. And I'll tell you that the UAW workers for President Trump is in a large scale. I looked at those pictures and years not there. They say that 65 to 70% of UAW workers for President Trump. If you're not a worker, if you're any white person, you want to traditionally Democrats and unions, but what president is actually imposing tariffs because other countries are hurting American unions. That's why Democrats kept Trump's tariffs. Then they said Trump was imposing national sales tax. Nobody believes it's not lie. They're trying to say, even when people see that commercial like lights, like taxes, who start to then keep them. Union kept Trump's sales tax. Democrats kept not only the tariffs, but also Trump's tax cuts. They literally kept Trump's policies and then they're campaigning against them. We were in Africa, New Mexico. It was amazing. Africa, Vietnam people show up. There was thousands there, and a crowd that's like literally on the ground waiting for opportunity to hear President Trump's speech. Last time we did in Phoenix, Arizona, there was a crowd of over 20,000 people there, and you hear these individuals. They all are very pro-Trump. I saw a poll today and a story that was written about a guy that says he's told he believes he's told for underpolling using numbers out there. And I think I just see how President Trump doesn't know. I'm not going to use so many yet, but in Vegas yesterday they had a poll, a debate out there, and President Trump 97% likely win. So maybe they said right. I hope they do. All right, people, this is an NPR article. I'm not doing a live stream tonight. I'm not doing a live stream tomorrow morning. I'm doing a live stream tomorrow night. This is my live stream today. Please put it on your calendars, or you know what? Hit the notification bell on the live stream for tomorrow night. Hit the notification bell. Anybody who might enjoy the channel, please tell that person. My viewers in the Philippines, my viewers in around the world, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, throughout the world, Canada. Tell your friends, anyone who might enjoy this channel. Please go ahead and refer to this channel tomorrow night, 8 p.m. The link is in the community tab. We'll be live tab as well on this YouTube channel. Hey, God bless you. God bless America. Follow me below. I hope you do really well. I think that I'm 270 just fine for me. You know what? I got a run score. Hey, it's been great, ladies and gentlemen. I love you all. God bless you. Be here tomorrow. Every single live stream will have the most benign headline, latest update on numbers. Guam, I love you. Guam, everybody, Puerto Rico, everyone here. God bless you. Please watch tomorrow 8 p.m. If you're in Nigeria, Korea, anywhere in the world, thank you for watching. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow 8 p.m. One of the greatest days in American history. Trump regains the Oval Office. I told you this for 4 years, and we get the House trifecta.
and it's going to be a very
Whether you fix roofs, move boxes, or light the room, Google Local Services Ads makes it easier for customers in your local area to find the services you offer. And with the Google Guaranteed badge, they know they're getting business taking trust sale. Connect with local customers on Google Local Services Ads.
Try Old Spice Total Body with 24/7 freshness from pits to toes.
One very interesting thing in the AI/robotic space in the last couple of weeks, and that is somebody built a literal cyborg, half robot, half living organism. Cool, right? Well, what they use for the living organism part, well, that gives me pause. They're using robotic parts, a mushroom brain, and also developing a fungal self-healing skin. They also designed it to look like a spider, which is not good. I haven't used the term unholy abomination a lot in my life, but I'm going to start now. As one of the researchers put it, if this continues to develop, I think it's quite crucial to consider what happens when we release this out in the open. And he said, when we will release it? When? Not if. If we release it. Why would we release it? I would have preferred, he said, let's think really hard if we should release fungal robotic spiders in large numbers into the world. But that's just me. All right, I'm sure you've seen Terminator 1 and 2, or at least 2. That was probably the bigger one, right? So you know Arnold, that famous line, he goes, I'm a cybernetic organism, living tissue over a metal endoskeleton, right? Did I nail that accent?
I'm a cybernetic organism, living tissue over a metal endoskeleton.
It's classic, right? So is that kind of like what you think when you hear the term cyborg? Well, one of the cases, the researchers at Cornell University decided to create their very own version of cyborgs. Now, the robots themselves are not too noteworthy. You've seen things that are similar before. Some are shaped like starfish. They have 5 legs. They can move around. Some are on wheels. They look like little remote-controlled cars. You've seen little robots like that before. What's different about these is that they're controlled by a living entity, a king oyster mushroom. So mushrooms have these things that kind of resemble roots. They have a root system. These can stretch for vast distances underground and work kind of like a information highway. They can pass information across very large distances, right? So similar how you have underneath a city, you might have the fiber optic cables that transfer information back and forth. Similar to that, mushrooms have an underground network of something called mycelium. And some research into these mycelium networks suggests that these fungi, I swear I'm not going to make a fungi joke, but really, I'll try not to. But these fungi, these mycelium networks, can send electrical signals to effectively communicate with each other. In fact, scientists were able to categorize some of these signals, aka words, and found that mushrooms have a vocabulary of around 50 words that they use to communicate. So we're assuming they're communicating about sources of food or perhaps injuries to the network, to that root system, but we don't really know yet. And just so you're clear, there are some scientists that are saying that we don't have enough sort of proof that this is a language quite yet. They're not willing to accept this as a form of language. But these signals, they're not random. There is some sort of a pattern to it. There's some sort of a thing that's happening here. It's not just random noise. So going back to the researchers building these mushroom cyborgs. So the team began by growing the king oyster mushroom in a lab from just a very basic kit that you can order online. So yeah, so you too can create this thing, this unholy abomination horror in the comfort of your home. Now that I think about it, this would be like the weirdest pet imaginable, wouldn't it? Imagine this thing following you around the house like a puppy. Actually, I'm saying that don't. So the point is that the scientists grew this mycelium biomass of the mushroom. And again, keep in mind, this is how it senses its environment. This is how it communicates, how it transports nutrients. But before people start correcting me in the comments and go, actually, so the mushroom is the fruit of the fungi. It's the thing above ground that we typically think of as a mushroom. The mycelium is that underground network that you typically don't see, sort of the root system. So we're talking about mushrooms controlling this thing. Technically, that's not quite the case. We're talking about the mycelium, the roots. And so they take that mycelium and they connect it to electrodes that are able to pick up those communications, those signals, right? The electrical signals that the mycelium uses to communicate across vast distances. We just connect it to wires, electrodes that are able to pick them up, right? So we're taking those sort of biosignals, right? They're made by life, they're electrical, and we're converting it to digital information that we can use to, control computers. And that is used to control the robots. So the robots are able to walk around and do roles as a response to the electrical spikes generated by the mycelium. And so, for example, when the researchers stimulated with ultraviolet light, this mushroom cyborg is able to change the gait and trajectory, which is showing that they're able to respond to the environment, right? So they sense something and they're able to move as a response to what they're sensing. As one of the researchers put it, mushrooms don't really like light. Based on the difference in the intensities of the light, you can get different functions of the robot. It will move faster or move away from the light. So if you're following at home, in summary, we took this organism that's very different from us. It has no concept of human ideas like empathy, love, or mercy. Then we gave it a robot body, and now we're annoying it with light to see what it does. Terrific, right? What can possibly go wrong here? By the way, I know some of you sometimes kind of miss my dry sense of humor, so just so there's no miscommunication, I'm genuinely pretty excited about this. I think it's a cool project. It's very interesting. I'm glad they're doing this sort of research. Certainly, I think we can be excited about this and maybe also a little bit concerned, or at least a little bit like in awe of what we're doing. I mean, we're taking a living entity, one that's very different from us, and outfitting it for a robot body. I mean, I'm very excited, don't get me wrong, but there's one part of me that goes, this seems weird. Now, what's also interesting is they have another similar project. I think it's the same team of researchers where they're growing a self-healing skin for robots, a skin that can react to light and touch. From the research paper behind this project, they're saying this paper explores an experimental endeavor that successfully incorporates living, self-regenerating, and reactive ganoderma sessile mycelium into a model cyborg figure, creating a bio-cybernetic entity. While some of this stuff might sound like a horror movie, in all seriousness, this could have some really beneficial applications. For example, in agriculture, these little mushroom robots could sense the soil chemistry, know when to add fertilizer and so on. This could unlock a whole new avenue of fungal computing, which has huge potential. We can't get into that today, but it's a whole sort of potential branch that could be opened up for different ways of doing computing. But of course, as some scientists point out, releasing these biohybrid robots in various ecosystems could disturb the environment in ways we can't predict. Raphael Mestre, who works on the social, ethical, and policy implications of emergent technologies, said the following, quote,
"You're putting these things into the trophic chain of an ecosystem in a place where it shouldn't be. If you release in big numbers, it could be disruptive. I don't see at this moment this particular research has strong ethical concerns, but if it continues to develop, I think it's quite crucial to consider what happens when we release this in the open."
So let me know what you think. Is this exciting, scary, horrifying? Would you be freaked out if robots in your home were powered by, had the brains of, mushrooms of mycelium, fungus for brains, if you will? Does that strike you as odd, alien? I once had some leftovers in the back of my fridge that grew a whole bunch of fungus. I gotta say, if that thing could walk its way out to the trash bin, that would be kind of nice. I would not mind that at all. With that said, Binge, let's wrap, and thank you for watching.
Che
ましょう街の平和なフリースタイルの見れないのは誰のせい
改めましてこんにちは。今日短い間ですけど、このタイニーディスコースのよく楽しんでください。よろしくお願いします。
ウォーマン、目と目を焦られない僕を見てウォーマン、とてもいやらしい企みを育て喜ぶしなやかに駆け生きる動物のようにそばにいるだけでいる見る力抜けてゆくあなたの唇なら骨まで届けてもいい冷え出るほど来るほどに腹と腹すり合わせて夢の中Hey woman、この世の理不尽を優しく抱いて Why woman、答えられないクエスチョン微笑みながら投げかける嗅いだことのない香り聞いたことのないウィスパー触れたら僕は全てを投げ出してしまうあなたの唇で今度に滅ぼしてもいい何かに涙見せているあなたを思い浮かべ一人遊ぶ教えて何がその心を動かすの知らず知らず大事なとこにいられてる僕のインチキもイカ様も一つ残らず泣いて愚かな嘘のない地獄からそっと手を取り連れ出してくれあなたの唇で綺麗に生まれ変わらせて全てを映すその鏡で僕のあなたを今宵覗かせてくれ
ガチオフィスなんだ結構さすがタイニーです。
痛いくらいよくわかっているものすごい歪んだそれをあなたに知っててほしいなんていうのは俺の甘えこれ式は抱えてゆける歯食いしばれば過ぎ去ってしまう些細な痛みばかりのプライ誰かはしていられ涙をぬくりと飲み込んでか弱い僕を増やしてくれるのは悔しさとか罪の意識さらば強くなれ自分のこと笑ってみせるけど謙遜でもなんでもない諦めたふりして楽になりたいだけ本当は誰にも負けたくない目の前に眠るあなたの匂いを嗅ぎ分け太陽を確かめそっと手を伸ばすブラブラもっと高く飛びたいなら涙をぬくりと飲み込んで将来場になってくれるのは今目の前にある悲しみさあ強くなれ開いた傷口から流れ出してるのは君の願いよりと止まろうブラブラ誰かはしていたら涙をぬくりと飲み込んでそして自分自身でいたいだろう最後瞬間まで立っていたいだろうさらば強くなれさらば強くなれ違う姿勢をあれやこれやと妄想して結局別の人生なんてないといつも通りの結論に行き着いては抜け直そうどんなやりを取り返そうとしても居心地いい場所から出られないやばいなパズルを解き明かすように生きて曖昧な悲しみ惑わされてゆくよじれる心本当のところ私は何にでもなれたはずなんだよただ迷子になったそれだけのこと夢を教えてくれるのは誰赤い血が隠して嘆きの重さにまた引っ張られる も枯れた後あなたを探してるそこは私の行き先暗闇をじっと見つめたあがくほどささやきが聞こえて答えを探すなと暗闇は自分の中それを抱きしめてうずき出す心
いろんなタイトルとか形でコストがあるんですけども、まだこんなスタイルだったので、じっくり味わっていただきます。お願いします。じゃあこれです。次の番組です。じゃあ、Vamos, chicas. Antes de terminar aqui, que você vai fazer? Para isso, quanto é? Para isso, quanto é? Sai com eu, se quiser, eu sou muito we don't do that this summer, and after this, we're playing here for 5 years concert, so it's like an unexpected huge reward to the band. So we're really having fun. So thank you, and thank you, everyone. Thank you. 乾いた冷たい風、春のようにスティン、しんとした空気の中、春が始まる。飛び立つための羽、オーバー揃い、真っ暗い空を見て迷いを捨てる。時間が傷を癒すってこと忘れると知るだろう。当たり前のままだけど言うよ。続けてください、変わり方さい、考え方にもやらず。その理由正解してたというなら知り合いましょう、聞いてみましょう。何も知らないことだらけ。大丈夫だから君はそれならいつか離れ離れ、みんなとうち笑えるほど涙湧いてくれ。昔は本物ない永遠は10割ない引き足でくれたんだ変わらない。全てをさえ、飛び立てたい、そうやることなんださ。得体を知れないよ、そうやったいくつもきっとするつかめてる、そうやって知り合ってくる。大丈夫だ、振り返らないで。全てをさえ、飛び立てたい。変わりは誰にもやらない。その理由正解してたというなら知り合いましょう、聞いてみましょう。何も知らないことだらけ。大丈夫だ、君はそれない。君はそれない。君はそれない。
Maybe there's something they know that we don't know. Polymarket has been taking bets on who will win the president, and most of you know. Now, recently, Kamala Harris saw a surge in the betting odds, but now it's shifted back towards Donald Trump with 1 day to go before the election. But the big news is that Robinhood has now launched an event contract trading system where you can make was effectively a bet on Donald Trump or Kamala Harris to win the election. Now, I myself, for fun, tried it out, placing just $100 on Trump. I don't know what's going to happen, but full disclosure, I want to make sure you guys know that I did this. And it's not a lot of money. It's mostly just to see what happens. And I think I win like barely anything if Trump actually does come on top. What's fascinating, however, is the terms by which you win these bets. And it seems to be indicative of a, does Wall Street fear something? It was a funny joke that I saw the other day from Chris Parnell, and it was, they said, he's so good, he made a 9/11 joke like a year for 9/11. And he made the joke about shorting certain markets based on the upcoming 9/11 terror attacks. And in the skit, he's asked, and it was SNL, like, you knew it was coming? Of course we did. And what's funny is it's a joke about how there were a large amount of put options on major airlines right before the 9/11 attacks, which is a bet a stock would fall. Now, I don't know nothing about nothing, so whatever that is, it's just weird. But let me say this. When you see big betting agencies plaster massive disclaimers about how you win, they are fearing there will not be a clean result. It doesn't mean we want a clean result. It means these massive corporations taking your bets are concerned that come election time, when there is no winner declared, they want to make sure they're clean on this one. And when you come out and say, my guy won the election, they go, actually, did you read the fine print? We planned for this moment because we feared it would happen. That is to say, these betting markets are saying outright that you win
when the president is actually inaugurated, not if the election is called. Right. Let me stress that for you again. If you are making a bet on this election, you don't win based on the election. You win based on who Congress decides wins the election. I want to repeat that one more time for you. You think if you place one of these bets and they come back and say Trump wins all the swing states, Trump wins the electoral college and the popular vote, congratulations, you think you won? You didn't. Because if come January 6th, Democrats block the certification and Trump is not certified, you lose. And then what happens if it's not Trump or Kamala? I don't know. Now, I believe the strongest possible outcome here is going to be that there will be a clean certification, maybe some garbled nonsense from Jeannie Raskin or something, but it is enough that even Robinhood is making sure to make this clear, and Polymarket has now added this read the rules disclaimer. And I believe this is the case. I want to make sure, I could be getting it wrong. I want to make sure you understand it. But when I've been trying to Polymarket this whole time, for the past several months, and I had to look for the rules going way down to the rules section and reading this, it is now clearly above. Polymarket tells you. But hold on. I'll come back to Polymarket. First, Robinhood. So I use Robinhood, not a whole lot, but a lot of people complain about it, but it is what it is. And I noticed the other day they had this thing, like, who's going to win, Kamala or Trump? The market opens soon. And I was like, that's interesting. I had $100 lying around and I said, just let's see what happens. Here's what they say. Instructions. The U.S. president is chosen through a process that begins the national election held every 4 years. Citizens vote in their election, which determines the electors of the electoral college. A group of representatives from each state's number of electors is equal to the number of senators represented in Congress. The candidate who wins the election is held, the candidate who wins the majority of the electoral votes, 270 out of 538, is elected president. The general election is held on the first Tuesday in November of the election year, unless that first Tuesday is November 1st, in which case the election is on the second Tuesday. You get it. They say, on January 6th of the following the year following election, there's a joint session of the U.S. Congress where the results of the election are certified. The certification is widely publicized and published in the congressional record the following business day at 9 a.m. Congress is sworn in on January 3rd. If Democrats win the House and Donald Trump wins everything else, Democrats are likely to block Donald Trump's certification, which means he could win the election and you could lose your bet. Having a good time yet? Hey, this is not financial advice. You do you. So the underlying is the candidate who is certified, the winner of the presidential election by the U.S. Congress during the January 6th joint session. Certification is published in the congressional record following business day. The congressional record can be accessed here. Select the correct Congress on the top down menu, yada yada. They want to say blah blah blah. So this is interesting. They're not saying the election. Now, Polymarket. Take a look at this. Read the rules. The presidential market resolves when the Associated Press, Fox, and NBC all call the election for the same candidate. In the unlikely event that doesn't happen, the market will remain open until inauguration and resolve to whoever gets inaugurated. These betting markets are telling you outright, warning, there is a possibility the results do not come back the way you expect. They're saying, warning, news outlets may not agree that there is a winner. We may not have the person who wins in the press certified on January 6th. And let's see what happens if Trump and Kamala, neither, is certified. Take a look at this. The market resolves when the AP, Fox, and NBC all call the election for the same candidate. So there are scenarios here, my friends. I hope you're paying attention. Now, many of you are probably not betting on Polymarket's not for Americans. There's Call Sheet and there's Robinhood now for Americans. You get certified, it's a process, there's something like that. What happens if Donald Trump wins? What happens if Donald Trump wins on election day? AP, Fox, and NBC call the election for Donald Trump. However, Democrats then win the House. And come January 6th, they refuse to certify, citing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Trump is disqualified. Instead, move to certify Kamala Harris. There's a battle of the courts. Let's just say it stops there. What happens? Your Polymarket will resolve for a Donald Trump victory despite Trump not actually winning presidency. And then the people who bet on Kamala Harris are going to be like, but she won the election because Trump was disqualified. Oh boy! Or the inverse. Kamala Harris ends up winning. AP, Fox, and NBC all call it for her. But then there's a legal challenge. The Supreme Court sides with Trump and Trump is certified. This means, with Polymarket and Robinhood having different criteria for who is determined to be a winner, there opens up a whole bunch of shenanigans where a person might bet on Polymarket for Kamala to win and then Robin for Trump to win and win both. All I can say is, when these betting markets, and look at this in real time, Trump is starting to skyrocket once again in the betting markets. They're telling you right now, hey, we don't actually know. Here's the best part. It says, if you would prefer to trade the market that is resolved solely by who gets inaugurated, set to happen on January 20th, you can visit that market here. My friends, that means you can bet on Polymarket that Donald Trump wins the election and Kamala Harris gets inaugurated. Right now, Donald Trump is at 58.30 and Kamala Harris is 40% to be inaugurated on January 20th. But in the Polymarket betting odds, he's at 60.9% and Kamala Harris is 39.1%. Yo, it's just so weird. There's a margin difference between the people who are willing to bet on Trump actually being inaugurated, even if he wins. They're outright saying, in aggregate, in the wisdom of the crowd, Trump may win and the press will declare for him, but he will not be inaugurated. Okay, money talks, BS walks. So I don't know what to expect tomorrow. I hope y'all pay attention, because things are already starting to get weird. What I will say is this. Yo, this past weekend was, dude, I read the news every day, and I'm just looking at this cluster F mess that is news. Fake news, memes, rumors, lies, manipulations, just better on the wall. The news media today looks like Jackson Pollock painting that I'm trying to parse through. It's normally kind of bad, but it's pretty bad right now. So my friends, you ready for one wild ride? Well, I hope you join us tomorrow night. We're going to be streaming all day. I think we might start at like 5 or 6 Central. I probably should know the number. But we said 5, but now we're in Central Time, and we may want to get started at, which would be 6 p.m. Eastern. Or earlier, maybe earlier. Because we're doing a crossover. We're going to crossover with Carl Benjamin over at Lotus Ears as well as Stephen Crowder. And then, of course, we're here at Daily Wire Studios, where literally next door, we're going to be hanging out with Daily Wire for their election coverage. This is super exciting. My friends, I'm not going to tell you many bets. I don't trust this stuff. I'm just telling you, boy, oh boy, it's getting weird. Smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. Become a member over at timcast.com to support our work tonight. We'll see you at Timcast IRL for our election eve. Oh boy. It's a cool LED. Was it Jeremy's? You can see right there. There it is. Got a cool LED screen behind me. All right, everybody, stick around. Got a couple more segments coming up, and we'll see you all shortly.
Meet .AI Sales, a new way to sell with real-time intelligence that empowers your sales team at every step. Reach customers in prospects in a click from LinkedIn, Salesforce, Outreach, or the app. Plus, our built-in AI system is here to help. During calls, it recognizes keywords and surfaces relevant info. This can include pricing, competitive insights, and more. Managers can also customize these real-time recommendations to help with objection handling. While on the call, view the latest Salesforce activity tied to the contact you're chatting with. No app switching required. You can also log calls and set call dispositions, all in the same place. When the prospect isn't picking up, pre-record a voicemail message and share it in a click. .AI also creates automatic call summaries, search transcripts, play recordings, and add notes. Plus, it's easy to create your sales teams from anywhere. As a manager, use QA scorecards to guide sellers right after every call. You can also create custom coaching groups to monitor team performance in real time, track call sentiment, and view live transcripts to see if anyone needs support. Bring all your sales conversations into one AI-powered customer intelligence platform so your team can close deals faster.
Now, Israel's foreign ministry has officially informed the United Nations that it is withdrawing from the 1967 agreement recognizing UNRWA. That's